Huh, where am I? What happened? The boy blinked a few times, trying to get his bearings. His surroundings looked oddly familiar, like something straight out of a comic he used to read. Mark, time for breakfast, sweetie. A woman's voice called from downstairs. He froze. Mark, did she just call me Mark? That's not my name. He spoke out loud, but then stopped again, his voice higher, lighter, younger. What the hell happened to my voice? He muttered, running a hand over his neck. And why is my neck so small? Panic began to creep in. Before he could think, the door burst open. Marcus Grayson, I've been calling you for 10 minutes. The woman stormed in, hands on her hips. He jumped, lost his balance, and tumbled off the bed, landing squarely on his head. Mark Grayson, and she looks like a young Debbie. Wait, no way. Don't tell me. He scrambled up, rubbing the back of his head. Sorry, Mom, I was just thinking about some stuff, he said, trying to sound natural. Her glare softened almost instantly. She sighed, walked over, and sat beside him. Then she pulled him into her lap like a real mom would. What's wrong, Mark? She asked gently. All right, this is my shot, he thought. Am I ever going to be like Dad? She smiled and brushed his hair aside. Of course you will, sweetie. But remember what your father said. It might take years for your powers to show up. Until then, just enjoy being a kid, okay? A normal life is rare these days. She pressed a soft kiss to his forehead. Okay, that confirms it. Mark Grayson, Debbie Grayson, I'm an invincible. I am invincible. His stomach dropped. Excitement turned to dread. Okay, he said quietly. Good, now come on, breakfast is ready. You'll need your strength if you're going to grow up to be a big, strong man. He nodded and followed her to the kitchen. Think. Mark's life sucked because he was awkward and got bullied. If I train early, maybe I can change that. Get stronger before the powers show up. Maybe even survive future fights better. He glanced at his small hands. If I bulk up early, I'll have an edge physically and mentally. Maybe I can even influence the others later. Nah, not yet. Thrag would still wipe the floor with me, but I've got time. First goal, get big. Hey, son, that deep, calm voice froze him. He looked up. There he was, Nolan Grayson, Omni-Man himself, the walking definition of a nightmare wrapped in a smile. Mark forced a grin. Morning, Dad. He sat down at the table, trying not to look terrified. This is either going to be awesome or the worst experience of my life, he thought as he stared down at his plate. And so began the life of the new Mark Grayson, one who knew exactly how the story was supposed to go. Mark grunted as he powered through his last few reps, dumbbells clanking before he dropped them to the floor. Sweat dripped down his face, but the grin he gave the mirror said it all. Bigger again. He flexed once, admiring his progress. Mark, hurry up and shower. You're going to be late for school. Got it, Mom. He grabbed his towel and clothes, heading for the bathroom. After locking the door, he peeled off his sweaty shirt. Still hates school. New life, same damn problem. He turned on the shower and waited for the water to heat before stepping in. Man, this shampoo smells amazing, he muttered, lathering up. Yeah, it's my mom's. Yeah, it smells like roses. And yeah, I don't care. After rinsing off and finishing with conditioner, he leaned back under the spray, letting the heat wash away his thoughts. Nothing beats a hot shower. When he finally stepped out, he dried himself carefully, added deodorant and a hint of cologne, and got dressed. Then it was straight to the kitchen for breakfast. 10 minutes to spare, Debbie said, raising an eyebrow. Looks like I underestimated you. He smirked. Come on, Mom. You know I always find a way to surprise you. What's my motto again? She smiled. Always expect the unexpected. Especially from your favorite son. They said it in perfect sync, then cracked up laughing. All right, eat up, she said, ruffling his hair. Hey, where's Dad? He asked, though he already knew. Fighting a dragon somewhere, you know, Tuesday stuff. Mark chuckled. Figures, love you, Mom. I'm heading out. He kissed her on the forehead and stepped out into the morning light. Any day now, I should be getting my powers soon. Please tell me I'm stronger this time. I've been training my ass off for weeks. The bus screeched to a stop in front of him. He climbed aboard and headed for his usual seat in the back. Man, I still hate school. At least William makes it bearable. The ride was the same blur of chatter and engine noise as always. When they finally arrived, he went through the motions, classes, notes, boredom. By the end of the day, he was ready to crash. At his locker, William popped up behind him. Dude, did you see the Mahler twins hit the White House? Yeah, caught it on the news before I left. I still can't believe the Guardians let them get that close. They didn't even breach the building, right? And Omni-Man was there too. William snorted. You're such an Omnimaniac. Big fan of the guy, huh? Mark smirked. You're the one talking about his mustache. Fair, William muttered. Anyway, crash tonight. I'm grinding for that level 43 chest armor. Can't, got work. William groaned. Don't be that guy. When's the last time you bought a comic, huh? Those things aren't free. You're into the dumbest stuff, man. They laughed as they walked down the hall until Mark spotted him. Todd, the school's resident bully. Todd had Amber cornered again. Leave me alone, Todd. Mark sighed. This idiot again. William nudged him. Go be the hero, man. Mark rolled his shoulders and stepped forward. Yo, Todd. Todd turned annoyed. What do you want, Grayson? She said, leave her alone. You deaf or just stupid? Todd squared up. Or what? Or I knock your head off, Mark said calmly. Then he shoved him hard. Todd stumbled back, scowling but backing off. Amber blinked. Thanks, he's been bugging me for days. Mark smiled awkwardly. No problem, he's special, she laughed. You're Mark, right? Yeah, here my number. If he bothers you again, call me. Thanks, she said softly, brushing her hair aside. Mark's brain short-circuited for a second. Okay, wow, she's even prettier in person. The comic didn't do her justice. He waved a quick goodbye and left before it got weirder. Well, that went better than expected. Burger Mart wasn't far. The streets gleamed under the sun, and for a moment he slowed down just to take it in. This world's beautiful, too bad it's filled with monsters, some human, some not, he sighed. Better get used to it, Mark. If you're going to survive here, you need to be strong enough. He pushed open the door to Burger Mart, immediately catching heat from his boss. Grayson, late again? Yeah, Mark muttered. After the dinner rush, he wiped down tables. If I remember right, this is it. Tonight's the night. Grayson. Take out the trash. Mark looked over at the heavy bags waiting in the corner. Here we go, time to test it. He grabbed the first bag easy. The second one tore a little as he lifted it. He hurried outside and tossed it toward the dumpster, except it didn't just land in the dumpster. It sailed far into the distance. Mark blinked, then smirked. So it begins. He tilted his cap down and walked back inside, grinning like a man who just got handed the universe's most dangerous gift.
Hey everyone, welcome to FanFic Canon. Thanks for hitting play. I'm thrilled to bring this fan-made story to life for you. If you enjoy the ride and want more narrated fanfics, smash, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss an episode. And if you want audiobook of a novel of your choice, join my Patreon. Request any title that's freely available online, and I'll produce a full narration just for you. Now, let's dive into today's adventure.
All right, boss, I'm clocking out, Mark yelled as he clocked his time sheet. He removed his uniform and placed it back inside his bag before leaving the fast food restaurant. All right, time to start the real training. Gotta know my limits first so I can start pushing them. Mark could easily throw a what meteorite, or was it an asteroid? Either way, it's a start, Mark thought as he wailed down the empty night streets. I'll head home first and then sneak out when everyone's sleeping. Then I can see what I can really do. Let's hope flying isn't as hard as Mark made it out to be at first. Though to be fair, the comics didn't show Mark's training, only the show did that. Mark said to himself as he looked down at his feet. Let's try to fly now. Maybe we can get a grip of it. You know what, maybe it wouldn't be a good idea. Don't want to mess up the city too bad, Mark replied, having a full-on conversation with himself, making it seem like he was insane. Mark continued walking until he reached home. Hi, Mom, I'm home, Mark called out to his mother as he walked through the door. A big welcome home to my favorite son. Now, sit. I made chicken and heated up some authentic German bratwurst flown in just for you, Debbie said to Mark as she placed a plate full of food in front of the boy. Mark leaned up and kissed his mother on her cheek before taking a bite of the bratwurst. Thanks, Mom, Mark said to the woman as he chewed on his food. So, how was your day? Debbie asked. I had a pretty interesting day, Mark was explaining. However, while he was talking, his father suddenly rushed into the room. Nolan leaned down and kissed Debbie before taking his seat at the table. I'm sorry I was late. I swear a dragon was attacking Hong Kong. I stopped it, Nolan explained to his wife. Nice, Mark was getting ready to tell us how interesting his day was, Debbie said as she turned the attention back towards her son. I'm finally getting my powers, Mark said excitedly, not faking an emotion as he was genuinely excited over the prospect of getting his powers. Are you sure? Nolan asked awkwardly in a serious tone. Pretty sure. I threw a trash bag into space, Mark replied, keeping the same tone from earlier. His response was met by an awkward silence as Nolan only stared at him. After some time, however, Debbie gave Nolan a small kick in the leg to get him to reply. Oh, that's great, son, just great. If you're up for it, I can make some time for training tomorrow morning, Nolan replied to the young man. Oh, this is so exciting. Debbie cheered for her son as she knew how long he had wanted to get his powers. Bright and early tomorrow morning, Mark. Make sure you get a good night's sleep, Nolan explained to the boy. Heh, for sure, Mark exclaimed happily. Mark quickly ate what remained of his dinner before heading upstairs for bed, or so his parents thought. Mark, however, went upstairs and sat on the edge of his window and stared out into the stars. I know Nolan is a lying piece of shit right now, but all of these memories, every birthday, every sport event, every martial arts class, every cookout, I remember all of the time we spent together, and even if I hate to admit it, I really do love him, Mark thought to himself as he remembered all of the time he spent with his new father. Mark took a deep breath and sighed. Guess now is as good a time as any, Mark said to himself as he slowly leaned off the edge of his balcony. Mark gave out and let gravity pull him towards the ground, trying his best to remain calm as he did so. Mark relaxed his muscles and felt the rush of gravity suddenly give way. He looked down to see his feet dangling off of the ground. Ha ha, Mark laughed, *boom. Mark took off into the sky with enough force to crack the ground beneath him. He stopped once he was a few miles in the air and was breathless at the sight before him. He could see over the clouds. Laying bare to him was the beautiful star-filled sky. Wow, this is amazing, Mark said to himself as he gazed upon the full moon like a wolf drinking in its rays. Okay, flight. Nolan said it's like peeing your pants on purpose, so I'm guessing he means to just let your body relax. If I remember correctly, equilibrium is important, Mark explained to himself as he floated aimlessly in the sky. He put his arms forward and willed himself to move. It seemed as if his body understood his desire and acted accordingly as Mark began slowly moving forward. I think this is enough for now. Gotta be able and ready for the real training tomorrow morning. Oh man, I hate the feeling of having your chest caved in by someone bigger than you, Mark said as he willed his body towards the ground. Mark, unlike the original, was able to get himself back down to the ground without any problems or crashing, albeit he did so at a much slower pace than the original had tried. Once Mark was back in his room, he laid down into his bed and went to sleep. The next morning, Mark was awoken by the alarm he had set on his phone. Put some pants on and let's get in the sky, my boy, Nolan said as he walked into Mark's room. Mark hopped up from his bed and ran to get his clothes on. All right, let's go, Mark said as he ran past his father. The two went outside and quickly ascended beyond the clouds so that no one could see them. It's kind of like how you walk and don't think about balancing anymore. But when you were a baby, you did. You're a baby flyer right now. You have to focus on staying upright, focus on going the direction you want to go, Nolan explained to Mark as he circled the boy. Okay, I think I got it, Mark thought as he tried copying what Nolan was doing. He began moving around, slowly trying to copy Nolan's movements. All right, not bad. You're getting the hang of this pretty quickly. Now, follow me, Nolan said to the boy as he flew higher into the sky. Mark stuck his arms out and took off to follow his dad. You can wear yourself out while flying. Moving fast is like tensing a muscle. You're much better off if you relax that muscle from time to time. Use that momentum you've built to carry you forward, Nolan explained to the boy as he flew alongside him. Mark looked at his father and stuck his arms out, letting his body go limp again before gathering his strength and sailing forward. Nolan looked at the boy strangely before using his own speed to catch up. Okay, good job. You're relaxing, that's a good first step, Nolan praised the boy. Yeah, I got it, just let go, Mark replied. You know you are far better at flying than you should be. Late night practice? Nolan asked as the two continued their flight. Yeah, Mark replied. All right, let's see how you land. Over there all right? Nolan asked. Okay, Mark replied. I got this. This is easier than I thought it'd be, Mark thought as he slowly descended towards the ground, managing to bring himself to a stop just before his feet touched the ground. Good job, Nolan cheered as Mark touched the ground gently. Woohoo, I got it, Mark yelled in excitement. All right, let's move on to something else, son. Since you've gotten the basics to flying right now, let's move on to some hand-to-hand combat. Let's see if you can put those classes you've been taking to use. Try to hit me, Nolan said to the young boy. All right, here we go. Time to see what I can do, Mark thought as he braced himself and attacked his father, missing again and again. Good, you're aiming at where I'm going, but you're still a little slow, Nolan said to the boy. Try agai. Ugh, Nolan grunted as Mark landed a firm punch on his jaw, sending him reeling a little. Not bad, son. Not bad at all, Nolan yelled as he was surprised at the force behind Mark's punch. But you have to be able to take a hit as well, Nolan declared as he punched Mark square in his chest, knocking the wind from the boy. Mark landed harshly on the ground and struggled to catch his breath for a few moments. Hooah, I gotta keep it together. Can't show weakness, Mark thought as he clutched his chest in pain. I need to get stronger, and the only way to do that is to do what my father wants. For me to get up and fight like a man, Mark thought as he got to his feet, a look of anger and pain filling his eyes. Is that all you got? Mark asked his father as he retook his fighting stance. That's my boy, Nolan said before drilling Mark with another powerful blow, this time to his face. Arg, Mark howled as he was knocked to the ground. Spewed. Mark spit up a mouthful of blood as he got to his feet again. I can still fight, Mark declared boldly. Nolan looked at Mark with the grin of a warrior on his face before rushing his son again. Raag, Mark yelled as he sidestepped his, punching him in the face in the process. Good, again, Nolan yelled as he quickly recovered, this time pressing Mark harder than before. What preceded was a one-sided beatdown that Nolan had unleashed on Mark, beating the boy black and blue, even breaking a few of his ribs. That's enough for today, Nolan said as he looked down on his son. Mark had collapsed to one knee as he struggled to breathe, his arms, legs, and chest full of bruises as Nolan had focused on parts of his body that wouldn't show easily. This monster. Even with everything I had, I could only touch him a few times. While he beat me viciously, Mark thought as his breathing finally settled. Seeing his son was still having a hard time, Nolan walked over to the young man and offered him his hand. Mark looked up at his father and smiled as he took his father's hand. Good job, son, Nolan said as he pulled Mark to his feet. Mark, however, took the opportunity to catch Nolan off guard. With the remaining strength he could muster, Mark punched Nolan in the face. Catching a superior foe off guard to win? Smart, Nolan said to his son. Now come on, we need to get home before your mother gets upset, Nolan said. And Mark, Nolan started before being cut off. Yeah, I know, Dad, this stays between us, Mark said as he wiped the blood from his mouth and nose. Ugh, another day of school. I hate it so much, Mark complained as he put his books away into his locker. I hear ya, but what are you going to do about it? It's a necessary part of our growth, William explained. William, I love you, man, but if you keep talking like that, I might have to punch you. Mark joked back. Grayson, Todd yelled out as he and a few of his friends approached Mark. Todd, I'm going to stop you right there. You or any one of your boys touches me and I'll break your fucking fingers. Mark threatened the three boys. I'd like to see you try it, punk, Todd yelled. Todd ignored Mark's warning and went to grab him. The second Todd touched Mark, Mark punched him in the face hard enough to knock him out. He then stomped on Todd's hand hard. All right, who's next? Mark asked the two boys. They looked at each other nervously before grabbing Todd and walking away. Fucking dick, Mark thought as he grabbed his things. Nice job, man, William said to Mark. Yeah, thanks, man. Look, I gotta go. But I'll call you later, man. Mark said as he turned to leave the school. This is the day I get my suit, Mark thought as a smile spread across his face. Any second now and I should hear the gunshots, Mark said to himself. Asterisk pop, pop, pop. The sound of gunshots rang out through the city. And there they are, Mark thought as a grin appeared on his face. Mark quickly ducked into a nearby alley and changed into his makeshift outfit before taking off towards the sound of the gunshots. I'm going to enjoy this, Mark thought as he flew through the air. Mark spotted the cause to the ruckus, 2 armed men and a large man made of stone. Mark picked up the pace and rushed the giant man made of stone, slamming into him and crashing through a nearby gate. Mark and Titan both came to a skidding halt. Ugh. Who are you? Titan asked angrily as he got to his feet. Someone who's really going to hurt you if you don't surrender, Mark replied. We'll see about that, tough guy, Titan yelled as he charged Mark. Mark stood still as Titan charged him. Titan pulled his fist back and with all of his might slammed it into Mark's chest. How'd you like that, tough guy? Titan asked confidently. However, that confidence soon turned to fear as he looked up to see Mark hadn't moved an inch. Please, Mark stated before punching Titan in his face. The cement surrounding the man's body instantly crumbled as he was laid out with a single punch. Is that all you had? Damn, I expected more, Mark said as he looked down on the unconscious man. What are you wearing? Nolan asked as he floated down to Mark. Hey, I don't have a costume like you. I just had to throw something together real quick, Mark replied. HMPH, well, after that I think you've earned what comes next, Nolan stated with pride. Am I getting a suit? Mark asked excitedly. Yeah, come on, Nolan said as he gestured for Mark to follow him. Nolan and Mark both took off into the sky and headed straight for Art's tailor shop. So do you know what you want? Nolan asked. Yeah, I got the perfect thing in mind, Mark replied with a grin on his face. I always did like the original suit. Had taste, class, panache. Sometimes you just can't beat the original. With that being said, I'm not the original, Mark thought as he flew. Mark and Nolan flew through the air for a few more seconds before finally arriving at Art's tailor shop. Once inside, Nolan introduced his son to his longtime friend and suit maker. Were you seen? Art asked as Mark and Nolan walked into the shop. Who are you talking to? Nolan joked as he shook Art's hand. Sorry, I just need to ask, Art replied. Whoa, Mark exclaimed as he looked at all of the supersuits Art had lined up. Prom dresses by day, supersuits by night. I'm Art Rosenbaum, kid. Pleasure to finally meet you. I've heard so much about you. Art introduced himself to Mark. Hey, you too, Mark said to the man. Hey, your dad's never mentioned me, has he? Art asked. Mark stuttered. He's a teenager, Art. He barely remembers anything he doesn't see in the mirror every morning. Nolan joked back. You make dad's costumes? Mark asked the man. He's quick, this one, Art stated bluntly. Can't have you running around in pajamas all the time. Nolan said to Mark. Oh man, this is awesome, Mark yelled. I say that, but those weren't just pajamas. They were inspired by Generator Rex, who himself is based off of him. Rex, another Image Comics character. So how does this work? Mark asked. Well, usually we start with a conversation and I make something custom. Art replied. Well, I know what I want. I've been thinking about it for a long time, Mark exclaimed. Yeah, well, let's. Nolan was explaining before something drew his attention. Asterisk beep, beep, beep. Sorry, gotta take this, Nolan said before leaving the shop. All right, kid, what did you have in mind? Art asked as he turned to Mark. Well, can I draw it for you, or can you get a concept of it with just words? Mark asked. I'm a pretty good listener, kid. Just give me the rundown on things and I'll see what I can do. Art replied as he pulled out a notepad and a pen. Okay, I want it to be the same material as my dad's, but as for the design, this is what I want. Mark began explaining to the man exactly what he wanted his suit to look like. Okay, I got it, kid. I gotta say you really did think this out, but are you sure you don't want something to cover your face? Art asked. Make it the same color as the upper body. Mark stated. Oh, and one more thing, Art. Can you make a device to block out noise like high-pitched frequencies, preferably something I can wear in my ears? Mark asked. Yeah, I can do that, kid. Why, are there any sound-based villains running around these days? Art joked. Yes, something like that, Art. So how long until you're done with all of that? Mark asked as he eyed the other suits. For you, kid, give me a few days, 2 at the most. Art replied with a smile. All right, thanks, Art. Mark yelled as he ran out of Art's shop. All right, I can't wait to see what this will look like on me, Mark thought excitedly. So you seem in a good mood today, Nolan said as he threw a baseball across the planet. The ball traveled at a speed so fast that any contact with it could explode a human into tiny pieces. Mark, being nearly as indestructible as his dad, stuck his hand out and caught the ball easily. Yeah, well, I still can't wait to get my new suit. I've been waiting for this day for a long time, Mark explained as he threw the ball back towards Omniman. Ooh, good throw, son, Nolan said as he felt his hand sting a little. Thanks. Mark replied with a snarky grin. Look, I'm glad you're enjoying your powers, but don't get complacent, son. You've been training your whole life for this moment. Don't stop now, Nolan explained as he threw the ball again. I know, Dad, I know, Mark replied as he caught the ball. *BRRing. Mark's phone suddenly started ringing, drawing both men's attention. Oh, it's Art, Mark exclaimed happily as he answered the phone. Hey, Art, Mark said to the man. Hey, kid. Just wanted you to know your suit is ready. Anytime you want, you can come pick it up, Art explained to the young man. Woohoo, Mark yelled in excitement as he started doing loops in the air. I'll be right there, Mark yelled. What is it, son? Nolan asked in confusion. Art says my suit is ready. This is awesome. See ya later, Dad, Mark yelled to his father as he got further and further away from his father. Mark swiftly made his way towards Art's tailor shop, breaking the sound barrier multiple times in the process. Yes, here we go, the age of Invincible begins. Mark laughed as he landed outside of Art's shop. Mark used the secret hatch to the store and entered Art's secret sublab. Kid, you got here pretty fast. Ready to try out your new suit? Art asked the excited young man. You know it, Mark replied. All right, here you go, kid, Art said to Mark. He walked over to one of his shelves and pushed a button on the desk. Once he did, a small container opened up and Mark's new suit was revealed. Mark grabbed the suit from the case and immediately began putting the suit on. He grabbed the collar of the suit and stretched it far enough for him to step into it. The suit fit to Mark's body flawlessly, showing off every tie-NY detail of his muscular body. How do you like it, kid? Art asked as he watched the boy observe his suit. I love it, Mark exclaimed. Glad to hear it. I know you were on the fence about the face mask, so I made it separate from the suit, Art said as he handed the boy his face mask. Thanks, Art. Seriously, this is amazing. What about the device I asked about? Mark asked, still working on that, kid. I'm almost done with it, but I know how much you were looking forward to the suit, so I figured I'd give it to you now, Art explained to the boy. I see, well thanks, Art, Mark yelled before racing out of the building. You know what, I'm not usually one to be an asshole, but I think it's time for a title card. Mark stood on top of a nearby crane as he looked down over the city. Suddenly, a squadron of cop cars raced by below him, alerting him of a crime nearby. Well, time to go make my debut, Mark said as he leapt off the crane and flew towards the scene of trouble. Mark followed the trail of cops until they arrived at the scene of a bank robbery. HMPH, this guy has no idea the trouble he's in. Let's end this fast, Mark said to himself as he rushed towards the man. You see the hole in the wall, right? The man asked the cops before pointing his laser arm at them. He went to fire at the cops but was stopped when Mark suddenly slammed his fist into the man's jaw, sending him flying across the city block like a doll. Mark quickly chased the man's body and slammed him into the ground hard, knocking him out. Dude, not your lucky day, Mark said to the man as he carried his unconscious body to the cops. Mark slowly floated down towards the police, carrying the man, and set him face down on the pavement. Here you go, guys. I believe he's all yours, Mark said to the men. Thanks, mister, the officer asked. Invincible, Mark said triumphantly as he posed for the cops. Yeah, well, thank you, Invincible, the officer said as he cuffed the unconscious villain. No problem, officer, Mark said to the man before flying off towards his home. That was awesome, Mark yelled to himself as he soared high above the city, basking in his new life. Oh man, this is truly beautiful, Mark said to himself as he looked out at the sun setting high above the clouds, the beautiful red and orange hues painting the sky. Mark took in the sight until the sun finally set before finally continuing his journey home. Okay, so I think I got this figured out. There are similar characteristics between both the comic version and TV version of Invincible in this world. So that means I don't know what to expect because the TV show only covered so much. So what will happen after our fight? Oh man, I hate going into this so blind, Mark thought as he flew home. Mark landed softly in his front yard and opened the door to his house. I'm home, Mom, Mark yelled out as he walked into his home. Oh, hi, honey, how was your first day as a superhero? Debbie asked as she hugged Mark. It was pretty awesome. Beat the bad guy and saved the day, Mark replied with pride. Good job, son. I knew you would, Debbie stated as she kissed Mark on his forehead. Where's Dad? Mark asked. I don't know. He kind of just vanished earlier. But you know your father, he does this all the time. I'm sure he'll be back any moment, Debbie replied. Well, okay, I'm heading in for the night. It's been a long day and I'm pretty tired. Love you, Mom, Mark explained to his mother. He kissed her on her cheek and went upstairs. Mark closed his door and collapsed onto his bed. He took a deep breath and sighed. So I guess I know what's happening right now, Mark thought as he stripped out of his costume. He stepped back into his bed and forced himself to sleep, knowing the coming days wouldn't be so easy. Well, let's get ready for the shit show that is today, Mark said to himself as he got out of the bed. Mark grabbed his things and headed straight for the bathroom. Mark took a hot shower, hoping to wash away the feeling of dread clouding his heart. I don't have time to be feeling down. There's much worse to come if I don't get stronger, Mark thought as he washed himself. After taking a hot shower and brushing his teeth, Mark walked downstairs towards the kitchen where he met his mother. "Hey, Mom, what's wrong?" Mark asked as he walked towards the woman. "Nothing, just missing your dad. He didn't come home last night," Debbie replied solemnly. "Mom, stop worrying. He probably got buried under a mountain again or something," Mark said, hoping to ease his mother's heart, something that seemed to have worked as her frown turned into a small smile. "HMPH, wouldn't be the first time," Debbie said as she walked towards the door. "Don't be late for school," Debbie yelled to Mark as she opened the door. However, as she turned to walk out of the house, she was greeted by 2 agents who had come to inform her and Mark the news of what happened to Omniman. Mark himself looked towards the agents and sighed. "Glad I put my suit on underneath," Mark thought to himself. Mark and Debbie got in the car with the agents and rove towards the Global Defense Agency. Debbie had been clinging to Mark the entire time as she worried about her husband. Mark, on the other hand, had other thoughts. "Okay, so I think I got it figured out. Events are happening in the order of the show, but the characters are their comic book counterparts, hence why Amber is white, or at least I think that's it," Mark thought to himself, trying his best to make rationale of the whole scenario. "We're here," one of the agents said as the car came to a stop. "Come on, Mom," Mark called out to his mother, drawing her from her thoughts. The two got out of the car and were greeted by Cecil's right-hand man, Donald. "I'm sorry to have dropped this on you at such short notice, Debbie. Please, both of you follow me. I'll take you to see Nolan," Donald explained as he gestured for the two to follow him into the building. The two followed Donald into the building, listening to him as he explained the situation. Nolan's receiving the absolute pinnacle of care. "As the Global Defense Agency, we have access to medical technology far beyond any normal hospital," Donald explained as he led the two through the secret hospital wing of the Defense Agency. "My dad never mentioned you guys," Mark said to Donald as they walked. "That's the idea. We work with superheroes like your father to keep the world safe. Who knows, maybe someday we'll even work with." Title card. Donald led the two to a room, and when the door opened, they saw Nolan beaten and bruised, sleeping in the bed. "Dad," Mark yelled as he and Debbie ran up to the wounded man. "He's going to be okay, right?" Mark asked Donald. "We hope so, and our doctors are doing their best, but we don't get a lot of Viltrumites in here." Donald explained as best he could. "Who did this?" Mark asked in slight anger. "We have no idea, not yet anyway," a man said to Mark as he entered the room. Mark and everyone else turned their heads to see the source of this voice. "Cecil," Mark thought as he looked at the man, "but we'll find out, and when we do, they'll look a lot worse than your dad over there," Cecil said to the family as he walked over to Mark. "Cecil Stedman, director of the GDA," Cecil said as he introduced himself to Mark. He extended his hand to the boy and Mark shook it. "Deborah, I'm so sorry," Cecil said to the grieving woman. "Cecil, you have got a lot of nerve." Debbie was getting ready to flame the hell out of Cecil before he interrupted her with a very important piece of information. "Someone murdered the Guardians of the Globe," Cecil blurted out. "What? Oh my God," Mark and Debbie both said at the same time. "All of them, torn limb from limb, and we tried like hell to bring them back. Nolan was the only survivor," Cecil explained. "How is that even possible?" Mark asked in shock. "Those acting classes from school are really helping out right now. Who would have thought?" Mark thought to himself as he watched the man around him. "We don't know yet. We also don't know why your dad was at Guardians HQ. Our working theory is whoever killed the Guardians lured him there, tried to wipe them all out at once," Cecil explained again. "Why?" Mark asked. "Well, that's the easy part. There isn't a supervillain alive who doesn't want Omniman and the Guardians 6 feet under, and we're keeping this real hush-hush for now, but news will break. I wanted you and Mark to know first," Cecil explained to Mark and Debbie. Debbie started to cry as she looked down at her wounded husband, but quickly recomposed herself and started barking orders to Cecil and Donald. "Cold towels and ice water. And have a cot brought in here for me," Debbie demanded from the two men. "Deborah, we've got the best trained," Cecil was explaining before Debbie cut him off. "I patched Nolan up for years, Cecil. I am not leaving," Debbie exclaimed to the man as she got in his face. Cecil and Donald both looked at Debbie in silence before agreeing with her demands. "Oh, of course, Debbie," Cecil replied to the woman. Beep beep. Donald's earpiece rang, drawing his attention. "So there's some kind of attack happening downtown, it seems. Numerous contacts, heavy weaponry, multiple casualties," Donald explained to Cecil as they walked out of the room. "Now, we're a little understaffed in the hero department," Cecil responded as he and Donald left the room. Mark, having heard the two men and having been aware of the situation beforehand, took a deep breath and placed a hand on his father's hand. He got up from his seat and went to leave the room. "Be careful, son," Debbie said to Mark as she looked up at the young man with tears in her eyes. "Don't worry, Mom, I got this," Mark said before leaving the room. To beat my father and those that are to come, I have to harden my heart. It's time for my first kill," Mark thought as he ran out of the hospital with a stern look on his face. Once he was out of the building and near a safe place, Mark took his clothes off, revealing his suit underneath. He placed his mask on and flew towards the site of the attack. He arrived to see smoke clouds rising from the city. All right, Mark, let's do this, Mark said to himself as he tried hyping himself up. Mark flew down into the panicking crowd and rushed the oncoming Flaxons. Ha, Mark yelled as he slammed into a group of them, knocking them into the air. He punched one of the Flaxons' heads so hard it exploded into green goop. Mark looked down at his hands and started shaking slightly, his stomach churning from the shock and fear on the man's face just before his death. Fuck, calm down, gotta gets it together, Mark, come on, keep it together. Arg, Mark was thinking to himself before being blasted by the Flaxons. The sharp barrage of the blasters wasn't doing much damage to Mark, but he could still feel the pain a little. It was enough pain to remind him of the feeling he got when he fought his father. Arrararararargah, Mark yelled in anger as he got to his feet. Bloodlust filled his eyes as he charged the invaders. He flew headfirst into the army of Flaxons and began punching and kicking as many of them as he could as hard as he could. The force of his blows was strong enough to tear them apart with ease. Mark was so angered by the attack that he didn't see one of the Flaxon tanks aiming straight for him. The tank took the opportunity and fired at Mark. Hearing the sound, Mark turned to see the shell coming towards him. Thankfully, the blast was stopped by a large pink shield. What the Mark asked, he turned his head into the air to see the arrival of the team. Hey, new guy, keep your head up, Eve said to the man as she lowered her shield. Right. I got too angry, I lost control, gotta stay focused, Mark thought to himself. He slapped his cheeks hard and focused his attention again on the invaders. Brax Moy, one of the green aliens, yelled out. Mark turned his attention to that man and rushed him. He grabbed the man by his neck and tore his arm off with ease. You are ugh, Mark grunted as another tank fired at him. This time the tank managed to hit him in his side, though it only succeeded in knocking the man back a few feet. The Flaxon tanks all started bombarding Mark with their fire, until Eve destroyed them with a large wave of her atomic attack. During the destruction, the Flaxons grabbed their chief and pulled out of the city, leaving behind their weapons as they started to age. Hey, new guy, you all right? Eve asked as Mark got to his feet. Though hurting, the bombardment only succeeded in drawing a small amount of blood from Mark's mouth. Well, I at least know I'm stronger than Mark was at this time. An attack like that would have severely injured Mark before, but I'm still not ready to fight my father. A regular Viltrumite soldier maybe, but definitely not the ones that matter, Mark thought to himself as he wiped the blood from his mouth. Yeah, I'm fine, lost my cool for a second there. Thanks for the backup, Mark said to the woman as he turned towards her. However, when he laid eyes upon the woman, it seemed as if the world around him had exploded. I always thought she was beautiful, but she might just be in the top 10 sexiest female comic book characters of all time. No, scratch that, she definitely is, Mark thought to himself as he looked at the woman. Glad to hear it, you did pretty good out there, Eve replied to the young man. Thanks, look, it was nice meeting you all, but I've got to get going. I've got something to take care, Mark said to the woman before flying off towards his house. Oh man, I nearly dropped the ball there, but I just couldn't shake the feeling. It just felt wrong, but at the same time right. Is that the Viltrumite blood in me talking? Mark asked himself as he flew over the clouds. I've got to get used to it. It's something that's going to become very common soon. Might as well try to get an edge over the rest, Mark said to himself. Mark took his time getting home, using the time he spent flying as time to reflect on his first real battle and his first kill. Thinking on it, Mark came to the decision that he would need to do something drastic to truly get used to this feeling. Once Mark was home, he went straight to his bed to sleep. I've got 3 days until Dad wakes up. When he does, instead of being alone of the Flaxons' home planet, I'm going in with him. It's the only way I'll get used to this, and it will give me some credit with my father, Mark thought to himself, setting his mind on the course of action before going to sleep. *BRRRR ring. The school bell signaled the end of the current class period. Mark left his classroom thinking about his fight from the previous day still weighing heavily on his mind. William called out to Mark. Mark lifted his head and saw that it was William who had called him. Oh, hey, William, Mark said to the boy. William looked at Mark's face a little confused and asked him what's up. Hey, man, you all right? William asked. My dad, he got attacked, Mark said to the boy, shocking him. What, you're kidding? William replied. However, the look on Mark's face told him otherwise. You're not kidding. Is he okay? What happened? William asked. He's in the hospital. They're doing their best, but it's messed up, William. He's really hurt. Mark explained to the boy. I'm sorry. Did they catch who did it? William asked again. No, not yet, Mark stated. Well, speaking of someone who's been attacked in the city, you want to talk? I'll listen. You and Debbie need a lasagna. I make a good one. Actually, I make a great one, William explained to Mark, cementing all the reasons he is Mark's best friend. Mark looked at the teen and smiled as he knew William truly meant what he said. Mark was going to thank William when someone else actually caught his attention. Eve Wilkins, Mark whispered. What? William asked. He turned his head towards the direction that Mark had been looking and realized who he was talking about. Yeah, that's her, William stated. I need to talk to her, Mark exclaimed. You and all the other straight boys in a 10-mile radius, William joked. However, Mark ignored the boy and walked over to Eve and her friend. Eve, Mark called out, getting the woman's attention. She looked up at Mark and said goodbye to her friend before turning her attention to Mark fully. Hi, Mark said to the woman. Hi, Mark, right? Eve asked. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for saving my butt yesterday. I really appreciated it. Mark explained to the woman. Yesterday, oh, that was you in the red and gray, Eve said as she realized what Mark was talking about. Yeah, that was me all right, Invincible's the name. Mark said to the woman. Isn't that a little optimistic? Eve asked. No, not really, not many people can hurt me. Mark replied with confidence. Well, Invincible, I'm Adam Eve, but the rest of the team just calls me Eve. Eve replied in a whisper so no one could hear her. Right, because that's a normal name and not outlandish like Mark was saying before Eve cut him off. Invincible, Eve joked. Do you want to talk about yesterday? You look like you do. Come on, let's go. Eve said to Mark as she led him to the roof of the school. All right, how come I've never noticed you before? Mark asked the woman. No one does, Mark. It's a psychology thing. If you don't expect to see a superhero in your school, you don't see a superhero in your school. Eve explained as the two sat on the ledge of the school's roof. That makes it sound like we're all pretty stupid if you ask me. Mark joked, making Eve laugh a little. Well, when you put it that way, I guess the school's full of idiots. Eve joked back. Hey, I just happen to be one of those idiots, thank you very much. Mark replied. It's even worse when you realize I follow Teen Team on Instagram. Mark said as he placed his head into his hands in shame. That's us, everyone's fourth favorite superhero team. Eve stated sarcastically. I like you guys more than Fight Force. Mark replied. Oh, we're definitely better than Fight Force. Those guys are the worst. They got their asses kicked by the Lizard League last year. Eve explained as she took a jab at the superhero team. Oh man, I saw that on TV, Mark exclaimed. So you're new to this, right? Eve asked. Mark took a deep breath and sighed once again. Yeah, I just got my powers. That was my first big fight. Mark explained. Hey, don't be so hard on yourself. You did pretty good for your first fight, though you could tone the violence back a little. We are supposed to be heroes after all. Eve explained. Those guys deserved it. Besides, who said I wanted to be a hero? Maybe I want to be a villain and overthrow the earth, Mark explained sarcastically. Yeah, right. Eve laughed as she punched Mark in his arm. Well, anyway, you'll get used to it all right, Eve said to the man. I hope you're right. It's just more than I expected, really. The sign of fear on their faces, it really messes with you. Mark explained. Yeah, it does, but that's what being a hero really is, Mark. It's not like what you see on TV or read in a comic. Just don't give up, all right? You can do this, Eve explained to the man as she held his hand. Mark rubbed his neck and for the first time since the fight felt a feeling of relief wash over him. Thanks, Eve, Mark said to the woman with a smile on his face. I charged $250 an hour, Eve stated as she got to her feet. Mark looked up at her in shock. Eve laughed when she saw the look of terror on the boy's face. Now I'm kidding. You are new at this? Eve joked as she patted Mark on his shoulder. Oh, thank God, because even with the job, I still don't make enough to be comfortable spending $250 an hour, Mark thought to himself as he rubbed his neck in relief. Why don't you come by and meet the team after school? Eve offered the young man. Teen Team, I don't know. I heard they're only everyone's fourth favorite. Mark teased. Ugh. Meet out front after class, Invincible. Eve joked as she jumped off the roof. Mark laughed and waved goodbye to the woman as she raced off. Mark quickly followed suit and made his way to his last class for the day. After another hour and a half, the bell rang again and Mark made his way to his locker. Hey, Mark, Amber called out as she approached the young boy. Amber, hey, how are you? Mark asked the beautiful blue-eyed woman. I'm all right. I was more worried about you. I heard you got into a fight with Todd and a few of his friends the other day. Are you doing all right? Amber asked. Yeah, I'm just fine. I've been a bit busy with work and some things at home, but other than fine. Mark explained to the young woman. Hey, so are you doing anything today? Amber asked. Yeah, actually, I'm meeting up with some friends. Mark replied as he placed his books in his locker. Oh, okay, Amber said, a little saddened by his response. Hey, don't be upset. You have my number anytime you want to hang out. Give me a call and I'll make sure I clear my schedule for the day. But look, I gotta run. I'll see you later, Amber, Mark said before walking away from the young woman, leaving her a little hopeful. Hey, Eve, Mark called out to the woman as he exited the building. Hey, Mark, ready? Eve asked the young man. Let's go, Mark said enthusiastically. The two quickly made their way away from the school and took off in their hero suits. Eve in her traditional pink and Mark in his suit without the face mask. Try to keep up. Eve challenged Mark to try and keep up with her as she flew around the city. You're on, Mark responded, accepting her challenge instantly. Mark watched in amazement as he followed Eve around the city, flying by skyscrapers and under bridges. Even though he knew she was taken at the time, he still couldn't help but be completely captivated by the woman's beautiful performance. The feeling of his heart beating faster and his face burning spurred Mark on. Not bad, Invincible. No mask today, Eve asked as she settled down with her tricks. Well, I don't need it, and I wasn't planning on wearing it all the time anyway, Mark replied as the two flew through the air. I see, well, I gotta admit you look cooler without it, Eve stated. Thanks, beautiful, Mark replied to Eve, half joking, half serious. HMPH, follow me, Eve responded with a smirk. Mark nodded and followed the woman all the way to the city's bridge and landed on top of it. Okay, what next? Is the floor going to open up or something? Mark asked. Yes, actually, Eve replied as the roof opened up. The two began to descend down into the room where the rest of the team was currently enjoying themselves. Wow, Mark exclaimed as he looked around in amazement. Babe, Rex called out as he noticed Eve had arrived. He walked up to the grill and the two started making out. Once they were done, Rex turned his attention to Mark. Oh, hey, it's the Iceman. Couldn't have won that fight without you. Rex taunted Mark purposely. Rex. Eve called out to the man to make him stop. Mark, however, simply smiled and walked over to Rex and patted him on the shoulder. Hey, it's nice to meet you. Rex splode, right? Mark asked as he applied more force to his patting on the end. Arg, Rex grunted as he felt his shoulder dislocate. Oh shit, sorry, Mark yelled out as he feigned shame. What the hell, man? Rex yelled. Dude, I'm so sorry. I'm still new to the super strength. And oh geez, I dislocated your shoulder. Mark exclaimed. Not cool, Mark, Eve said as she held Rex's hand. I'm sorry, look, come here, I can fix it. Mark said as he gently grabbed Rex's arm. You can fix it? Rex asked. Yeah, when I was younger I took some martial arts classes and I played a lot of sports. Wrestling, football, etc. Hold his hand hard, by the way. Mark was explaining before turning to Eve and giving her directions. And when you play sports, Mark was explaining before fixing Rex's dislocated shoulder in one swift movement, making him jump. Arg, damn it, Rex cursed. You get used to the dislocated bones. I dislocated my shoulder and after the first time I learned how to set it myself. Mark finished explaining as he got to his feet. Hey, look man, seriously, I'm sorry about that. It wasn't intentional. I guess I still don't know my own strength. Mark lied through his teeth. It's cool, man, just be careful from now on. Rex said before walking over to the chair and sitting while still holding his arm in pain. Welcome, Invincible. I apologize for Rex splode. Robot was saying before Rex cut him off. Unbelievably awesome, Rex stated boldly. Unbelievably incorrigible, Robot corrected. And rude, Eve stated. And bored of this, Rex said before going back to his arm. I'm Duplicate, Kate and her two copies said as they approached Mark. Nice to meet you ladies, Mark replied as he eyed the three women up and down. Hey, Robot, find anything at the site? Eve asked. The Flaxons come from a dimension with a faster temporal rate. As a result, the tachyons they emit spin more rapidly than our own. I've created this detector to warn us if they return. Robot explained to the team as he showed off his new device. Oh, because we almost missed the explosions and the screaming and the chaos, Rex said sarcastically. Settle down, man, Mark said to the still sore teen. Thank you, Invincible. As I was explaining, it should give us a few minutes of early warning. Cecil and the GDA have also requested to call on us for any possible emergencies. Since the Guardians are apparently indisposed, Invincible, may we count on you in the future? Robot asked. Oh, absolutely, Mark exclaimed. Besides, never gonna get better if I don't do anything. Mark stated, just text me or something. Here, I'll give you all my number. Mark said as he pulled out his phone. He got the numbers from everyone else and sent them all a message. All right. I guess that concludes my free time for the day. If anything comes up, give me a call. Oh, and Robot, before I go, can I ask your help with something? Mark asked the robot. Sure, what can I do for you? Robot asked as he and Mark walked away from the others. Two things. First, can you tell me if you learned anything about their language? It'd be nice to have some inkling on what they are saying if they and when they return. Mark explained to the robot. I was able to successfully reverse zero engineer their language so I can help you get the basics. What was the other thing? Robot asked again. Well, I was wondering if you could create a gravity chamber, something that could help me train and get a better grip on my powers. Mark asked. A gravity chamber? You mean like a room that alters gravity within? I suppose I might be able to do that, though I don't know the materials I would need or how I would get them. The best I can offer you on that end is to try. Robot explained. That's all I'm asking. That's Robot. I'll see you later, Mark said as he turned to leave the teen team's secret headquarters. Okay, that gives me some opportunities to train. Now let's go see how Mom and Dad are doing, Mark said as he flew straight for the GDA. Once he was within a few miles, he landed and quickly changed back into his regular clothes before continuing on foot. Glad I left the skirt home today. Maybe I'll go without from now on, Mark said to himself as he walked towards the building. Once inside, Mark made his way down to his father's room and noticed that his mom was gone. She's probably getting food right now, and you're still sleeping. I know you probably wouldn't care since you don't like the whole team thing, but I got to meet the teen team today and they all seemed really cool. Well, except for Rex Splode. That guy was an arrogant dick, but I did dislocate his shoulder, so maybe he'll learn his lesson. And Eve, man, if you could see Eve. She's just amazing. She's breathtaking. As soon as I laid eyes on her, it was if nothing else in the world mattered. Mark explained to his still unconscious dad, unaware that his mother had walked in during his ranting. Damn it, Dad, why do things have to be the way they are? I know what you do and I hate it so much, but I love you. I wish things didn't have to be this way. But hey, if things work out as I remember, which these days isn't much, it should all work out in the end, right? Or maybe my messing with certain events will only end up getting us all killed. Who knows anymore? Mark thought to himself as he pondered the events he could remember and the impact of his changing of certain events could have on those moments. Where did you learn to talk like that? Who's Eve? Debbie asked as she walked into the room, drawing Mark from his stupor. Mark froze as his face turned bright red. No one, just a friend. Mark bumbled over his words as his mother grinned. Did you find the frozen dinners I left? Debbie asked. Yeah, Mom, thanks, Mark said to the woman with a smile on his face. Oh, Mark, I'm sorry. I've been so distracted with your father I forgot about you, Debbie said as she hugged Mark. Are you okay? Donald said you saved a lot of lives. Debbie asked. Yeah, it's just Dad never talked much about this part of being a superhero. Mark replied, your father is good at many things. Talking about his feeling isn't one of them. Debbie explained to Mark, but we can talk always, Debbie said as she kissed her son. Mark smiled and kissed his mom back. Thanks, Mom. I love you more than you know, Mark said as he hugged his mother. I love you too, son. Now go on home. You need to sleep before school tomorrow, Debbie said as she gestured for her son to leave. Mark smiled and kissed the woman one last time before getting up from his seat and leaving the hospital and heading home for the night. The next day was the same as any other for Mark. He got up early and took a shower before going to school. School's almost over, thank God, Mark thought to himself as he sat in calculus class. *BRRRRing. The bell alerted the students to the end of the class period. Oh, thank God it's time for lunch, Mark groaned as he got to his feet. He grabbed his books and bolted out of the class towards the cafeteria. Hey, Eve, Mark called out to the woman as he walked into the cafeteria. Oh, hey, Mark, wanna sit with us? Eve asked Mark to join her and her school friends. Yeah, come on, big stud Mark, one of Eve's friends said as she eyed Mark up and down. Joyce, knock it off, Eve said to the young blonde. Sorry, ladies, I'm eating with William today, but I'll see you later, Eve, Mark said before walking over to his friend's table. Hey man, why didn't you tell me you and Eve Wilkins were dating? William asked as Mark sat down. Who the hell starts a conversation like that? I just sat down, Mark thought to himself. We're just friends, Mark replied. Look, you don't have to lie to me, okay, Mark, William replied, not believing the boy. William, we're just friends, Mark replied again. Will you stop saying that? It's like you're trying to jinx any chance you have at dating Eve, William stated as he held a meatball up to Mark's face. A day ago you said I had no chance, Mark shot back. That was before everyone saw you leave school with her yesterday, William replied with a sneaky grin on his face. Mark looked at the boy, completely stunned for a solid second before leaning back in. Everyone saw that, Mark asked, and William nodded before stuffing the meatball into his mouth. Ugh, whatever, it doesn't really matter she has a boyfriend. I can't do anything until they break up if they do, that is, Mark replied. So, you can be more awesome than him and take his place. That's how dating works. Why are you intimidated by her? I mean, look at you, dude, you're jacked. You're funny, you're nice, you're the complete package. Just go for it, man. William was explaining to Mark. However, while he was talking, Eve gave Mark a look and nodded for him to follow her. I see, thanks for that, William, I gotta go, Mark said as he got up to follow Eve. Go where? William asked as he reached out for Mark to follow that advice. Mark said as he smiled at his friend. He tapped him on the shoulder before leaving the cafeteria. Oh, well, good luck then, William said before going back to his food. Eve, what's going on? Mark asked as he ran to catch up with the girl. Robot says the Flaxons are coming again, Eve replied. All I needed to hear, let's go, Mark said as he picked the girl up and took off towards the site of the Flaxons' incursion. The two landed on the roof and quickly changed into their hero outfits before joining the rest of the team inside. Where are you guys coming from? Rex asked as the Eve and Mark joined the rest of the team on the building. We go to the same high school, Rex, Mark replied. Oh, you do you? Rex asked. Yeah, we do, Eve answered. Must be nice, you know who never got to go to high school? Me, Rex said as he pointed towards himself. We know, it shows, Rex. You're not exactly the brightest bulb in the pack, are you? Mark asked as he taunted the man. Rex yelled. I'd appreciate everyone's attention at the matter at hand, Robot said as he looked at the returning Flaxons. Look who's back, Kate said as the Flaxon leader walked through the portal. They aren't getting old, Robot. Why aren't they getting old? Rex asked in a panic. It seems they have discovered a way to resist our time stream, Robot explained. In 3 days? Rex asked in disbelief. 3 days for us, decades for them, Robot explained. So what? I bet their bones still break, Kate exclaimed as she jumped into the team's vehicle. So do ours, Rex stated as he joined her. You ready for this? Eve asked Mark. Yeah, thanks to you, Mark said to the woman with a smile. Mark and Eve jumped off the roof to join the rest of the team. Okay, here goes nothing, Mark thought to himself as he rushed towards the Flaxons. He slammed his fist down into the ground, knocking a bunch of them into the air, before punching them away with enough force to kill them. While Marl seemed to be doing a better job at facing the Flaxons, the rest of the team were struggling. The Flaxons had created multiple devices specifically to deal with the members of the team's powers. Rex was dodging incoming projectiles while throwing his exploding discs at the Flaxons. However, 2 of them ran forward and used a device to return his explosives back towards him. Oh, don't do that, Rex yelled as his explosives landed near him, barely missing. Mark grabbed one of the Flaxons by his wrist and crushed the watch. Mark watched as the Flaxon rapidly aged. Everyone, destroy the wristbands. It's what is keeping them from aging, Mark yelled to the group. The group all turned and started destroying the watches. Brax Moy, the leader yelled as he fired on Eve and the others with a spherical device. The others seemed to have dodged it, but Eve was caught by one. The device circled around her head and kept Eve from breathing. Eve, Mark yelled as he punched away another one of the flaxens. The leader, seeing Mark's reaction, smiled as he walked towards the girl. No, Mark yelled out as he rushed to save Eve. Mark tackled the man in anger. You don't get to touch her, Mark yelled as he pulled the man's arms off with ease. He then turned and raced towards Eve and ripped the device off of her face, allowing her to breathe. Are you okay? Mark asked Eve as he helped her get to her feet. Yeah, thanks, Invincible, Eve replied. Guys, they're running away again, Rex yelled to the two. Mark turned to see the group of invaders leaving once again. Right back at you, buddy, Rex said to the fleeing flaxens before blowing a raspberry at them. Way to go, Psycho Invincible. I take back everything I ever said about you, and I said a lot, Rex said to the man as Eve glared at him. I just got angry. I saw Eve in danger and I snapped. Mark explained, don't get me wrong, that was amazing, but also the scariest thing I've ever seen. Just don't ever point that at me, okay? Rex explained to the man as he held his hands up in peace. Don't listen to Rex, you did great, Eve said to Mark. That's what I said, Eve. Ugh, my back, Rex said before complaining about his back. BR ring. Suddenly Mark's phone went off as his mother called him. He answered the phone and talked with his mother before hanging up and turning back to the team. Everything okay? Eve asked as she walked up to Mark. I gotta go, Mark said to the girl before taking off. He's finally awake. What is he gonna say when he sees the outfit? Mark asked himself. I hope he doesn't snap and order me to change, because it isn't going to happen, Mark said to himself as he flew towards the GDA. He quickly rushed into the building and into his father's room. Mark, Debbie called out as she turned her attention to the newly arrived boy. Hey son, look at you. Is that your suit? It looks good on you, Nolan exclaimed with pride. I'm glad you like it. I took the inspiration from yours, Dad, Mark exclaimed as he gave Nolan a hug. Ugh, and you've gotten a bit stronger, kiddo, Nolan exclaimed as Mark hugged him. I'm glad you're okay, Mark said to his father as he was genuinely happy to see the man awake. No, he's not, but he is okay enough to come home, Debbie explained to Mark as she smiled at Nolan. Mom says you've been keeping the planet safe for me, Nolan said to Mark. Mom's exaggerating, Mark replied. Tell me everything, Nolan asked his son. After a few hours, Mark had gone over most of what had happened in the last 3 days, choosing to leave out certain bits of information as to not spook his mother. Once they finished, Mark and his family left the GDA hospital, but not before Nolan made sure to get his costume from them. Where's my costume? I want it back. It's private property and I want it. Go get it now, Nolan practically demanded the nurse to go get his suit. Mark and Debbie both watched his display and looked at him with faces of confusion and disbelief. I hate what you're becoming, Dad, Mark thought to himself as looked on his father in sadness. The nurse quickly returned with a bag containing the bloody suit and handed it over to Nolan. All right, now we can go now, Nolan said as he walked out of the hospital with Mark and Debbie right behind him. The family was driven home and Mark retired to his room where he relaxed before bed. Mar's phone started buzzing as a text message came through. When he went to check it, he saw that it had come from Eve. Hey Mark, everything okay? Eve asked as she texted Mark. Yeah, everything's all good. My father just got released from the hospital. Sorry about leaving you guys with the cleanup, Mark replied back. No problem. I'm glad your dad is all right, and thanks again for saving me today, Mark. Seriously, thank you. Eve replied back a few seconds later. No problem, Eve. I couldn't sit back and watch you get hurt, Mark responded. Thank you. Good night, Mark. Eve replied with her final message for the night. Good night, Eve, Mark replied before slipping out of his suit and into his bed. All right, son. Show me what you've got, Nolan said to Mark as the two circled each other in the air. Mark took the initiative and punched his father in the face, knocking him back a couple of feet. Not giving him the chance to recover, he rushed him to deliver another punch, but Nolan blocked his fist as he approached. HMPH, not bad, Nolan said before punching Mark twice in his face, knocking the boy into the air effortlessly. Ugh, Mark grunted as he recovered his position. He dove back towards his father, ready to fight, until he was stopped by his mother interfering. Nolan, Mark, Debbie called out to the two men fighting, stopping them both as their fists were inches from each other's faces. What's this about? Mark asked himself as he looked down to see his mom and Cecil standing side by side with each other. Mark and Nolan both looked at each other in confusion and shrugged before descending back down to the house. Why are you here, Cecil? Nolan asked as he walked up to the man. I need to show you something. We may have a problem, Cecil said to the man in a serious tone. Nolan nodded and the group all went back into the house, where Cecil pulled up an image projection over the family's TV. We picked this up by Mars an hour ago. He's back and there's only 15 minutes until he's breathing our air, Cecil explained as an image of Alan the alien showed up. Oh, how the hell did I forget about Alan? Mark asked as he kicked himself internally. I wouldn't ask Nolan, but with the Guardians gone, Cecil was explaining before Nolan got to his feet and cut him off. I'll stop him, Nolan declared. What? Nolan's only been home a week and you want to send him to space? No, no way. He doesn't work for you, Debbie said as she got between Nolan and Cecil. Sweetie, Nolan whispered. There's no one else, Debbie. Cecil replied. Yeah, there is. I'll go, Mark declared. Okay, kick his ass, son. Nolan said to the boy with a thumbs up and a smile on his face. The sudden change in attitude shocked Debbie. What? Debbie yelled in shock and confusion as she glared at Nolan. What? He's not that tough and Mark's strong. He can take him no problem. Nolan replied. Oh, that's your solution. Debbie stated sarcastically. Look, what's the problem? I can handle it. If he can't beat Dad, then he can't beat me. Simple, Mark exclaimed with a shrug of his shoulders. Mark walked over to his mother and gave her a hug before going upstairs to get his suit on. Once he finished, he came back down and hugged her one more time before turning to leave the house. I'll be back before you know it, Mark said to his mother before he took off for space. Alan, this will give me a proper test of my abilities so far, Mark thought to himself as he broke through Earth's atmosphere, the pressure around him suddenly changing as if a weight was lifted off his shoulders. Mark looked around for the one-eyed alien. Why does my memory suck so damn much? Mark asked as he looked for the man only to be hit hard in his back moments later. Ugh, one-eyed dick, Mark thought as he hurled through space. Hey, you're early and you shaved your mustache, Alan thought. Mark eyed the one-eyed alien and charged him. Alan was surprised at Mark's speed and was hit hard in the face. Ugh, Alan grunted as he was knocked out into space. Mark followed his attack up by hitting Alan multiple times in the face, knocking the big brute further and further out into space. Not bad, Alan stated as he caught Mark's fist and returned a few punches of his own. Mark was hit in the face hard by Alan but managed to grab both of his fists. Mark then headbutted the man right in his eye, forcing Alan to stumble backwards in pain as he grabbed at his one eye. Arg, Alan yelled in pain. Was that really necessary? Alan asked. However, as he opened his eye, Mark punched him right in the face again, sending Alan flying and crashing into the moon hard. Mark quickly rushed the man and slammed both fists into his body, making the already big crater in the moon even bigger. You win once again, man, Alan said to Mark as he looked up at the boy in defeat. I hate to break it to you, man, but I'm not the guy you fought before. I don't even know who you are, Mark said to the man as he helped him to his feet. Really? Well, I guess Urath is certainly safe if there's another person as strong as he is, Alan explained as he dusted himself off. Again, I don't want to be that guy, but this is Earth, not Urath, Mark explained. Alan's eyes went wide as Mark said he was at Earth and not Urath. You sure this is not Urath? Alan asked, hoping Mark was only joking. Nope, this is Earth. Not Urath, Mark said again. Alan slowly closed his eye and placed his hand over it in embarrassment. I'm so fired, he stated bluntly. So you really don't know who I am? Alan finally asked. Mark shook his head no. Okay, hold on, Alan said as he picked up 2 rocks for him and Mark to sit on. Once he placed them down, he slid one over for Mark and gestured for him to sit. All right, well, my name's Alan. I'm an evaluation officer for the Coalition of Planets. My job is to visit tiny dirt planets like yours and see if they have a protector who can keep them safe from invasions and other kinds of threats, or that is if I still have a job by the time I return. Alan explained to Mark. Well, Alan, I wouldn't worry about that. If there's no other reason for us to fight, then I'm going back to Earth. I'm sure you've got to report back to the Coalition as well, but when you go, do me a favor. Tell them we don't work for the Empire, Mark explained to Alan as he got up from his space rock. Okay, wait, I didn't get your name, Alan said as he got to his feet as well. Oh, it's Invincible, Mark replied to the man. Well, hopefully I'll see you again, Invincible, Alan said before flying off into the cold distance of space. Seems like a nice guy, Mark thought to himself as he watched the man slowly disappear. He turned to head back home, but was stopped by the beautiful image before him. Whoa, Mark thought as he saw the sun slowly ascending over the earth in a beautiful imagery that one could only understand by being there themselves. Mark took his time to burn the beautiful image into his brain before descending back down to Earth. After defeating Alan and sending him back home with his message, Mark returned to his home where he rested for the night. It seemed like his parents were distracted, so he left them to themselves. The next day was just like any other day. Mark got up early and went through his morning routine before heading off to school. *BRRRRing, the school bell rang. Why do I still come to school? This is so pointless. Mark groaned as he walked out of the class. Though he complained, he was still one of the top students in the school. It pays to have super speed. *BRRRRing. Mark's cell phone rang. Mark grabbed his phone from his pocket to see who the number calling was. Oh, it's Eve, Mark said as he looked at the girl's name on his phone. Mark answered the phone and placed to his ear as he sorted through his books. Hey, Eve, what's up? Mark asked. Mark, Robot's machine is going off again. The Flaxons are coming back, Eve explained. All right, I'm on my way, Mark said before hanging up his phone. All right, here we go. The next few days are going to be rough, Mark thought to himself as he ran out of the school. Mark continued running until he could find a safe alley to quickly change into his suit. Once he was ready, Mark took off to help Eve and the rest of the team. After a few seconds of flying, Mark met the team halfway to the Flaxons' attack. Hey, you guys ready? Mark asked as he caught up with the team. Yeah, but I gotta ask. Why do these guys keep coming back? Eve asked as she turned to Robot. World domination. I can only guess we are the first to resist their conquest this much, so they take it as an insult to their people. Maybe by conquering us, they will reclaim their honor. Robot theorized. Well, whatever the reason is, it ends today, Mark declared boldly. We're approaching the incursion zone, get ready, Robot stated. As the team approached the location of the Flaxen's attack, Robot used his analytical eyes to inspect the invading enemy forces, and after a second, Robot spoke up. I have bad news, Robot stated bluntly. Oh, Robot's got bad news, everybody. Did you hear that? Hey, Robot, what's the bad news? Rex asked sarcastically. There are too many of them. Their technology has advanced too far, and they have rendered themselves immune to our time stream. We should consider the city lost. I will contact Cecil and suggest a nuclear response. Robot explained to the group. What? No, look, I got this, Mark exclaimed as he flew ahead of Robot. We're not nuking anyone, Robot, and we're not giving up, Eve declared as she joined Mark. What are we fight force? Kate asked as she jumped out of the ship. I love you, man, but sometimes you gotta screw loose, Rex said to Robot before joining the others. I don't have a screw loose. My claspings are all magnetic interlocks, Robot replied, having missed the meaning of Rex's statement. Mark made a beeline through the enemy forces, rushing to meet the one he knew was the leader of the Flaxens. Mech suit, let's see how it does against the new me, Mark thought as he rushed towards the man in the giant suit. Brax Moy, the man yelled to his forces before turning to Mark. He raised his fist to strike Mark, and seeing the man, Mark did the same. The two met each other, and as their fists collided, Mark's hand destroyed the mechanical hand of the Flaxen's suit, allowing his fist to hit the man right in the stomach. Heh, not so tough now, are you, ugly? Mark asked with newfound confidence. The Flaxens, seeing their leader in trouble, forgot about the rest of the team and all started firing on Mark. Mark dodged the alien's fire before rushing to attack. Mark slammed his fist on the ground, knocking a large portion of the aliens into the air before punching them away with such force they exploded. Heh, that's my boy, not bad, son, Nolan said as he descended down onto the battlefield. Mark turned to his father and smiled a devilish grin. Now, let me show you how it's done, Nolan said to the boy before rushing the Flaxens himself. Not so fast, Mark yelled as he rushed to join his father. Nolan turned and smirked at Mark, with Mark returning a grin of his own. The two turned their attention to their foes and began tearing through them easily. The tide of the battle was turned completely in the favor of Mark and his dad as the two started killing Flaxens left and right. The Flaxens, seeing they had no chance at winning at all turned and fled the battlefield, much to the annoyance of the lead Flaxen. Lat Gmoy, the Flaxen leader, yelled to his troops to stop retreating and fight back. The Flaxen turned to Mark and Nolan and glared at the both of them. Nolan glared at the man before charging him. Nolan smashed into the lead Flaxen and went through the portal with Mark hot on his trail. Invincible, Eve called out to the young man as the portal closed. Wait, son, Omniman said. Son, Omniman is Invincible's dad, Rex yelled in shock. On the other side of the portal, Mark and Nolan landed on the bright red planet of the Flaxens. Mark, Nolan called out as he saw his son kneeling on the ground, breathing heavily. Time to take that step forward, Mark thought as he took his mask off and destroyed. He took a deep breath before standing before his father. Let's end these bastards, Mark declared coldly as he steeled his nerves. Nolan grinned at his boy, a flare of pride on his face. That's my boys, Nolan exclaimed with pride. Mark and Nolan both rushed the lead Flaxen and grabbed him by the head. The two started pulling and effortlessly tore the man in half, causing blood to spray everywhere. You go left, I go right, Nolan ordered as he took off into the nearest building, leveling it as he flew through it with force. Mark took the initiative and did just like his father. He grit his teeth and crashed through the Flaxen building, leveling it and killing everyone inside. Mark began picking up speed as he flew through the Flaxen cities, so much so multiple small nuclear explosions started happening behind him, destroying even more of the planet as he flew. Mark and Nolan tore down any and every building in their path, destroying the Flaxen civilization with ease. I can feel myself getting stronger and faster. This is amazing, Mark yelled in excitement, his attitude having done a complete 180 as he adjusted to the merciless killing going on around him. Focus, son, they aren't dead yet, Nolan ordered his son as he tore a Flaxen's head off. Right, Mark yelled back as he returned to the slaughter. 8 hours later on Earth, or 8 months on Flaxen, Mark and Nolan had nearly eradicated all life on the planet, leaving behind only a small number of survivors to get them home. I'm so proud of you, son, Nolan said as he hugged Mark. Mark pulled his fist back and punched Nolan in the face. We got time here, Dad. Years here are worth only hours or maybe days back on Earth, and no one else is here to stop us. I know Mom doesn't like it when we train, but I can't think of any better time or place to see how much stronger I've gotten, Mark explained to his father as he took the top of his suit off, revealing his muscular body. Nolan laughed before slamming his fist into Mark's face harder than he ever had before. He hit Mark so hard he launched the boy across the planet. I asked for it, Mark thought as he recovered himself, his mouth leaking blood heavily. He immediately turned and flew towards his father, his fist pulled back ready to punch him. Nolan, on the other hand, had followed the boys and upon seeing him returning ready to fight, pulled his fist back as well. Raya, the two yelled as they punched at each other. The resulting collision of their fists sent out a shockwave that shook the destroyed ruins below them. Not bad, Mark, Nolan yelled to his son as he brought his other fist down over the boy's head, making him spit up more blood. Raw, Mark yelled as he recovered himself. He brought his fist upwards and uppercutted his dad, knocking him into the air. Mark rushed past his father and brought both of his fists down on his back, knocking back down into the ruins. Ugh, not bad at all, son, Nolan thought as he got back to his feet. Nolan launched himself back into the air, driving his right fist into Mark's stomach before punching him down to the ground with his left. Get up, son, Nolan ordered Mark to return to his feet. Mark did as his father asked and got ready to fight again. The two glared at each other before rushing towards each other. Nolan dive-bombed towards Mark as fast as he could, while Mark rushed to meet his father. When the two powerhouses finally met, the force of the collision resulted in an explosion that destroyed the remains of the city below. A year of flaxen time later, and Mark and Nolan had finished their training and were ready to leave the planet. Mark and Nolan's suits had both been nearly destroyed. Only the lower halves remained. Their hair was longer, and Nolan had grown a beard. Mark himself had managed to grow some stubble. Grah, Mark grunted as he got to his feet. Son, there's something I've been meaning to ask. Why were you so insistent that we destroyed them? Nolan asked as he got to his feet as well. They were a threat to Earth, right? If they weren't going to stop attacking our planet, then we had to put them down. Some people can be redeemed. But these guys, they just weren't going to stop killing. Mark explained to his father, I see, good job, son. When it comes to protecting the planet, we have to be ready to do whatever is necessary to achieve our goals. Nolan explained, right now, let's go home, Mark exclaimed as he got to his feet. Right, Nolan agreed. He picked up the nearest mountain and flew it over to the nearest building. Send us home, now, Nolan demanded the surviving scientists. Though it seemed they couldn't understand what he said, it seemed they knew what he meant as they immediately got to work with one of their remaining consoles. A few seconds later, a green portal opened up next to Nolan and Mark. Mark took a piece of the rubble and stuck it into the portal to test things out. After a few seconds, he pulled it back to see the small piece of rubble was still intact. He then looked to his father and nodded before flying through the portal with his father close behind him. Mark soon arrived at the same location the two were at before they had entered the portal the first time. However, it seemed it was really late during the night. Home, sweet home, can't say I'm not glad to be back, Mark said as he felt the cool night breeze flowing through his longer hair. Soon his father came rushing through behind him. And we're back. Come on, Mark, we need to get home before your mom gets too worried, Nolan explained to his son. Oh, I think you're a little late for that, Dad. Mark laughed at his dad's slight panic. Come on, race you home, Mark yelled to his dad as he took off towards his home. Hey, cheater, Nolan yelled as he raced to catch up with the boy. Mark and Nolan laughed as they flew side by side with each other on their way home. Unknown to them, Debbie was sitting and waiting for them to return to give them both an earful. Mark, get up, it's time, honey, Debbie called out through Mark's door, unaware the boy was already up. Mark walked over to his door and opened it up, revealing to his mom he was already up and ready. Already ready, Mom, Marl said as he hugged his mother. All right, let's go. Your father is going to meet us there. He's going to be the one to give the Guardian's eulogy, Debbie said as she kissed her son on his cheek. The two grabbed the rest of their belongings and got in the car prepared for them by the GDA. The drive was relatively short, but the quiet tension made the ride feel longer. Mark could sense the unease from the agents and his mother. She had been feeling weird recently, and Mark knew why. Ugh. I hate funerals so much, Mark thought to himself as he looked out the car windows. Everything all right, Mom? Mark eventually spoke up and asked. Oh yes, sweetie, just thinking about, well, your dad, he's been acting strange lately and I don't know why, Debbie explained sadly. Mark pulled his mother close and kissed her softly on her head. I'm sure he's just taking this hard. They were friends and Dad is from a different planet. Maybe this is just how they grieve. I'm sure everything will work out in the end. Let's just give it time, Mark explained to his mom. Debbie smiled and kissed Mark back before resting her head on his shoulder. Sorry, Mom, Mark thought sadly. The rest of the ride went along with much less tension, and eventually the family arrived at their destination. Looks like we made it in time. It seems it's about to start, Mark said as he looked up at his father and two jets passing overhead. Come on, let's take our seats, Debbie said as she guided Mark to their chairs. The two sat down together as Omniman started giving his eulogy. Such beautiful words from a snake, but what was I expecting? I knew it was going to happen and I did nothing to stop it. I couldn't. It would change too much. I couldn't risk that, Mark thought to himself as he listened to his father's speech. Once Omniman was finished, he flew off into the sky. Mark took a deep breath and sighed before getting up from his seat. That was beautiful, right, Mark? Debbie asked as she got up with the boy. However, she noticed Mark did not share the same attitude towards the situation and asked him what was wrong. What's wrong, son? Debbie asked in concern. Nothing, just. Never been too good with funerals, Mark replied. I'm sorry, son, we can go home if you want, Debbie explained to Mark. Mark turned to the woman and smiled before giving her a hug. No, it's all right. Come on, let's go, Mark said to his mother. The two turned to walk back to their cars to go to the actual burial site, but were greeted by a friend of Mark's along the way. Hey, Mark, Eve called out to the boy as he and his mom were walking towards the car. Mark turned and smiled at the woman before greeting her. Hey, Eve, you holding up all right? Mark asked as the woman walked over to him and his mom. Yes, I'm all right, Eve replied. I'm going to car, son, don't take too long. Debbie winked at Mark before walking away. So, where's the rest of the team? Did they not come? Mark asked in confusion. I know Robot is around somewhere, but Rex and Kate said they weren't coming, Eve replied as the two walked towards the front entrance to the burial site. I see, well, it's whatever. Are you going to next site? Mark asked. Yeah, I am. I figured I'd show my respect to the world's greatest heroes, Eve explained. Wanna come with us then? Me and my mom are about to head over there now, Mark said to the woman, offering her a ride over. Sure, why not? Eve replied. Mark led Eve back to the vehicle where he was greeted by the agents and his mother. Mark, who's your friend? Debbie asked as the two teenagers got in the car. Oh, Mom, this is Eve, Mark replied as he introduced the young woman. Hi, Mrs. Grayson, I'm Eve, one of Mark's friends, Eve said as she extended her hand for Debbie to shake. It's nice to meet you, Eve. How do you and Mark know each other? Debbie asked as she shook the girl's hand. We go to school together. And I'm also a superhero, Eve explained. Oh, really? Debbie asked. Yeah, I'm Adam, Eve stated. Really? And no one's ever noticed you in school? Debbie asked in disbelief. Yeah, I felt the same way, Mom. I believe I said we were all pretty stupid for not noticing before then, Mark joked, making his mother and Eve both laugh. You make it sound like I'm an idiot too, Mark, Debbie joked back. Wow. No, Mark replied as he held his hands up in surrender. Marcus, Debbie slapped her son's leg in disbelief, making Eve laugh at the antics of the mother and son duo. Ha 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 ha, Mark joined Eve in laughter. Not too long after Debbie does the same. This feels nice, Mark thought to himself as he watched his mom and Eve talking. Soon the trio arrived at the true burial site for the Guardians of the Globe to send them off in peace. This is a lot less people than I thought would be here, Mark said as he looked around at the handful of people that had arrived at the burial site. They only told the people close to the Guardians intimately about this, souvenir hunters and all, Eve explained to Mark as they arrived with the rest of the people. Damn, Mark simply replied. I sometimes forget through all the good things that come with this planet, all the very shitty and horrible things that come as well, Mark thought to himself. This is fucked, Eve, Mark said to the woman sadly. Yeah, well, this comes with the territory, Mark. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes the bad guys do win, and when they do, they really leave a mark, Eve explained to the young boy. I was never part of the Guardians, Nolan said, drawing everyone's attention. But the Guardians were the one who welcomed me when I came to this planet. They were my mentors, my comrades, my friends. They knew the reality of this life. Martian Man was exiled from his own people. War Woman was from a different age. Darkwing made his own kind of solitude. It was a rare, lucky few of us who found someone who understood our path. Even rarer if they accepted it. I hope they will rest in peace, but at least they will rest together. Nolan gave another brief eulogy for the Guardians and their loved ones before burying the superhero team together. Olga, Red Rush's lover, had an extreme breakdown during his burial and collapsed at his gravesite. Mark watched on in pity for the woman's loss as he knew just how amazing Red Rush was at being a hero. I think it's time for us to go, Mom, Mark said to his mom. He then turned and placed his hand on Eve's shoulder before saying goodbye to her. Mark and his mom started walking to the car before Mark noticed his breath was visible. Dark blood, Mark thought to himself. He and his mother turned to see Nolan was talking with the demon detective. Come on, Mom, let's go. Dad can handle the demon detective, Mark said as he opened the door for his mother and Olga. Where did she come from? I didn't even see her walking with us, Mark thought to himself as the two women got in the car. Mark took one last look at Eve before getting in the vehicle himself. The drive back home was even more awkward as Debbie comforted the grieving Olga. Hey, Mom, I'm going to give William a call. You need anything? Mark asked as he and his mom walked through the door of their house. No, I'm okay, Mark, you go ahead, Debbie replied as she took her coat off. Mark hugged and kissed his mother before going upstairs and collapsing onto his bed. He grabbed his cell phone and dialed William's number. Yo, where were you today, man? William asked as he answered the phone. Guardian's funeral, Mark replied. Oh yeah, I forgot your dad's omniman. How did it go? You doing all right? William asked. Yeah, man, I'm doing fine, and the funeral was just about as bleak as you'd think. Red Rush's girlfriend had a meltdown, man. And I just felt bad for her, Mark explained to the boy. You need anything, man? William asked. No, I figured I'd fill you in on things. You're the only person I trust I can talk to about these things, Mark replied. All right, man. Oh, hey, I almost forgot. You gotta come to school next week, man. Todd and his goons had a field day on Amber, William suddenly exclaimed. Mark jumped out of his bed and flipped out. What? Mark yelled in anger. Yeah, man, it was pretty bad. Apparently they were badmouthing you pretty badly and she stuck up for you. Guess they didn't like it, William explained. Thanks for telling me, William. I gotta go, man. I'll call you later, Mark said to the boy before hanging up his phone. That son of a bitch, Mark thought in anger. I'm going to kick their fucking teeth in. Mark growled in anger. Mark took a deep breath and gently let it out to calm his nerves. Okay, I need to do some checking up on my resources, Mark thought to himself before dialing Art's number. After a few rings, Art picked up the phone. Hey Art, Mark greeted the man. Hey kid, calling about that device, Art asked. Yeah, is it ready? Mark asked, hoping for something good today. Yeah, it's ready kid, but I figured with the funeral today you'd probably want to be given some time. Art explained to the boy. No. Actually, I needed it now, Art. Is it cool if I swing by and pick it up? Mark asked the man. Sure, come on by kid, Art replied. Thanks, I'll be right there, Mark said before hanging up. Mark grabbed his suit and rushed out of his room and hurried towards Art's tailor shop. Once he touched down, Art opened the doors for him and invited him in. Good to see ya, kid. Here you go, Art said as he gave Mark a large box which left the boy confused. What's this? Mark asked as he shook the box. Oh, I figured I'd make you a few more suits since you destroyed one. That way you'll have more than one backup in case of emergencies, Art explained to the boy. Thanks, Art, I appreciate it. What about the device? Mark asked. It's in there, kid. All you got to do is put it in your ear and it'll filter out any abnormally loud or sharp sounds. Art explained to Mark how the device worked. Thanks, Art, you have no idea how much this is going to help me out in the future, Mark exclaimed as he shook the man's hand. No problem, for you kid, anything, Art replied as he shook Mark's hand. All right, I'll see you later, Art, Mark said to the man before running out of his shop in a hurry. Now, my one major weakness is taken care of for now, but I'm going to need more than one small device to eliminate the problem completely. Maybe I can get Robot to build something for me before I have to kill him, Mark thought to himself as he flew home. The sun setting just behind him really accented the red on his suit. He landed on the balcony of his house and entered his room through the window, and much to his shock, Eve was there on his bed crying. Eve, what are you doing here? Are you okay? Mark asked the crying girl. I thought we were following the show. What the hell? Mark thought to himself. Oh, Mark, it was horrible. It was Rex, with Kate, and there was more than one of her. Eve cried out as she explained to Mark how Rex had cheated on her. Mark quickly locked his door and placed his dresser in front of the door to keep anyone from walking in. Whoa, slow down, Eve, what happened? Mark asked as he sat down next to the crying girl. He was cheating on me. With that multi-slut, Eve exclaimed as she collapsed into Mark's lap, resting her head on his lap. She cried. Mark reached down and gently rubbed the girl's head. I went back to base after the funeral to see if he wanted to do anything before I went home. He was there with Kate in the shower, all three of her. Eve explained, I want this, I really do, but I have a choice to make right now. I can do what I want, or I can do the right thing here. I'm sorry, Eve. I knew he was always a dick, but I didn't think he'd hurt you like this. You deserve better. Come here, Mark said as he lifted the crying girl into his bed. I like you, Eve. I like you a lot, but we can't do this, not right now. I care about and respect you too much to take advantage of you, Mark explained to Eve as he held her in his arms. She looked up at the young man and smiled as Mark wiped the tears from her eyes. He leaned down and gently placed a kiss on the top of her head and laid back into the bed. Rest, you're safe now. I won't let him or anyone else hurt you again, Mark said to the woman. Eve smiled and held onto the man as tight as she could before both ended up falling asleep in each other's arms. Hey, how are you feeling today? Mark asked as he walked into the room carrying a tray of food. I'm all right. You didn't have to cook for me, Eve replied as she sat up in Mark's bed. Well, I tend to think a good breakfast is a good start to the day, Mark replied as he handed the woman her food. Mark, thank you, Eve said to the man as she wiped the budding tears in her eyes. Mark walked over to the woman and wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close to his chest. Hey, no need to thank me. Look, eat up, you need your energy, okay? Mark gestured to her food. I'm going to the Guardians tryouts. Do you want to come with me? Mark asked. No, I don't really want to see Kate or Rex right now. You go ahead and have fun, but when you come back, can we talk about us? Eve hesitated to ask. Yes, we can, Mark said to the woman before flying out of his window. Oh man, why is being the good guy so hard sometimes? Mark asked himself as he flew through the air towards the GDA for the Guardians of the Globe tryouts. Mark touched down in front of the building and was immediately greeted by Robot. Hello, Invincible, I'm glad to see you made it, Robot said to the man. Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss this for the world. Come on, let's go inside, Mark said as he walked towards the entrance. Is that Demigod? Oh, and Shrapnel, Mark exclaimed as he looked on the gathered heroes in excitement, and Burly, Pangea, and Bug-Eye. It's the crowning achievement of any Crusader's career to be selected for the new Guardians of the Globe, which makes me wonder why you aren't interested in joining Invincible. You are a spitting image of your father. From what I've seen, you're practically as powerful as he is. It would be a great help to us, Robot explained to the young man, hoping to sway his answer. I know, and I'm sorry, Robot, but I work better alone. When I work with a team, I have to be more conscious of my teammates, Mark replied as he rubbed the top of his head. Well, that's too bad, but then why are you here? Robot asked in confusion. Like I said earlier, there's no way I'd miss this. Oh my god, is that Fight Force? Why are they even here? Mark asked as he spotted the superhero team. Oh, and don't worry, I'll still be around to help out, Mark said to the robot. Very well, let's get started, shall we? Robot said to the group of heroes. Thank you all for coming here today. The Guardians of the Globe were more than a group of heroes, they were icons. Those of you who pass our trials will be among the elite, the best of the best. Robot explained as the first group of heroes went down into the stadium. Needless to say, not many of you are up to the challenge. Those of you who are up to the challenge will succeed not just by the uniqueness of your abilities, but by the uniqueness of your tactics, your adaptability, the agility of your moments. Robot explained as Shrinking Ray fought Man-Ape. The woman evaded the massive ape's attacks and used her small size to sneak into the monkey's ears, throwing off his equilibrium and making him vomit aggressively before passing out. Not bad, Mark thought as the woman defeated the ape. And perhaps most importantly, the strength of your character and spirit, that is what makes a hero. Robot declared as Black Samson defeated his opponent. It is my pleasure to introduce the new Guardians of the Globe. Black Samson, Shrinking Ray, Duplicate, Monster Girl. Robot called out the heroes who made the cut one by one until he was cut off by Rex laughing at Monster Girl. Look at her, she's adorable. But isn't there an age requirement for this ride? Am I wrong? This seems weird, right? Rex asked as the rest of the heroes looked at him sideways. Rex, Robot called out, I don't know you're here. Isn't there a dick size requirement? Monster Girl asked. Oh, damn, Mark exclaimed. I'm sorry, Rex asked. For what, your tiny dick? I mean the way you've been strutting around here. You must be compensating for something. Monster Girl joked, making the entire room laugh at Rex. Damn, girl, give 5. Mark laughed as he ran up to Monster Girl. She reached and slapped the man's hand. Someone ought to teach you some motherfucking what the fuck, Rex was saying as he approached Monster Girl with one of his discs. However, she started transforming and punched Rex in his face hard, knocking him out of the observation deck and into the arena below. Ouch. Don't hurt him too bad, Mark yelled as Monster Girl jumped into the arena. She's going to kick his ass. Mark exclaimed to the group. All right, I'm taking bets. I've got 200 on Monster Girl. Any takers? Mark asked to a conclusive no. Damn, Mark thought to himself. Still think I'm adorable? Monster Girl asked before punching Rex into the wall. You little bitch, Rex said to the little girl as he spit up 3 teeth. He charged them up and threw them at Monster Girl. Oh, and now that's adorable. Monster Girl chuckled as Rex's teeth bounced off her skin. I'm gonna blast that smile off your face, Rex declared as he charged one of his batons. Please stop, this is hardly productive. Robot yelled to the two. No, come on, this is the best part, Mark said to Robot as Monster Girl wailed on him. Please stop them. Rex is on the team too, and I can't have them train if he's beaten to death. Robot asked Mark. Okay, Mark said to the robot. He flew down and stopped Monster Girl's hand from hitting Rex. Okay, enough, Mark declared to the girl. Get lost, Boy Scout, Monster Girl declared. She tried to push Mark away, but the man remained firmly in place. I said enough, Mark said to the girl as he squeezed her hand hard. Both of you upstairs now, Mark ordered. Yeah, okay. Okay, sorry, I just got a little distracted. Monster Girl apologized as she transformed back to normal. Thanks, man, I appreciate the help, Rex said as he got to his feet. Yeah, you should thank Robot for that, Mark exclaimed to the boy. Sorry about that, the girl jokes tend to make me a little rower. I'm sure your junk is awesome. Monster Girl apologized to Rex. I'm good, you're good, you can hit really hard, Rex said to the girl as he limped back upstairs. Mark turned and flew back up to the observation deck with the others. As I was saying, welcome to the Team Monster, Robot said to the girl. I'm gonna shit blood, Rex whispered to himself, along with Explode once he's recovered. Thank you all for coming today. We'll be making a public announcement shortly, Robot explained to the heroes. One by one, they all slowly piled out of the room, leaving Robot and Mark behind by themselves. Why wasn't Eve here today? Robot asked Mark. Ask Rex, Mark said to the robot. Rex, what did you do? Robot asked the injured man. Look, I gotta go, Robot, but if you have any updates on that thing I asked about, let me know, Mark said before leaving the building. Well, that was extremely satisfying, Mark thought as he flew on home. He landed on his balcony to see Eve had returned to sleep and quietly let himself into the room. Eve, wake up, Mark said as he gently tapped the woman on her shoulder. Mark, oh, you're back, Eve said tiredly as she woke up. How was it? Eve asked as she wiped her eyes of sleep. It was all right. Rex got his ass kicked by Monster Girl, Mark joked, making the girl laugh a little. Eve, do you want to talk about us? Mark asked the girl. Yes, Eve was saying before Mark's phone went off. Who the hell is this? Mark asked as the number came up. Not knowing it, Mark rejected the call. *BRRRRR ring. His phone went off once again. The same number, go away, Mark said as he hung the phone up again. *womb. Suddenly Cecil teleported into the room. What the hell? Mark and Eve yelled as Cecil teleported in. Oh, sorry, am I interrupting? Cecil asked. Yeah, kind of, Mark replied. Well, too damn bad, Cecil replied. What are you doing here? I don't even work for you, Mark said to the man. And you never will unless you show some respect and decide if you want to be a superhero or not. Right now, really, right now? Yes, I want to be a superhero, but you mean to tell me there isn't a single hero you could have bothered right now other than me? Mark asked the man exasperatedly. Mark, calm down, we can have our talk later. If Cecil's here, it must be important, Eve said to the man, trying to calm him down. Mark took a deep breath and sighed before continuing. Okay, what's the problem? Mark asked. Rogue supervillain, public's in danger. Eve, you go too. Here, kid, take this so we can communicate. Cecil said as he handed a device over to Mark. Mark took the device and placed it in his ear right over his noise disruptor. Won't get me this time, you bastard, Mark thought to himself as he placed the device in. Where is this at? Mark asked. Mount Rushmore, Cecil replied. Okay, come on, Eve. At least we can have our talk somewhere scenic, Mark said as he flew out the window with Eve right behind him. You don't have to come with me, you know. I'm pretty sure I can handle this alone, Mark said to Eve as they flew towards MT Rushmore. Hey, I need the exercise. Besides, the sooner we get this done, the sooner we can go back to doing what we were doing before, Eve said to the man with a devious smile on her face. Ugh. Why did Cecil have to bother us? Mark groaned as he flew towards the mountain. Because Omniman is battling a kaiju 10 time zones away and the new Guardians are a shit show, kid. Target is Doc Seismic. He has a PhD in seismology. So the Doc thing, that's legit. Problem is he made himself a pair of earthquake gloves. Cecil explained to the two teens. I hate having to play the tutorial, but I have to stay as canon as possible for the first few years or shit could go sideways fast. Mark thought to himself. What's he want? Mark asked the man. Even he doesn't seem to know. Working theory is brain damage from those seismic gloves. He basically gets a concussion every time he uses them. Cecil explained. So basic mad scientist deal. Eve stated bluntly. Have fun, kids, and try to remember it's a national treasure down there, Cecil said to the two teens. Oh boy, here we go, Mark said bartly. At the mountain, Doc Seismic was currently monologuing to the civilians over his disdain for the former presidents. Ha 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 ha, you come to pray at this obscene monument. They were oppressors, racists, slave owners. I give you a new god worthy of worship. Bow before Doc Seismic. Seismic exclaimed before using his gauntlets to destroy the mountain. Oh, you cannot be serious, Mark said as he flew towards the crumbling mountain. I will emancipate you from your lives, Seismic yelled. Dude, Mark yelled as he caught the falling rubble. I know I'm not great at one-liners, but that was just terrible. I mean, truly awful, Mark said as he placed the head of one of the former presidents down on the ground. What do you understand, boy? Doc asked as he fired an earthquake at Mark. The wave hit him, but felt didn't really budge him. If anything, it was more of an annoyance to man. What I understand is I'm about to pound you so hard the girls will be jealous, Mark joked as he stepped towards the man. What, how come you're not affected? Doc asked as Mark walked towards him. I wouldn't say I'm not affected, just that it doesn't really hurt too much. Feels like someone's pushing hard against my chest, but that's about it, Mark explained to the man. Well, if I can't flatten you, then I'll just. Our Doc yelled as Eve suddenly appeared and struck his gauntlets with her energy projectiles. Nice, but you know I had that right, Mark asked the girl. Yeah, but you were taking way too long, Eve said as she hoisted the man up into the air. Ha ha ha, well, let's end this, shall we? Drop him, Mark said to the woman with a smile on his face. Eve grinned and released Doc from her hold. Ah, the man fell face first towards Mark as Mark punched him in the face. The force of the blow knocked Doc Seismic out cold. I don't know what Cecil was worried about. This guy sucked, Mark said to the woman. Well, not everyone is apparently earthquake-proof, Eve joked back. Suddenly the ground started shaking. Oh shit, Eve, I think you broke the gauntlets, Mark said as he stumbled around the shaking ground. Mark snatched Eve up and took to the sky. Doc Seismic yelled as he woke up from the constant vibrations. As he did, the ground beneath him gave out and he fell in towards a steaming bath of lava. Oh shit, Mark said as he watched the man fall. He let Eve go and quickly rushed to save the man. Hold your hands back, you idiot, Mark yelled to the man. What? Doc yelled back. I said hold your hands back. You're blasting yourself further down like that, Mark explained to the man. Mark flew faster to catch the man and actually managed to grab hold of his arm. Gotcha, Mark yelled as he grabbed Doc Seismic's gloved hand, but as he did, the gloves slipped right off and Doc hit the lava. Oh welp, guess cannon wins sometimes. Oh shit, Mark said as he watched the man hit the lava, but cursed as the lava shot up towards him. That will still hurt very bad, Mark thought as he flew away from the lava. He flew out of the hole grabbing Eve and flew away from the lava eruption. Well, I guess that handles that, Mark said to the girl as he watched the lava die down. Cecil, Doc's been neutralized, Eve radioed to Cecil. Good job, kids. Is he tied up? Cecil asked. No, he kind of fell in lava and exploded. Eve replied, well, that takes care of that. No skin off my back. I'll call you if anything else comes up, Cecil said before cutting communication. Okay, do you want to head back to my place? Or somewhere more private? Mark asked the woman. We can go to my place, Eve said to the man as she flew off in the distance. Okay, here comes the talk, hopefully, Mark thought to himself as he flew beside the woman towards her home. The flight to Eve's was relatively quiet as Mark and Eve were both mulling over their thoughts, and soon the time arrived at the woman's house. Okay, follow me, Eve said as she opened the window to her room and stepped in with Mark following soon behind. Whoa, Mark exclaimed as he looked around the woman's room. Eve changed out of her outfit and into her civilian clothes using her powers. So, where do we start? I wish Cecil hadn't been a dick and interrupted us before, Mark joked as he scratched his head in nervousness. Well, do you like me, Mark? Eve asked the man bluntly. Yeah. I mean, of course, I think you're amazing, Eve. You're smart, you're funny, you're strong, you're beautiful. I mean, in all my life, I've never met a woman as amazing as you. MPHM, Mark was saying before Eve placed her lips onto his. Mark looked on in shock for a few moments before placing his hands on the woman's hips and leaning into the kiss. Well, I thought the same about you, Mark, so what do you say we give this a try? Eve asked the man. I'd like nothing else. Mark smirked before kissing the woman again. Hey, stop by tomorrow. I want to introduce you to my parents properly. Oh, but just to warn you, my dad is kind of a jerk. Eve said to Mark as the boy stepped out of her window. What about your mom? Mark asked nervously. Well, she's more likely to try and eat you up than try to kill you like my dad. Eve giggled as she explained her mother to Mark. I see. I'll make sure not to wear my meat-scented cologne then. Mark joked back, making Eve laugh a little. All right, I'll see you later, Eve. Mark said to the woman. I'm looking forward to it, Mark. Eve brushed a strand of her hair behind her ear and smiled at the man. Mark smiled back and took off into the night sky. Woohoo, Mark exclaimed loudly as he soared high into the air, doing tricks in the air, the wind blowing his hair back as he frolicked around freely. Mark then gathered his strength and rocketed off towards his home, breaking the sound barrier multiple times in the process. Mark slowed himself down as he approached his home and gently landed in his backyard. Tum-tada-tada-tada. Mark jammed as he opened the door to the house. He walked in dancing, and when he turned around, he nearly felt his heart jump out of his chest when he saw his parents and Cecil watching him. The house was filled with awkward silence as Mark stared at the others. I had a good date. What do you want from me, huh? Mark asked the group. Ugh, glad to hear it, sweetie. Hey, kid, Nolan, Debbie, and Cecil exclaimed as they heard Mark's explanation. Thanks, Mom. What's up, Cecil? What's going on? Mark said to his mother before turning to Cecil and asking why he was there. NASA's about to launch their first manned mission to Mars, Cecil explained to the boy. Yes, that's right, I forgot about that. Mark said back to the man. Yeah, and I need your father to shadow the mission. Make sure nothing goes wrong, only he won't do it. Cecil grumbled annoyingly. I'm busy training my son, Cecil, and with the Guardians gone, I'm needed here on Earth. If I didn't know any better, I'd say you were trying to get rid of me. Nolan said to the man bitterly. It's because the Guardians massacre that I need you on this mission. The planet needs a win right now, and this is it. Cecil explained to the man. You think people are going to care about Mars if there's an attack on Earth and I'm not here to save them? Nolan asked the man. I think people are going to care if the first 4 people to walk on another world end up dying there. Cecil shot back, raising his voice slightly in agitation. My priority is to my family and this planet, end of story. Nolan exclaimed. Mark finally stepped forward and spoke up. Guys, if you really don't want to go, Dad, then I'll go. Mark spoke up and volunteered himself for the mission to Mars. Nolan turned to the boy in slight shock. Besides, I've been to the moon, might as well add Mars to the list as well. Mark stated. Yeah, that was the moon, Mark. Mars is different, way different, Nolan exclaimed. If the boy wants to go to Mars, then let him. Cecil turned back to Nolan and said to the man. Nolan then turned and eyed Cecil clearly in anger. What's the worst that can happen? It's what a 2-week round-way trip. I can be up there and have the astronauts back safe and sound. You can stay here to protect the planet. Everybody is happy. It's a win-win scenario. Am I right, Mom? Mark explained to the 2 men before turning to his mom for support. I don't like Mark missing school, but I can't think of a better reason than keeping people safe. Debbie exclaimed in agreement with Mark's decision. See, look, I can handle this. Just trust me on it, Mark said to his father. Nolan looked at the boy and his frown slowly disappeared. The man took a deep breath and sighed before finally speaking again. All right, Mark, Nolan said as he placed his hands on the boy's shoulders. Glad to hear it. Pack a lunch, kid, you leave tomorrow, Cecil said to the boy before teleporting out of the house. All right, I'll take something that won't freeze in space, maybe chocolate, Mark said to himself as began thinking about foods he could eat. Don't worry, sweetie, I'll make sure to have you ready for your big mission tomorrow, Debbie said to Mark as she kissed him gently on the side of his cheek. Mark smiled and kissed his mom back before walking up the stairs to his room. Mark walked all of the way up the stairs with a smile on his face. However, as he walked, that smile soon turned into a face of fright as he realized what he just did, or more specifically who he needed to talk to now. Eve, shit, Mark thought to himself. Well, guess I better just pull the Band-Aid off, Mark said to himself as he walked into his room. He took off his clothes and grabbed his phone from his pants. He looked into his contacts list and phoned Eve. The phone rang for a few seconds before Eve finally picked up the phone. Hey, Mark, miss me already? Eve asked the boy as she stepped out of the shower. Yes, I do, but I'm calling to tell you we're going to have to move our meet and greet tomorrow, Mark said to the woman over the phone. Why, what's wrong? Eve asked as she sat on her bed. Cecil came over to the house. He needs someone to shadow the NASA mission to Mars tomorrow, and I'm it, Mark explained to the woman. Oh, that sucks. He couldn't get your dad to go, or the new Guardians? Eve asked the man. Dad was a no-go, and I don't think any of the Guardians are ready for space missions, so it boiled down to me, Mark explained. I was really looking forward to it. That sucks, Eve exclaimed disappointedly. So was I. But don't worry, I promise to make it up to you when I get back in 2 weeks, Mark explained to the woman as optimistically as he could. 2 weeks. You better bring me back a souvenir for this, Mr. Mark. Eve teased the man. You got it beautiful. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Until then, take care of yourself and stay safe, Mark said to the woman before finally hanging up the phone. Time to go a little off script. Gonna end these bastards for good, Mark said to himself before turning over to sleep for the night. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff. The announcer for the declared as the first manned ship to Mars began blasting off from the terminal. All right, let's go, Mark said to himself. He strapped on his helmet so he could breathe in space and followed just behind the rocket's booster trail, making sure to keep himself invisible to the crowd below. Once they were above the atmosphere, Mark landed softly on the ship's roof. Good job, kid, Cecil said to Mark over the radio. Thanks, glad to help, Mark replied. All right, I'm going to go over mission details one more time, so pay attention. 1. Stay out of sight unless something goes wrong. This is supposed to be a human spaceflight, Cecil explained. Right, got it. And 2, watch out for the Martians, right? Mark asked the man. Right. Martian man might have been a friendly, but he was in exile. We don't know about the other Martians, so be on the lookout just in case, Cecil continued explaining. All right, I got it all covered. I'll make sure our people get home safe. Invincible out, Mark finished radioing before relaxing on the roof of his ship. I don't think I'll ever get over how beautiful space really is. Now if only it wasn't so dangerous, Mark joked as he looked out at the vast void of space, littered with stars shining bright from every corner of the galaxy. Time passed by quickly for Mark, and soon came the time for arrival on Mars. Mark departed from the ship and watched as the shuttle slowly landed on the ground, making sure not to allow himself to be seen in the process. They're seriously only picking up rocks and other junk. If only they knew just how horrible this place really was, Mark said to himself as he continued watching the astronauts pick up rock samples and take picture for future records. However, Mark's attention was soon brought to something else. And speaking of that danger, looks like there's a sequid and some Martians nearby. Mark flew over to the sequid and stomped on it, crushing it beneath his foot and killing it instantly before flying off to confront the Martians. Mark landed right in front of the group of Martians, startling them. The group raised their spears ready to strike. Listen, guys, I get it, the whole sequid thing, but I can't let you hurt these astronauts. Retreat now and I promise I'll let you go, Mark said to the Martians. One of the Martians rushed Mark with his spear raised ready to kill. Mark sighed and grabbed the spear with his hand. He then shattered the spear into pieces. I can stop a plane landing on my head, Martians. I can kill you all with one punch. So last time I'm going to ask, how's this going to go down? Mark asked the men once again. Seeing that they were still ready to attack, Mark sighed and attacked. He grabbed the unarmed Martian and threw him at his compatriots. This caught the men off guard as they had to drop their spear to keep from stabbing and killing their own. Mark punched through the man's back and into the face of one of the Martians, killing them both on the spot. He then turned to the last two and shook his head. Look, how about this? You guys leave them alone and I'll handle your sequid problem. My people are immune to their symbiosis, Mark explained to the two men. Either I help you or I kill you. God, this is not a hard choice to make, Mark exclaimed in aggravation, his temper briefly getting the best of him. The two aliens looked at each other briefly and decided life was more important. Good, Mark nodded at the men and went back to watching the astronauts. Once they boarded their ship to return to Earth, Mark had the Martians lead him to their king. It was a long and arduous venture, and Mark killed any sequid they found along the way until finally they arrived in the king's throne room. Earthman, why are you here? The king of Mars asked. I was originally sent to make sure the astronauts made it back, but now that they're safe and on the way home, I figured I'd take care of a mutual problem we share. The sequids, Mark explained to the king without hesitation or respect. The king motioned for his soldiers to step towards him, and so they did, making sure to get as far away from the Earthman as quickly as possible. Though Mark did understand, he was still slightly offended. Mark watched as the king conversed with his men, his face showing different emotions from indifference to anger. Mark knew things weren't going to go so easy. You have invaded my planet, you have killed my men, and you think we will accept your help. Guards, kill the Earthman. The king ordered his men to immediately attack. Mark sped right up to the king and placed his hand on the man's throat. Look, I'm going to do you a favor and get rid of the sequids for good. If you don't want to help me, then I'll kill you and put someone who will help me on this throne. Now, which is it going to be? Mark asked the man. The king looked around at his people before taking a deep breath and sighing. Very well, we will assist you in finding the sequids, but we will not be held responsible for your death. The king said to the man. Mark released the king and nodded before being escorted by the Martian soldiers from earlier out of the room. We have outfitted your equipment with technology that will help you find the sequids. I hope you don't come back, the Martian said to the man before walking away. Gee, thanks for offering to save my planet, Mark said sarcastically as he put his helmet back on. All right, let's see if this works, Mark said to himself. He pressed a button on his helmet and began searching for the sequids, and boy did he. That is a lot of squids. Guess I got my work cut out for me, Mark said to himself. He planted his feet on the ground and rocketed off towards the giant swarm of venom knockoffs. Mark, however, was unaware that the Martians had been watching him through a camera set in the helmet, Everything he did was broadcasted back to the king's chambers. This human is different from what I've heard of his people. We must find a weakness, the king surmised. Back with our MC, Mark had just touched down in the first of the Sequid's many hidden tunnels on Mars and was attacked instantly. Ugh, freaky bastards. Mark grumbled as he used his hand to slice through the numerous amounts of squid-like creatures. Not really posing a problem to the man other than their sheer numbers, Mark was able to dispatch of the creatures with ease, a feat that shocked the Martian king. He handled the Sequids so easily. That's not possible, the king muttered in disbelief. The man watched as Mark burned the entire cavern and leave. 1 down, 99 more to go, Mark said as he flew off to his next destination. Over the next 4 hours, Mark spent his time killing the Sequids off cave by cave, burning the left-behind bodies to ensure that none survived. Once he was done, Mark returned to the Martians' kingdom to a very different surprise. Martians cheered the man and welcomed him back as a hero to their people. Even the king, who had much disdain for Mark, had no other choice than to welcome him back with open arms. Welcome, Earth Champion. The king welcomed the man. This is a very different reaction. You're welcome, by the way. Mark said to the man, "What are your plans now, Earthman?" The king asked. "Going home, got a lady to get back to, and I'm pretty tired of space, so." "Goodbye," Mark said to the man before flying out of the underground city. "Ugh, Eve, your parents suck," Mark groaned as he and Eve walked through the city. "I warned you ahead of time, Mark. Don't blame me because you didn't prepare," Eve taunted. Mark grabbed Eve and swept her off her feet and flew into the air, making the girl yelp in surprise. "Mark, don't do that so suddenly and not out in public," Eve yelled at the man in embarrassment over the sound she had made. Mark's response was to simply laugh at her as he flew over the city. Eve glared at the man for a few seconds before she slowly burst out into laughter as well. She wrapped her arms around Mark's neck and kissed him gently on his cheek. Mark smiled at Eve and gently kissed her back. The two continued their date, Mark just flying Eve all over the planet, showering her with kisses as they watched the sun set over and over again. Eventually, however, the two took notice of a young man around the same age as them fighting a giant kaiju. "Hey, Mark, look, there's trouble," Eve yelled to the man as she pointed to an orange-skinned boy with wings fighting giant monster. Mark looked down and frowned at the sight. Duncan Rosenblatt from Firebreather? I forgot he existed. Mark thought to himself, want to help him out? Mark asked the girl. "Nah, looks like he's got it handled," Eve said to the man. "It's our day off, and besides, let Cecil earn his paycheck," Eve added on. "Okay, let's keep on moving." Mark turned away from the fight and kept on without batting another eye. Mark and Eve's date continued all the way back to New York, where on the way Mark noticed another fight. Machine Head's tower. Nope, not ready for that fight, not yet. If Robot would hurry up with that damn chamber, I could start making more gains, Mark thought to himself. Eventually, the time for the date to come to a rousing end. Mark dropped Eve back off at her home and kissed her one more time before flying off. Might as well check, Mark said to himself. He pulled out his phone and called Robot. "Hello, Invincible, how may I assist you?" Robot asked. "Hey, Robot, I was wondering if you've made any advancements on that thing I asked you about," Mark asked the robot as he floated in the air. "Actually, I finished it about a week ago. I haven't been able to reach you since you were on the mission to Mars. If you'd like, you can go to the team's old headquarters. I had it built there since I had already started. But a word of warning, I had to use Flaxen technology to help, so be careful of any wormholes opening up that lead back to the Flaxen dimension," Robot explained to the man. Mark's eyes lit up like a child on his birthday after receiving the game he asked for all year. Mark flew up into the air and let out a loud cheer of excitement before hanging up on Robot and taking off to the team's old HQ. Mark landed on the roof of the bridge, and to his surprise, the old elevator into the lair still worked. Mark lowered into the room and started searching for his new training room, and to his astonishment, Robot had gone above what he had wanted. Inside the lair was a large room filled with all kinds of gadgets ranging from basic weight equipment to combat droids. "Robot, I swear I love you," Mark exclaimed. He took his clothes off down to his boxers and ran into the room to try it out. "I wonder how much this thing goes up by. Let's check it out," Mark asked himself. Mark began tinkering with the controls and turned on the gravity room. Slowly, Mark began increasing the weight, and by slowly, he instantly shot to 100 times the Earth's gravity. The machine instantly turned the gravity on, and Mark hit the floor hard. "Ugh, fuck," Mark groaned as he struggled to his feet. "Why is this so difficult? I thought our bodies could handle at least this much with ease." "How strong is gravity on other planets?" Mark asked. "Need to lower it." Mark began fumbling with the controls again and lowered the gravity a great deal, bringing it down to 50 times Earth's gravity. Though still heavy on him, it wasn't as crushing as the previous weight. "Damn, gonna have to get used to this thing. But hey, at least it works. Since I'm here, might as well get a good workout in," Mark said to himself. Mark got down and started doing push-ups against. It wasn't long before Mark began feeling the sweat build up. I'm sweating. Haven't done that in a long time." Mark sneered at his newfound sweat. Mark continued working the exercise room for hours. Thanks to his Viltrumite physic, he was able to go for much longer than a normal human could. And after a whopping 6 hours off pressing against the weight, Mark's body was slick to the touch with sweat. Heh, I think that's enough for today, Mark said to himself. He turned the gravity room off and felt the obvious change in his body. I feel slightly lighter. I gotta be more careful with this thing from now on, though that crash was a wake-up call, Mark said to himself. Mark grabbed his gear and quickly returned home to rest, for he knew the next few weeks would be a slow-burning wait until the next crisis. Dude, did you see? William asked Mark as he approached the boy from behind. Mark closed the door to his locker and walked up to William. See what? Mark asked as he and William walked towards history class. You serious, man? Apparently one of the teachers from the school was killed when a boulder fell on his house, William explained to the man. Mark looked at him with an eyebrow raised in confusion. Apparently the guy's been kidnapping students and turning them into robots, man. They found his lab in the basement, William explained, making Mark stop in his tracks and slap himself in the face. Yeah, I somehow totally forgot about that guy. Guess things worked out anyway, Mark thought to himself. Well, sucks to be that guy, Mark replied. Whoa, dude, one of our teachers ate it, man. Shouldn't you be a bit more tender? William asked the man in disbelief. What? I mean, he was a monster, teacher or not. His death is no skin off my back, Mark explained to the boy. The two continued walking until they arrived at their history class where, just as before, they sat through the final hour of boring history before school was let out. So you want to come with me on my trip to upstate U? William asked Mark as they left the classroom. Nah, man, I've got a trip of my own to handle, Mark explained to the boy. Oh yeah, where are you going? William asked. Eve wants to head to Africa to help out, so I'm going with her, Mark explained. I still can't believe you managed to bag a hottie like Eve, William replied. Wait, weren't you the one who said I should give it a shot? Something about me being a hottie myself, Mark asked the boy. William laughed at Mark's remark and shrugged his shoulders. Look, I didn't think you'd actually go for it. I mean, you're a hunk, but Eve's she a model babe. She gives normal men wet dreams, and you, well, William explained to the man. William, I swear if I didn't know you, I'd say you were trying to say I was ugly, Mark joked, but that's like the total opposite of what I said. William replied, yeah, buddy. Anyway, have fun on your trip later, man, Mark said to the boy before walking out of the school. Mark walked down the street to his usual alley and took off into the sky. Mark flew the air as he did every day, the wind brushing against his face, his hair floating freely. However, what happened next even Mark wasn't ready for. Kid, can you hear me? I need you to get to Guardians HQ. Cecil radioed to Mark as he flew in the air. What's going on, Cecil? Mark asked in confusion. I don't have time to explain, just get to base now. Cecil's tone went from 0 to 100 real quick, something Mark did not appreciate. Look, I'm going to meet Eve today. If you need work done, use your Guardians. Other than that, don't order me around, Cecil, Mark said to the man before continuing his path, much to Cecil's dismay, and was suddenly met by Omniman fighting a giant green tentacled monster. Mark stood there in the air, stunned by the sight before him. Events that shouldn't be happening for another few weeks were playing out right now. Mark, a little help, Nolan yelled to the boy. Mark shook his head and quickly stripped himself of his street clothes, revealing his hero suit underneath. Mark then charged into the giant beast, slamming his fist into its jaw and allowing Nolan to break free. I figure it's time we had a little team up, son. Let's put this thing down, Nolan exclaimed to Mark as he floated next to him. Mark looked a little stunned but shook his head in agreement anyway. Nolan looked at Mark in confusion before turning his attention back to the creature. Mark and Nolan flew towards the creature, punching it in the face together. The force of the blow causes the creature to rock slightly, but it regains its composure shortly and smacks Mark and Nolan into the ground with its many tentacles. Ugh, Mark grunted as the creature put all of its weight on top of him, cementing him into the ground with force. Mark pushed against the creature and lifted it off of his body. Once he was free, Mark flew into the air and punched the creature under its jaw, lifting it slightly off the ground. Mark floated back into the air to prepare for the creature's next attack when he heard a loud yell behind him. Omniman, the immortal, yelled out. He rocketed into Omniman and slammed him into the ground. Okay, got to focus. How did Mark kill this thing? Mark asked himself as he looked around the area and spotted the electrical line. That's right, Mark thought to himself. He flew towards the electrical line and grabbed it just as the creature wrapped its tentacles around him. The current from the phone line electrocuted the creature and effectively killed it. Mark quickly pulled himself free of the creature's clutches and turned his attention to Nolan and the immortal in time to watch the latter get ripped in half. Nolan turned to Mark, his eyes beat red and floated in front of him. Son, we need to talk, Nolan said to Mark, who simply looked at his father in contempt. Fuck, Mark exclaimed in his thoughts. The people of Chicago were enjoying their peaceful day. Kids were playing in the park with their families and their dogs. Men and women alike were crowding the streets. Some heading to work, some going to a bar, some just simply taking a walk to and enjoying the scenery that is until two objects smashed through a towering skyscraper. The citizens below went into full panic as Omniman slammed Mark's face into the ground, dragging him as they tore up the road. Ugh, Dad, you don't want to do this. I know you don't, Mark yelled to his father in an attempt to end things peacefully. Nolan clutched Mark's head harder and lifted the boy up and slammed his head back into the ground even harder than before, cratering the ground below them. Mark raised his fist and punched Nolan in his jaw, knocking him into the air and off of him in the process. Mark gathered his strength and speared Nolan higher into the air. Nolan recovered and grabbed Mark's fist before it could hit him again, and Nolan headbutted him, sending Mark reeling. I do want to do this. This planet is worthless. These people are animals. I thought you'd see things my way, the Viltrum way, but if you won't side with me, then you're my enemy. Nolan said to the boy sternly and with conviction, his face scrunched up into a frown as he glared at the boy. Dad, I know you don't want to do this. You think you do, but you don't. You love Mom, you love me. You might not love this planet, but I know you love us. We don't have to do this. Mark pleaded with his father to end the fight before things got too far. Mark floated up into the air right in front of Nolan and wiped the blood from his face. I do love you, Mark, and I do love your mother, but the love I feel for her is more like a pet. Nolan explained to the boy. I know that's not true, and so do you. Please, Dad, just remember everything we've been through over the years, please. You know deep down you aren't the same man you were before coming to this planet. You've changed, you know you have. I know you have, Mark exclaimed. No, Mark, I haven't. My loyalties have and always will be to Viltrum. Now help me, son. Work with me and we can take this planet for our cause and we can guide it to a better future. Nolan said to the boy. Mark stared at his father and sadly shook his head no. Nolan took a deep breath and steeled himself, as did Mark. I had thought that maybe you would have found your Viltrum blood, but I was wrong. Now that we've come to this point, I can't let you stop me. Nolan exclaimed. I can and I will, Mark exclaimed. You don't seem to understand. You may be strong, son. In fact, I'd say at the rate you're growing, you'd be strong enough to even take on the Regent with no problems. But right now, you don't have a choice but to surrender. Nolan explained to the boy. Yes, I do, Mark replied. He stared at his father and stood proudly against him. Nolan hung his head and launched towards the boy and punched him in the face, knocking him across the city with ease. Mark smashed hard into a building, shattering all of the glass with ease, and shot back out after his father. Mark and Nolan both rushed each other with their fists pulled back and punched each other, the force of the blow causing a shockwave that shattered every glass window in the center of the city. The two powerhouses pushed against each other, each vying for dominance over the other. You are strong, Mark, but this isn't like those other fights of yours. This isn't like training. This time your foe hits back, Nolan said to Mark as he hit him in his face. Mark smiled and replied to his father. That's fine, Mark exclaimed as he kneed Nolan in his stomach. He then drove both of his fists into Nolan's ears and kneed him in the chin. You forgot I learned how to fight when I was young for a reason, Dad. It was so I could take guys as big as you and take them apart, Mark exclaimed. He spun around and delivered a kick to Nolan's jaw, sending him reeling back. Mark then tackled the man and forced him out of the city to try and limit the number of civilian casualties. As the two men fought, the world watched on in horror as the man they considered their greatest hero turned into their worst nightmare. The two men traded blows with each as Nolan flung insults at Mark, the Earth, and Debbie. Eventually, they both crash-landed on an island near a cruise ship. Mark got his feet as well as Nolan, and the two rushed each other again. Both of them were seemingly equal in strength, yet each had an advantage over the other. Mark had spent most of his life training in martial arts and had learned to take on guys his own size and bigger and win. And Nolan had hundreds, if not thousands of years in experience coming up against guys just as powerful and as skilled as Mark. Mark grabbed Nolan's arm in an attempt to break it, but Nolan grabbed the boy by his hair and yanked back hard, causing him to lose balance and give Nolan an opening to strike. You may be trained, but unlike you, I have years of experience, Nolan told the boy as he slugged him hard in his chest. Mark felt the wind leave his body as he flew through the air, crashing through the cruise ship in the process. Mark skidded across the water a couple miles before recovering. He shook his head to clear his senses and rushed towards the ship, catching it before the two halves sunk into the ocean. He lifted them up and carried the shipwreck onto the shore. The people on board began cheering as the man saved their lives, only for the man to suddenly get throttled by Nolan. Are you sure you can afford to focus on saving those people's lives while fighting me? I thought I taught you better than that, Nolan said to the boy as he slammed him through a mountain, causing the snow to fall into the city below and killing nearly everyone who lived there. Fuck, he wasn't kidding. This is much harder, Mark complained to himself as dug himself out of the snow and took a look around at his surroundings, and to his surprise, he didn't care. His body ached, but the thing on his mind right now was the fight. Are you done? Or are you going to stand there all day lost in space like a pathetic little child? Nolan asked the boy. His insult briefly overpowered Mark's senses and sent him into a rage. What did you just say? Mark yelled in anger. He rushed Nolan to attack him but lacked the discipline from earlier. Taking advantage of Mark's carelessness, Nolan hit Mark in his chin with an uppercut followed by a straight right into his chin. He then punched him in his chest and knocked him into the ground once again. Mark spat up blood as he crawled on his knees. Okay, angered outbursts aren't going to work, so let's use a little less frieza and veggia and try a little more calm, Mark thought to himself as he wiped the blood from his mouth. Mark was getting to his feet, but as he did, Nolan continued his attack, drilling both of his hands into Mark's back as he crashed down upon him. Mark grunted in pain but quickly composed himself. Mark grabbed Nolan by his ankle and threw him up over his shoulder. Mark then got to his feet and rushed his father once again and grabbed him by his foot. He pulled him towards him and slammed his fist into Nolan's face, forcing him into the ground. Mark then began punching Nolan in the face over and over again, causing blood to pour from his mouth and nose. Nolan looked up at the boy in anger and kicked up in between Mark's leg in an attempt to hit him with a low blow. Mark caught Nolan's leg before it could hit and began swinging him around many times before throwing him off. Nolan caught himself and landed on his feet, skidding across the ground as he did so, and looked up at Mark with both pride in the boy's strength and anger in his rebellion. "You would have been an amazing soldier of the Empire, Mark," Nolan said to the boy. "Dad, it's not too late, we can still end this." Mark gasped for breath as he got to his feet. He was strong, but like Nolan said, up till this point, everyone he's fought has been drastically weaker than him, and not one of them had the experience Nolan did. Mark and Nolan were easily equals in strength despite Mark's young age. "I thought I told you it was pointless." "This whole fight is pointless," Nolan exclaimed in anger. How is any of what you've done on this planet pointless? How are the people of this planet pointless? And more importantly, how is Mom pointless?" Mark asked the man, hitting him obviously where it hurt. "Doesn't she matter at all?" Mark asked the man. "In the grand scheme of things, no, she doesn't, and neither do you. I will not live another minute amongst these animals. I will burn this planet to the ground before I do, and you can't stop me," Nolan exclaimed. "Oh yeah, just watch me," Mark yelled as he punched Nolan in the face. Mark once again flew into Nolan and pushed him straight into Earth's orbit. "You want to fight me up here? I thought you were smarter than that, Mark," Nolan said to the boy as he elbowed him in the face over and over again, causing Mark to lose his grip on the man's waist. Nolan turned and punched Mark in his face again, causing the boy to roll backwards. Nolan grit his teeth and speared Mark, riding him back down towards the earth. Both men punched each other in the face repeatedly as they plummeted down to the ground like a comet. However, as they traded blows, Nolan hit Mark right in his nose, dazing the young man, slightly knocking dizzy. Nolan then continued punching Mark as they drew closer and closer to the ground. Nolan punched Mark in his mouth as hard as he could just as they hit the ground. The resulting explosion shook the planet for miles. When the dust cleared, Nolan was standing over Mark, pummeling him over and over. "You want to die for these people? Fine, what, 17 more years?" Nolan asked Mark as he continued punching him in the face. "I can always start over, make another kid," Nolan exclaimed as he continued pummeling Mark hard. His blows so strong they split Mark's chin and knocked the front row of his teeth out. Mark spat in the man's face and punched back, knocking Nolan off of him slightly. Mark quickly got to his feet and punched Nolan again in his face before headbutting him in the nose and breaking it. At this point, both men were quite blood. Nolan had his nose broken and was bleeding from his mouth, nose, and was definitely sporting multiple broken bones. Mark, on the other hand, had more severe wounds. His chin was split open, he was missing his front teeth. Most of his ribs were broken, and so was his left arm. He had multiple contusions and was suffering from a severe concussion, yet he kept swinging away. Mark rushed Nolan to attack him, but Nolan sidestepped him and planted his fist into Mark's side. He then planted his fist into Mark's jaw and slammed him into the ground. Nolan then started pummeling Mark once again for a few minutes before suddenly stopping. Mark called out to the man as he struggled to move. Nolan looked down at the boy and suddenly had an angry outburst. "Why did you make me do this? You are fighting so you can watch everyone around you die. Think, Mark, you'll outlast every fragile, insignificant being on this planet. You'll live to see this world crumble to dust and blow away. Everyone and everything you know will be gone," Nolan explained to the boy in a rage. Mark went to stand once again, but was met by another hard fist into his back. Nolan stood over Mark and stepped on his face in victory. "Tell me, what will you have after 500 years? Nolan asked the boy as he ground his boot against Mark's head. "You, Dad, I'd still have you," Mark said to the man, shocking him. Upon hearing his words, Nolan removed his foot from Mark's head and looked down at the boy in sadness and shame. He looked at the blood on the boy's face, a mixture of his own as well, and the blood on his hands, and grimaced. He set his feet firmly on the ground and took off into space, leaving behind a single tear of regret as Mark lost consciousness. Author's note: I know some of you aren't going to be happy with the way the fight ended. Mark losing again despite training. But Mark was always drastically weaker than his father, who, unless you've read the comics, none of you would know Omniman is much stronger than your standard Viltrumite. And like Nolan said, Mark may be strong and is definitely fast, but one thing Nolan has over Mark is hundreds, if not thousands of years of experience in battle and war tactics. On the field, Nolan is easily the third strongest Viltrumite in the series. So yes, unfortunately, this chalks up for a loss for our boy Mark, but for his first real fight, I'd say it was well-earned loss. Let me know how you guys felt about the chapter. I'm sure some of you may be screaming my head off or dropping, and that's fine. I appreciate the support you guys have given this, so whether or not you guys stick around is all right. Till next time, see ya. As Mark and Eve lay in bed together, Mark's beeper began going off rapidly. Mark, what's that noise? Eve asked sleepily. Mark leaned over and kissed the woman on top of her head, making her smile. It's Cecil, there's trouble in space. Mark explained to the girl. Eve went to sit up but was stopped by Mark, who gently pushed her back into the bed. Don't worry, it's not my dad or any other Viltrumite. In fact, it's a friend. Don't worry, I'll be back in bed with you before you wake up tomorrow. Mark explained to the girl as he gently rubbed her head. You promise? Eve asked the man. I promise. No matter what happens to me, I will always come back to you, Mark said to the girl. He leaned down and kissed her gently on her head before getting out of bed. He walked over to his closet and placed on his replacement suit and then answered his communicator. Don't worry, Cecil, I was getting my suit on. I'm heading into space now, Mark explained to the man. All right, kid, but be careful. If it is your dad, try and get the fight back down on Earth. At least that way I can have the new Guardians give you some backup, Cecil explained to the kid. Got it, Mark said to the man. He looked back at Eve one last time and smiled at the woman in an attempt to quell her fears. Once Eve smiled back, Mark flew out the window and headed straight into space. Mark stood ready, and just as he was waiting, Alan flew straight into him in a hurry. Invincible. Thank heavens, I thought I was too late, Alan said to the man. Good to see you again, Alan. What's going on? Mark asked the man. When I returned to the coalition of planets and told them I had been going to Earth instead of Urath, they flipped out. Earth is off limits to the coalition. There's a Viltrumite living amongst you, Alan explained to the man. Oh yeah, I know, Mark replied. What, you know? What do you mean you know? Alan asked in disbelief. Mark gestured for Alan to follow him to the moon, and he did. The two landed and Mark grabbed 2 rocks, one for him to sit on and one for Alan to sit on. Have a seat. This may take a while, Mark told the man. Alan sat down and listened closely as Mark explained to Alan everything that had happened since they last met. So you're a Viltrumite, but you don't work for them, and your dad left. He just left? Alan asked the man as sat there stunned by what he heard. Yeah, I've never been to Viltrum. I don't really know much about them, but yay. As far as we can tell, my dad is gone, Mark replied. That is highly unorthodox behavior for a Viltrumite, like super weird. They don't just leave their post. They destroyed my home world hundreds of years ago. My people are a nomadic species because we resisted when the Viltrumites tried to take over, Alan explained to Mark, going as far as to bring up his own backstory. I'm sorry to hear that, man, Mark replied. Don't be. You had no part in it. From the sounds of it, I'm the one that should be apologizing to you. If I had checked the records before I left here, I might have seen that Earth was flagged for Viltrumite takeover. I could have warned you, Alan explained to the man. I would have just gone to my dad and asked him about it. Who knows how things would have played out had that actually happened. Mark explained back his own logic. Still, I feel like I should have done something. I cannot imagine what you're going through. Literally, since our home was destroyed, my people have been surviving through breeding camps. I never even met my father. The coalition of planets will want to hear about you. We are at odds with the Viltrum Empire. A great power struggle is brewing in the farthest reaches of space. The coalition is trying to unite enough worlds to have an army powerful enough to stop the Viltrumite expansion throughout the galaxy. The Viltrumites are so strong individually that they are virtually unstoppable. But no one has ever heard of a Viltrumite abandoning his post or one that defies the Empire altogether. I must bring them this news at once. This could be the advantage they are looking for. Alan explained in depth to Mark things happening out in the galaxy. Let me know if I can help. I'm not looking forward to Viltrum returning to this planet to claim it as part of the Empire, Mark explained to the man as he offered his services to the coalition. Will do. I'll certainly let you know as soon as I hear something from the coalition. In the meantime, what about you? With your father gone and all that's happened, what are you going to do? Alan asked the man. Well, finish high school, I guess, Mark replied. Oh, that's good. School is good. What is high school? Alan asked the man. Education program, buddy, Mark answered the man. Oh, I see. Okay, that's good then. I guess if you have nothing else to share, I'm going to head back to the coalition. Take care of yourself, Invincible. I hope we meet again, Alan said to the man before flying off back towards the coalition of planets' home world Tailskria. Mark watched as the man vanished into space and turned to head back towards Earth. It's been a week since Mark woke from his coma and talked with Alan, and now he had decided now was a good time for him to get back to training. This time, however, with company. Mark and Eve both got up after another night of passionate sex. They showered together and got dressed before heading out. So, why are we going to the old HQ again? Eve asked as Mark carried her in his arms in the air. Well, I had Robot build me a gravity machine to help me train and get stronger, and he built it in the old teen team's headquarters, Mark explained to the woman. Okay, but why am I coming with you? Eve asked. Because I want to show off in front of you, and second, because I need someone to watch me just in case I accidentally get injured, Mark explained to the woman as they began lowering into the base. Once inside, Mark was surprised to see the lights were on and that the Guardians of Globe were inside training. Noticing they had 2 new guests, the Guardians of the Globe, along with their 2 new recruits, Zandale or Bulletproof and the Immortal, all stopped their training exercise to greet Mark and Eve. Hello, Invincible, are you here for the chamber today? Robot asked. Yeah, we were. What are you guys doing here? I thought you were using the Guardians HQ now, Mark asked Robot as the team gathered around him. We have been using the team's old headquarters due to Warman's corporation and Darkwing still owning the Guardians HQ, Robot explained to the man. I see, okay, that makes sense, and I see you have some new faces, or at least one new face. Mark said to the man as he looked over at the Immortal and Bulletproof. Yes, we do. Invincible, I'm sure you already know the Immortal, and this is Bulletproof. Supposedly he is as fast as Red Rush and nearly as invulnerable as you are. Robot explained to Mark, and less evil. Bulletproof said to the man as he stepped towards him menacingly. Okay, tough guy, settle down, I'm not here to fight you. Mark told Bulletproof. So, Robot, do you mind if I use the chamber? Mark turned and asked the robot. Sure, go ahead, we weren't using it. Robot replied as he gestured for Mark and Eve to go forward. Eve grabbed Mark's hand as the two started walking towards the chamber, but as they passed Bulletproof and the Immortal put his hand on Mark's chest and pushed him back. What's your problem? Eve asked the man in disbelief. The Immortal and Bulletproof both walked up to Mark and got in his face. I don't care what Cecil says about you, kid. I'll be watching you. It's been my experience that apples rarely fall far from the tree. You show one sign of changing, give me one inkling to think you're going to finish his mission. The Immortal was explaining to the Mark, and we'll take you out. Bulletproof exclaimed, finishing the Immortal's threat for him. I fought him. I fought my own dad for all of you to keep you all safe, and this is how you repay me. By threatening me, you're funny. Trust me when I say this. If I really wanted to follow my dad, nothing, and I mean nothing you do will be able to stop me. Mark replied to the two men. Is that a threat, boy? The Immortal asked. Mark grit his teeth and punched the man in his face, breaking his jaw with ease and knocking the Immortal in the air. He grabbed the man by his leg and used him as an object to swat Bulletproof away. He then did as his father did with Darkwing and slammed the Immortal on the floor hard. You listen to me and you listen good. I know how you came back. If I were to cut your head off, as long as you could reattach it, you could come back to life. Tell me, Immortal, would there be anything left of you if I were to throw you into the sun? Now, I came here today because I needed to train. Why? My father isn't going to come back, but the Viltrumites are people. They are, and they are going to send their strongest warriors to conquer or destroy this planet. You saw how strong my dad was. There are Viltrumites even stronger than him. So to prepare for their arrival, I need to focus. I need to concentrate. I don't need to be distracted with your bullshit. Mark explained to the man who struggled to break free below him. Mark let the man go only to slam his fist into the Immortal's head once again, knocking him out with ease. I could kill you, and it would be easy, but that's not me. I don't kill those who don't deserve it. And you don't deserve it, no matter how much you piss me off. Now, if no one else wants to threaten me, I want to train today. Mark exclaimed. He took Eve's hand again and stormed away from the group to train. After training with Eve at the Guardian's temporary HQ, Mark returned home, and to his surprise, his mom was collapsed onto the floor. Mom, are you okay? Mark asked the crying woman. I was making dinner. I was making dinner for 3. For a minute, I didn't realize. I had forgotten he was gone. Debbie explained to the boy as she cried in his arms. It'll be okay, Mom, Mark said to the woman as he hugged her. Why did you have to fight him, Mark? Why did you have to drive him away? Debbie asked in her drunken stupor. Mark sat on the floor and shed a tear as his mother's words pierced his heart. He lifted his mother up and carried her all the way up the stairs to her bed. He placed her down and covered her up before walking out of her room and going to his. Mark walked into his room and collapsed onto his bed and went to sleep. The next day, Mark awoke to prepare for school. After completing his morning team, Mark walked down the stairs to see his mom waiting in the kitchen and a plate made for him on the table. Thanks, Mom, Mark said to the woman as he picked up the plate and began eating. You're welcome, Debbie said to the young man as she looked up from her paper. Mark, Debbie called out to the boy. Yeah, Mark replied. I just don't know what to say. I had been drinking yesterday and I'm sorry about what I said, Mark. I wish I could take it back. I wish I had never said that. I wish. Debbie was explaining to the boy but was cut off during her apology. We're going through a lot, Mom. I know it. You're the only person that has any idea what I'm going through, and vice versa. I totally understand. To be honest, I think the same thing sometimes. Mark explained to the woman as he finished his breakfast. You shouldn't. You did the right thing, son. That man, as hard as it is for me to admit it, that man who we knew and loved never existed. He was a lie. He used me and he used you. It's hard for me to convince myself that the man I loved was never real. But that's what I have to do to get through the day. We have to move on. Debbie explained to the boy. I don't believe that, Mom, and I know you don't either. Dad was put in a rough place. All of his life he's been loyal to Viltrum, but in the short time he's been on Earth, Dad changed. No matter what you might have heard, you didn't see his face. He loves you. He loves us. I know he does, Mom, Mark explained to the woman before leaving the house for school later that day. As Mark was getting ready to leave, Mark was stopped in the hall by a friend he hadn't seen in a long time. Mark, Amber called out to the young man as he walked through the halls. Hey, Amber, how have you been? Mark hugged the beautiful blonde and asked her how she'd been. Good, I've been good, Amber told the man as she fixed her shades. Why are you wearing shades inside? Mark asked the girl. Ugh, I got into a fight with this girl over some guy and got a black eye. Didn't want anyone else to see it. Amber explained to Mark. Ouch, are you all right? Mark asked the girl. Yeah, I'm all right. I was actually more worried about you. I heard what happened to your dad, and when you didn't show up for a few weeks, I asked Eve and she said she hadn't seen you. She was really down when you were gone. And when you came back, it's as if a new life was breathed into her. Amber explained to the man. Well, they say a woman glows after sex, and we've made love to one another every day since then. Mark thought to himself as he listened to the woman talk. I'm sorry to have made you worry so much, Amber, but I promise you I am fine. Mark explained to the girl when suddenly his beeper went off. Sorry, Amber, I missed you, but my job is calling me. I gotta run. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow, Mark said to the woman before running out of the school. What is it? Mark flew through the air over the city's clouds and changed into his suit. Once he was changed, he placed his backpack on a nearby roof before continuing to the GDA headquarters where he was met by Cecil, Donald, and a fish man. Okay, there must be some gaps in my knowledge because I don't remember this, Mark thought to himself. What's going on? Mark asked Cecil after the man finished arguing with the fish. They want you to marry their queen. When your father killed the guardians, their king Aquarius was killed. Their law states that the killer of a husband is required to marry the widow if a suitable mate cannot be found. Apparently no suitable mate was found. They demanded we turn over Omniman, but since he's no longer here, they wanted you. Honestly, kid. I'd just as well tell them to shove it, but they got some natural resources that are very valuable to us, and they control all of the ocean. And if we're at odds with them, it could cripple the world economy. So for now, we have to play along. I'm asking you to play ball with them. Just do as they say. In the meantime, we've got our legal team looking for a loophole we can use to get you out of this. We'll get you out of this, Cecil explained to the young man who looked at him like he was crazy. Cecil, you better hope Eve doesn't find out about this, and I swear if I end up having to marry a fish, I will flood every toilet in that building, Mark said to the man before walking over to the fish guards. Come on, you stupid fish-faced bastard, let's go, Mark yelled to the guard. He stepped into the cruiser, and off they went to the bottom of the sea. After a short trip, the guards brought the ship to a halt outside the royal palace. Here, you'll need this, the guard said as he handed Mark a mask to breathe underwater. Thanks, Mark said to the guard as he placed the mask on. He then swam to the end of the tunnel to meet the Queen of the Seas and her attendant. Ah, at long last my future husband has arrived, the woman stated happily. Sure, yeah, Mark replied. You will address Her Royal Highness as Your Majesty at all times. We will have no disrespect from you, Earth Dweller. Lethen stated. Yeah, whatever, look, let's just get this over with. Okay, Mark said to the man and woman. The queen smiled and nodded for Lethen to take Mark to get ready. Lethen swam up to Mark and gestured for him to follow him. Once they were alone, Mark looked at the man and sighed. Look, Lethen, right. I can tell you love Her Royal Highness, don't you? Mark asked the fish man. Yes, oh God, yes, I can't hide it anymore. I love her. I've always loved her. Ever since Aquarius died, I've dreamt of replacing him at her side. I'm very sorry, my liege. I know it is treason to say such things, but I cannot contain myself any longer. You must realize how special Aquaria is. What an honor it must be to be with her. I'm sorry, sire. I'll accept whatever punishment you deem fit for me, no matter how severe. Lethen explained to the man. Buddy, I think you and I are going to get along just fine. You want to be with Aquaria? Mark asked the fish as he wrapped his arms around his shoulder. Well, yes, Lethen replied. Then I have an idea that will help us both out. Mark said to the man. He leaned down and began explaining a plan to Lethen that would help make him seem more suitable as a mate for the queen in his place. Afterwards, Mark followed Lethen to the arena where he would have to fight for Aquaria in front of the kingdom. The moment is upon us, people of Atlantis. The time has come for Invincible, son of Omniman, to prove his worth and take his rightful place at our queen's side as our new ruler. Step forward, Invincible, and claim your destiny, Lethen declared to Invincible and the people of Atlantis. I can't, I'm too scared. Mark feigned terror at the sight of the giant creature in front of him. You must save the queen, she'll be killed, Lethen yelled to the acting Mark. You do it, you save her. I can't, Mark exclaimed in terror. Lethen turned and attacked the monster. Back, monster, Lethen yelled as he attacked the monster, slamming his body into the creature's body over and over again until the creature landed violently on the sea floor unconscious. Lethen, oh my God, I never knew you'd be so heroic, Aquaria said to the man as she swam up to him. Yes, my queen, my love for you is great. I could do nothing less than risk my life for yours. I have loved you in secret for many years. I could not stand by and allow you to be harmed. Lethen proclaimed his love for the woman in front of the entire kingdom. Oh, Lethen, you have proven yourself worthy to be our king. Take me now, I'm yours, Aquaria exclaimed as she welcomed Lethen to her body with open fins. Yeah, that's when I know it's time to get the hell out, Mark said to himself before flying up and out of the sea. As he breached the surface, he looked to see he had received a message from his mother asking for him to pick her up. Mark changed his trajectory and began flying to the location she had sent him. Mark arrived at the location time to meet his mother's new friend, and here he is. Mark, this is my new friend Claire. Debbie introduced the boy to the young lady. Wow, Mom, the whole secret identity not a thing anymore, Mark asked the woman. Boy, you don't even cover your face in the first place. Besides, this is Super Patriot's wife, Debbie explained to the boy. Really nice to meet you, ma'am, Mark said to the woman with a smile on his face. Thank you, Invincible. It's nice to meet you as well, Claire said to the young man. Well, son, we better get going. You have school tomorrow. Talk to you soon, Claire, Debbie said to the boy before saying goodbye. Goodbye, Clary said to the woman before leaving. All right, let's get you home, Mark said to the woman as he picked her up in his arms. He then flew her home and rested for the rest of the day. Mark grunted as he continued straining his body under the weight of 52 times Earth's gravity. It turned out that the difficulty increased drastically between every 2 Gs or so, Mark thinks, as he's only been able to handle the increase to 2 after 4 weeks of battling against 50 and another 4 just to make it to where he is now. Damn, this is hard. I knew Goku and Vegeta struggle getting higher, but I thought that was because they didn't have the kind of strong body I do. But it seems I was wrong. It's just because gravity is a bitch getting used to. But I am getting faster, that much I know. And speed is weight, so the faster I can move, the harder I can hit. So at least this isn't for nothing. Mark commented on his lack of foresight on how strong gravity could be as it increased. Mark, how long are you going to be in there? Eve asked as she watched the man bench pressing 200 pounds increased by the gravity, which equaled out to 10,000 pounds. But the gravity weighing down makes even something as easy as that hard for Mark. I've only been in here an hour, Mark said to the woman. Yeah, but you spend every day in there. Let's go out and do something, Eve said to the man. Eve, Mark spoke to the woman as he looked up at her. He saw the sad expression on her face and placed the bar back on the bench. All right, give me 1 second to get cleaned up and I'll be out, Mark said to the girl as he got off the bench. Right about now, Levi Angstrom should be messing with the Maulers. Can't see any reason to get involved in that. After all, Levi wasn't a bad guy, and if Mark hadn't busted in when he did, he and Levi would never have been enemies. Who knows, maybe now the guy will be an asset to the Earth instead of a reckless threat, Mark thought to himself as he wiped the sweat from his body. All right, you ready? Mark asked as he walked out of the chamber. Oh my god, yes, let's go, Eve said to the man as she pulled him towards the exit of the base. Okay, I'm coming, Mark laughed as the woman pulled him excitedly. The two quickly left the Guardians' temporary headquarters and flew back to Mark's house so the boy could grab a change of clothes. So, what do you want to do today? Mark asked the girl as he stepped out of his room's window and floated next to her. Let's go see a movie, Eve said to the man. All right, let's go, Mark said to the woman as he pulled her into his arms. He then hurried straight to the movie theater in town where they watched the newly released Hulk movie starring Eric Bana. See, Mark, wasn't that fun? Eve asked the Mana as they walked out of the theater together. Yes, it was. I wouldn't say it was the best movie, but I'll admit the way they shot the movie like comic book was genius. Mark explained to the woman what he liked the most out of the movie. I knew you'd like that, but what did you like? Eve asked the man. Well, I mean, I like Eric Bana, and I don't think he did a bad job, but he wasn't the greatest. At times it was, how do I say it, kind of like he was just reading words off the script. You know, no emotion whatsoever. Then there was the general. He was making decisions that were stupid. I mean, why would he tie Bruce and his dad up in the same room? He sees that Bruce hulks out when under stress. So why put him in a room with a man that literally ruined his life? I mean, that wasn't smart at all, Mark explained to the woman as they walked down the street. Wow, I actually agree with everything you said, but regardless, it was still a fun movie, and we would have missed it if you had stayed cooped up in that chamber of yours. Eve chastised the man over his repeated use of the chamber. Okay, I get it. Less training time and more spending time with my lovely girlfriend. I'm sorry, babe. But to be fair, if I have to fight my dad again, I don't want to lose. Mark looked at the girl and smirked as he explained his reason behind all the training. But you're right, I need to enjoy the time we have together, because if I'm training all the time, I won't be able to do this, Mark said to the woman before leaning down and kissing her on the lips. I'd say that's a good way to end our little spur-of-the-moment date, Eve told the man with a smug grin on her face. I'll see you later, Mark, and tell Debbie I said hello, Eve said to the man before flying off. Mark looked up at the woman and watched as her figure disappeared into the skyline. He then followed after the woman and flew home himself. As Mark landed outside his house, he walked in to see Science Dog waiting for him inside. Mark, you have a visitor, Debbie said to the boy as she looked up at the man-sized dog. Mark looked over at the dog and watched carefully as he got to his feet and walked up to him. Mark Grayson, we need to talk, the dog said to Mark as he got him his face. Mark glared up at the dog man ready to fight as he watched his new guest. Well, you gonna stand there staring at me all day, or are you going to punch me? Mark asked the dog. You don't understand. I didn't come here to fight. I came here for your help. My people are in danger. And I've come to you. Now will you come with me and help us, Invincible? Science Dog asked the man as they stood only feet apart. Mark looked up at the dog in confusion as he roamed over his thoughts for memories on the character, until finally he nodded his head and agreed to follow. After calling Eve and informing her of what was happening, Mark and the Science Dog boarded his ship and began their journey into space. You know, you can drop the disguise now. I know you're not Science Dog and that your appearance is different. I've seen different species before, Mark explained to the giant dog as they flew towards the dog's planet. I see, you saw through my disguise. Forgive me, it was not my intentions to trick you, Mark Grayson, Science Dog said to Mark before tearing the disguise away and revealing a bug-like woman. I must ask, though, how you knew I was wearing a disguise, the woman asked. Because Science Dog is a comic book character. I'd be dumb to think you were real, Mark said to the bug woman, though that's being quite the hypocrite considering I'm now a comic book character myself. Mark thought to himself with a Hisoka face. Well, how much longer is this trip going to take? Mark suddenly asked. Only 6 more days, the woman replied. Mark rolled his eyes and rubbed his face and slowly sat back into his seat, the long trip slowly pushing him to sleep. A little while later, Mark was awoken by the woman as she shook him awake. Oh, are we here? Mark asked as he shot up from his seat. Yes, we are, the woman said to Mark as she opened the hatch for the duo to depart. Mark and the woman walked down the landing ramp and were greeted by the woman's people with open arms and cheers of excitement. They're happy to see me, Mark stated. Yes, they are. Most of them have been waiting their whole lives for your arrival, the woman explained to Mark. I see, because you guys age faster than normal humans, right? Mark asked the woman. Yes, we do. How did you know? The woman asked. We have a species similar to yours on Earth. Now point me in the direction of this great threat. I don't want to be in space for too long, Mark explained to the woman. Yes, of course, but first our monarch has requested an audience with you immediately upon your arrival. It won't take long, the bug woman explained. The monarch. I knew this was coming, but I'm still not ready for it, Mark thought to himself. The bug woman pushed on the door and opened it, revealing Nolan inside. Hello, son. It's been a while. You're looking well, Nolan said to Mark as the boy walked into the royal chamber. Mark looked at the man and started walking towards him with purpose. Mark, Nolan called out to the boy as he approached. Nolan clenched his fists in preparation for an attack but was caught off guard as Mark hugged him instead. It's good to see you again, Dad, Mark said to his father as he hugged him tightly. Mark, my son, I have missed you, Nolan said to the boy as he returned the hug. You look good. How have you been? Mark asked the man. I've been good. I've been using this time away to do some thinking, and I've turned my back on the Viltrum ways. When I abandoned my post on Earth, I became a fugitive. It's only a matter of time now until they learn of my treachery. That is, if they haven't already. I came here in an attempt to hide, and if I'm lucky, since this world is similar to Earth, they'll accept this world and maybe lessen my punishment. These people, this world is in some ways more advanced than Earth. They cycle through their lives. They live for roughly 9 months. Because of this handicap, they've reached an evolutionary point where everything is learned during the action they are attempting to learn. Their elders are the ruling class. The eldest known member of the species is crowned ruler of the entire planet. Needless to say, it was easy to assume control of the planet. When they learned how old I was, they elected me ruler immediately. Things move very fast here. Nolan explained to Mark how and why it was he came to this planet full of bug people. They just handed over the whole planet that easily. Damn, how have these people not been conquered before? Mark asked his father as they walked through the halls of the planet. Yes, they did. Things are different here, Mark. After 9 months here, Mark, no one will remember how their planet was before. Outlive an entire generation in half a year, Nolan explained to the boy. I can see how that can be a gift and yet very much a curse, but you're not telling me something, Dad. You wouldn't call me all the way out here just to explain that you found a new planet to rule. I'm sure apologizing was a part of it, but there's something else, isn't there? Mark asked the man. Yes, once again you are right. Viltrum knows I'm here. They are coming for me, Nolan replied. When Mark asked the man, I don't know any more than soon. I abandoned my post. To them I am now hold on a second, Nolan explained to Mark before seeing his new mate approaching. Good evening, my dear, Nolan said to the woman as he stuck his tongue out. The two started rubbing their tongues against each other. Okay, I didn't need to see that, Mark said to himself as he grimaced at the sight of the two in front of him. Dad, do you need to do that in front of me? Mark asked the man. Yes, I suppose this could seem weird based on your earthly customs. I promise you it's no more odd than the act of kissing was to me when I first came to Earth. Oh, and I almost forgot to introduce my new mate. This is Andressa, Nolan explained Mark before introducing Andressa to him. Your mate, what about Mom? Mark asked the man. This is my home now, son. I will never be returning to Earth. This probably wasn't the easiest way for you to discover this, but I have an entirely new life. I have moved on, Nolan explained to the boy as Andressa started walking away. Oh, is it time? You go ahead, I'll follow in a moment, Nolan said to Andressa, who smiled and waved as she walked away. Mark hated to admit it, but the woman was certainly well endowed. Did I really just think that? Mark asked himself as his Viltrum genes played with his mind. So what about Moms? I know you still love her, Dad. Are you sure about this? I mean, really sure. Women out in space might not mind the whole harem thing, Mark asked his father. I will not discuss your mother. As I told you already, I have no plans on returning to Earth. Now come, there is something else I must show you, Nolan explained to Mark before opening the door that Andressa had walked through only moments before. Mark walked inside to see the woman playing with a little purple baby. That, Mark asked the man, that is your little brother, Nolan explained to the man. My little brother. You know, I seem to remember you saying I was a fool to fight for Earth. Said I'd watch everything around me die. These people have even shorter lives. What makes them special? Mark asked the man. It's complicated, Mark. I have learned the error of the Viltrumite ways. I see the faults in logic I believed in for centuries. I am not the same man from months. Just look at your brother Mark. Nolan said to Mark, I see he's clearly different. Is it because Andrus's people aren't compatible with Viltrum DNA as humans are? Mark asked the man. Yes, exactly, and his skin color isn't the only difference. He's only 3 weeks old. By Earth standards, he looks to be a year old. He's aging too fast now. I suspect the Viltrumite DNA will cause his aging to slow down just as it has yours when he reaches puberty. But how much will it slow down is still in question. Nolan explained to Mark as they watched the boy play. I can see how that would be a problem, but even then he still has a very long life ahead of him, especially in terms of a human lifespan, hundreds if not thousands of years. Mark replied, but on Viltrum that would be a whole other story. The modern Viltrum civilization is built around the notion of survival of the fittest. That's how they become the intergalactic superpower they are today. By Viltrumite law, once a flaw is detected in an individual, they are to be executed at once. It is actually legal to kill the weak on Viltrum. If the loser of a fight is killed, then they were simply too weak and deserved to die. The winner is awarded a medal for strengthening the empire. According to Viltrum law, this child, your brother, would not be worthy of his life. Nolan explained to Mark. What's his name? You keep referring to him as your son or my brother, but what's his actual name, or does he not have one yet? Mark asked the man. The custom here is for an individual to choose their own name once they reach adulthood, which would be 2 weeks from now if not for his Viltrum DNA. Nolan replied, I see. Well, hopefully he makes it long enough to choose a name. Mark stated in hope to see his brother grow up. Son, I hope this talk we've had is showing you that you knew me better than even I would like to have admitted. I'm sorry, son, for everything, Nolan said to the boy in hopes for his forgiveness. Dad, I love you. I know you didn't mean what you said, but I can't just forgive you, though this is a nice start. Mark said to the man as he placed his hand on his shoulder. Thank you, son. I understand it. I truly do. But that doesn't change the fact I need your help. The Viltrumites are coming for me. They could be here at any moment. You arrived just in time. Once they find your brother, they will kill him. If I am defeated, I will be taken back to Viltrum for execution. I need your help defending the planet. Nolan explained to Mark. I knew this day would come. You need my help. You got it. How many are we looking at here? Mark asked. They will likely send 4 or less. Also, they have their most powerful soldiers doing more important things like conquering new worlds. Like me. Also, they won't be expecting you to be here. They don't know you exist. Between the two of us, we might stand a chance. Nolan explained to Mark, which means I don't have to worry about Conquest, General Craig, or Anissa. That makes things easier. Mark thought to himself as he knew even with the strides in power he's made since his fight with his dad, he still wasn't strong enough to reliably beat any of the 3 in a one-on-one fight. Well, then let's prepare ourselves. I don't want to be caught with our pants down, Mark said to his father. Suddenly, however, one of the Thraxans ran into the room in a panic. Sorry to interrupt, sire, but it's urgent, the Ant-Man yelled. What is it? Out with it, Nolan yelled. We're under attack, sire, the bug yelled, signaling the arrival of the Viltrumites. Mark, take them to the caves. Andressa will show you the way. Go now, Nolan yelled to the boy. Okay, Andressa, come on, Mark yelled to the woman. Andressa scooped baby Oliver up in her arms and ran up to Mark. Mark wrapped his arms around her waist and flew out of the chamber and followed Andressa's directions towards the caves. This is it, Andressa said to Mark as they flew over the cave's entrance. Mark nodded and floated down into the mouth of the cave. What is this place? Mark asked the woman as they walked through the dark cave. These are the caves of Rocklane. Once every generation our planet is forced to endure massive lightning storms. It has been this way for all of our recorded history. Rocklane discovered this cave system and led our people here for shelter against the storm many ages ago. It was also used as a haven for our people during the wars of times past before my people united under one world ruler. Andressa explained to Mark the purpose and history behind the cave they were in. That's interesting. What are you doing there? Mark asked baby Oliver as the boy played with Mark's face. The caves are no longer used for protection. Our technology has built structures that can withstand the lightning storms. Now the caves is a place for gathering, for study, for many things. The engravings will light the way. There are many caverns ahead, many lavishly furnished. We will be quite comfortable here. Follow me. Andressa explained to Mark. So you've been with my father for? Mark asked the woman. Most of my life. As your father described your timekeeping methods to us, 3 months. Andressa explained to Mark. 3 months, man, he doesn't waste any time, does he? Mark asked the woman. It is an honor to be coupled with your father. He's a great leader and has done many things to help my people. From what I have seen, you are very much his son. Andressa explained to Mark. Yeah, I am, in some ways anyway. Mark replied. You are just as if not faster than him, yes. These caves are a day's travel from the city, and yet you have gotten us here in moments just like him. Andressa said to Mark. So, it is true, the great Nolan has sired an offspring. A voice from the cave suddenly said to the two. Andressa and Mark turned to see a Viltrumite by the name of Lucan standing right behind them. Mark took Oliver and handed him to Andressa and stepped in front of them both. If you are strong enough to withstand my assault, you will be allowed to live. You will be worthy to stand by my side, a soldier of the Viltrum Empire. If you are not, you will die. Lucan said to Mark as the boy prepared himself to fight. I see you've prepared yourself for battle. I'm here to give you either glory or death. I am anxious to see which it will be. Lucan continued. We'll see about that, won't we? Andressa head for the mouth of the cave quickly. Mark said to the woman, You're protecting these two? Why, Nolan couldn't have. There's no way he did. He abandoned your world and came here, and created another offspring with these creatures. I'm just stunned. This is just unbelievable. Lucan said to himself as he was shocked by Nolan's actions. Mark, seeing the man was distracted, suddenly rushed in front of Lucan. Lucan, surprised by the boy's speed, was unprepared and was punched in his chin by Mark and sent flying. Mark then grabbed Andressa and Oliver and flew out of the cave. That guy's a fool. My father and I might be equals in strength, but I am faster, Mark stated as he soared through the air with the woman and her baby. Mark looked back to see Lucan trying to catch up. He's no slouch himself. Gonna have to play ball then. I'm gonna need to place you down for a few moments. Scream if you need help, Mark told Andressa, who nodded in response. Mark flew to ground as fast as he could and placed the woman down. He then turned and flew back into the air. You want to fight? Let's see what you got, Mark said to Lucan as he punched him in his chin once again. Mark continued punching Lucan in his face before punching him hard towards the ground. Nolan called out to the boy as he flew towards him. Where's Andressa? Nolan asked. Down here, come on, Mark said to the man as he flew towards the bug woman and her baby. What do we do now? That guy knew about the caves, Mark asked his father. He was the only one. You take her back to the caves. I'll handle him. Stay low and out of sight, Nolan yelled to Mark before flying off to finish Lucan. Mark grabbed Andressa and Oliver and quickly made his way back towards the cave, flying as low as possible as to avoid detection from the other Viltrumites. Okay, we're here. You guys hide and stay safe, Mark said to the woman before turning to leave. Be careful, Mark. Keep Nolan safe, Andressa said to Mark. I don't think that's necessary, but I'll certainly try, Mark said to the woman before flying out of the cave. Mark flew as fast as he could to find his dad, eventually spotting the man in the city. Dad, what do we do? Oh no, Mark was asking Nolan until he saw what had happened to a large portion of the planet's population. Mark placed his hand on his father's back as the man cried over the loss of so many of his people. Dad, Mark called out to the man. They were inferior to us. They were lesser beings. Their deaths are inconsequential. These are all things I am aware of. I should not care that they are dead. I've had blood on my hands before, far more than this, and yet I care. I am enraged, Nolan explained in anger. That's okay, Dad. It's normal to feel pain and anger of the slaughter of those you call your own people. You and I both know you aren't the same person you once were, Mark explained to his father. Nolan turned around and grabbed Mark in anger at his words. What makes you think you know what normal is? How can you presume your ways are right? How can you think it wouldn't be better to feel nothing at times like these? How? Nolan asked the boy in anger. Because it shows you have a heart, Mark replied. The two men sat there floating in the air in silence until another voice broke them from their quiet. There's the Nolan we've heard stories of. I must admit you had me worried for a little while there, one of the Viltrumite men said as he and his partner approached Nolan and Mark. Nolan let go of Mark and quickly flew into the man. The force pushed him and his part away. Nolan and the man continued fighting. However, in his rage, Nolan let his guard down and was suddenly overpowered by the man. Get off him, Mark yelled as he punched the man off his dad. Get up, Dad, Mark yelled to his dad. Pay attention, boy. Your fight is with me, the other older Viltrumite yelled as he tackled Mark away from his father. You know, some of us Viltrumites actually prefer to dismember our victims. They think it sends a better message. When it gets down to it, I think they just like making a mess. Me, I prefer to avoid a mess. I like to see the look in a victim's eyes the second they die. I want to experience the moment their body goes limp and their life ends. You can't do that if their eyes are already lying on the ground at their feet. I prefer things to be more personal, the older man explained to Mark as he slammed Mark into the ground. Mark looked up at the man and started crushing his wrist. The older man grunted as he felt Mark suddenly break his wrist. You talk too much, Mark said to the man. Mark slammed his fist into the man's jaw and sent him flying into the air. Mark pushed off the ground with enough force to crater it and flew right into the man and began punching him the face over and over again as they ascended into the air. The sound of his fists bashing against the man's face could be clearly heard by those below them. Tell me, did you know the Empire was sending you all to your deaths when you came here, or are you just realizing that now? Mark asked the man as he effortlessly overpowered him. You arrogant brat, the man hissed. Mark smiled and ducked just in time for Nolan to throw the man he was fighting into the other. Mark and Nolan flew after their opponents and grabbed them both by their heads and slammed them into each other again before chucking them into the ground again. Not bad, son, but don't take your time with them. Attack fast. You can't give them time to anticipate your attack, Nolan explained to Mark in the brief moment they had before the two men got back to their feet. Got it, you ready? Mark asked as he saw the two men flying towards them. Let's finish this, Nolan said to Mark. Mark nodded and the two straight towards their opponents, meeting them head on. Mark grunted and tackled the older-looking Viltrumite into the ground. He held one of the man's hands in his hand and squeezed as hard as he could, trying to break it, while he held the man's other arm down. The man grit his teeth and headbutted Mark in his nose, knocking him off him and got to his feet. As Mark stumbled, the other Viltrumite appeared behind Mark and punched him in his back. Mark grunted in pain and turned to the man and backhanded him hard. He slammed both of his fists into the man's ears and kneed him in his nose. The older Viltrumite tried to attack Mark from behind once again, but was stopped. Nolan. The four men proceeded to beat each other bloody, with Mark and Nolan trading off opponents in an attempt to keep them off balance. Do you regret what you've done now? Nolan asked as he held the older Viltrumite's bloody body in his hands. Do you? Nolan yelled in anger. So, have you got things under control? Mark asked the boy. Mark was off to the side and had his opponent pinned under his foot as he pulled on his arms. Mark grunted and with one hard pull dislocated both of the man's arms. Under Contarag, Mark was saying before General Craig appeared and slammed his foot into Mark's back. Mark, Nolan yelled as he dropped the older Viltrumite's body. However, he was soon dispatched by Lucan, who had survived Nolan's earlier assault. With his intestines hanging out, Lucan slammed his foot into Nolan's back, shattering his spine and knocking him out. Next time you kill someone, make sure they're dead, Lucan said to the man before passing out himself. Having been notified earlier, General Craig had arrived with his fleet and helped take down the father and son duo. However, having seen Mark's strength, Craig decided to mend to the boy's wounds. Some time later, Mark began waking. What happened? Mark asked as he looked around. He saw his dad being carried away by Viltrumite soldiers and that his wounds had been patched up. Mark, my books, read my books, Nolan told Mark as he was being carried away. Mark looked at his dad and nodded. We tended your wounds, Craig suddenly said to Mark as he stood in front of him. Didn't need it, Mark said to the man. Don't piss me off, boy. You should count yourself lucky to be alive. By all accounts, you have proven yourself a worthy member of the Empire. You are to be temporarily designated Viltrumite Agent of Earth. You will take your father's place and prepare for our eventual takeover of the planet. We are aware that your retaliation against us was due to your father. You will have 100 years to put things in order. If you do not complete this task, you will be detained and executed upon your arrival. General Craig explained to Mark exactly what his position was. Mark looked up at the man, scowled. I'd like to see you try, Mark said to the man before passing out once again. Craig wanted nothing more than to kill Mark for his clear disobedience of orders, but Craig did not disobey an order when given one, and Thrag had made it clear what the boy's role would be. As such, Craig grit his teeth and flew back to his ship, leaving Mark to tend to his own wounds. Mark would sleep for hours until he rewoke. When he got up, his first instinct was to make sure Andressa and Oliver were okay. He flew straight to the cave he left them in just as Andressa was coming out. Mark, Andressa yelled out as she saw the boy's bruised face and the dried-up blood on his suit. Where is Nolan? Where is my husband? Andressa asked. He's gone. They took him, Mark said to the woman who became consumed with grief over the loss of her husband. A few weeks after the battle, Mark had been hard at work helping the Thraxans rebuild their ruined home world. And there, Mark sighed as he placed the final column in place for the Grand Palace. Very good, Mark. This beam will be the support structure for the Grand Palace. I can't thank you enough for all you've done. Without you, the cleanup would have taken generations. But with your help, I may very well see the rebirth of our great city in my lifetime. Andressa, who had grown older in the weeks Mark was there, said to the boy with a smile on her face. I'm glad I could help. After everything your people have gone through, it's the least I could do. Mark replied. I'm sorry for the interruption, Queen Andressa, but you told me to inform you the moment a new space vessel was completed that could return the Mark Grayson to his planet. It's ready, one of the Thraxans said to Andressa. Excellent, make the preparations at once. I want the ship prepared to launch before our sons begin their descent. Andressa told the man. Yes, Queen, your will be done, the drone said to the woman before running off. Andressa, are you sure about that? I mean, I could stay behind and help you guys rebuild. If I helped, we could be done by the end of the week, Mark told the woman. I'd ask you please not question me in front of my subjects, Mark. Your time here has been long, too long. This is not your responsibility. Andressa told Mark, my responsibility is to help any and everyone who needs it. Andressa, Mark explained to the woman as they walked. Be that as it may, you've already done more than enough for my people. You have a life to return to. I regret it has taken this long to rediscover the technology to get you home. You must go, no. You must go, Mark. You must go and be with your people, if for no other reason than you remind me of him, of what I lost. Andressa explained to Mark. Yeah, my dad, Andressa, listen, my dad is fine. He's alive and he will come home. He'll figure some way. Mark told the woman with conviction. I hope you are right, more than you could ever know. Now come, there's much we must discuss before your departure. Andressa told Mark as she gestured for him to follow her. Andressa led Mark inside the ruins of the Grand Palace to where baby Oliver was waiting. Let me guess, you want me to take my brother, don't you? Mark asked the woman. Yes, I do, Andressa replied. Brother, baby Oliver called out to the man as he approached. Hey little guy, have you been playing? Mark asked the now 2-year-old looking kid. Andressa, are you sure about this? You don't have a very long life. Are you sure you should have him not know who his mother was, or what his people are? Mark asked the woman. Don't you see how much I've aged since you arrived? I understand that to you not much time has passed, but by your standards I don't have much time left to live. By his standards I don't. What happens to him when I die? I'll die before he's able to form a sentence at the rate his aging is slowing down. Entire kingdoms will fall and rise before he reaches adulthood. Who knows how our people will grow and change during his lifetime? He could never live a life here. He doesn't belong with us, Mark. He belongs with you. Andressa explained to Mark. Okay, I promise you I'll take good care of him. I'll raise him to be as big and strong as his dad, and I promise he will know who his mother was. Andressa. Mark promised the woman. Thank you, Mark. That is all I could ever ask of you. Now I believe it is time for you to go. Andressa thanked Mark before escorting him to his ship. With one last kiss to her son, Andressa watched as the boy and Mark began their trek back home. Waving goodbye to her son one last time before she would die, Mark sat in the cockpit of the ship and strapped Oliver in the other chair as the ship flew through space. Your life is going to be so messed up. Hopefully we can fix that little buddy. Mark rubbed Oliver's head. After another 7 days, Mark and Oliver departed the ship that had carried them back to Earth and watched as it returned to where it came. Mark looked at Oliver as he held the boy in his arms and sighed before flying home. Mark landed on the balcony outside his window and entered expecting to see Eve, but the room was empty. Guess she's in Africa. Well, hopefully Mom will be home soon, Mark said to Oliver as he changed out of his ruined clothes and walked downstairs with Oliver to wait for his mom's return. After work, Debbie returned home. I'm sorry, Eve, he's not back yet. I know you're worried too. How are things in Africa? Debbie asked the girl as she walked up to the house. That's great, really. It's good to know that there are people with your abilities out there smart enough to realize there are plenty of you flying around and punching things. Debbie replied as the two continued their conversation. Debbie pulled out her keys and unlocked the door. Oh, okay, I'll let you go. It was good talking to you, Debbie said to Eve before hanging up the phone. She walked in the door and was surprised to see Mark standing there. Debbie uttered, Hi, Mom. Miss me? Mark asked the woman as he waved at her. Mark, Debbie yelled as she ran up to the boy. She grabbed him and pulled him into a tight hug, and he hugged her back. Oh God, Mark, I've been so worried about you. You've been gone for over a month, Debbie said to the boy. Next time I got to another planet, remind me to pack more stuff. You wouldn't believe what these people used as toothpaste. It was painful. Mark chuckled as he explained to his mom his experience on a different planet. I'm just glad you're okay, Debbie said to Mark. Mom, we really need to talk on this other planet. I saw Dad. Mark said to the woman. What? Debbie asked in shock. He was there. He sent for me. That's why the alien came to this planet for me. Mark explained to Debbie. Your father was there. What was he doing? Debbie asked. He'd taken over. But they let him. It's kind of hard to explain. Basically, the oldest being rules, and Dad was the oldest thing they'd ever seen, so he ruled. Mark explained to the woman. King of the planet, why did he need you there? Debbie asked. He wasn't supposed to take over that planet. He was supposed to take over Earth. The Viltrumites came for him. Mark replied. His own people. He brought you there to fight his people. But when he was on this planet, he fought you in. It's complicated. I knew he'd realize he was wrong, and even he admitted that his time on Earth had changed him. Mark told the woman as he cut her off. Did he really say that? Debbie asked. Yes, he did. Mark replied. Did he say anything about me? Debbie asked with a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Yeah, he loves you, Mom, but he feels like he can never return. Mark lied to the woman as he didn't want to completely crush whatever hope she had left. But Mom, there's more that I need to tell you. You should probably sit down somewhere. Mark told the woman. What is it? Debbie asked in confusion. As she asked, Oliver came waddling into the room and walked straight up to Mark. Brother, Oliver called out to Mark. Debbie turned and looked at the purple baby in shock. Who? Where did he just call you brother? Debbie asked as she watched Mark pick Oliver up. Yes, he did, Mark replied. What are you telling me? Debbie asked. He made it clear he wasn't going to come back. He couldn't, so he started a new life. He found a new wife and they made him. Mark explained to the Debbie, but if that's true, then why doesn't this woman have the child? Debbie asked. These aliens, their lifespans are short, very short in fact. Andressa was already old by the time I left. Her people only live for 9 months. Because of Dad's DNA, this baby here is going to have a longer lifespan than them. By the time he reaches my age, his mother and the rest of the people currently alive on that planet will have been dead for maybe a century compared to us. He'd outlive everything on that planet. His mother knew that. That's why she asked me to take care of him. I know it's hard and I know it's weird, but this was the only thing I could do. But I don't know a thing about raising a kid, and my life is already so busy. I was kind of hoping you'd take care of him. Mark explained to the woman. Mark, this is a lot to process. I don't know if I can take care of him. Debbie replied to the man. Mom, please, I don't know where else I could take him. Mark replied. Pentagon now. Mark was suddenly radioed by Cecil, who did not sound too happy. Oh, I am not dealing with this today. Mark thought to himself. Cecil wants to see me. I don't think he's happy about me skating off to another planet. Can you at least watch him until I get back? I also need to see how Eve's doing. I doubt she'd be pleased to find out I'm home from someone else. Could we finish this tonight? Mark asked the woman. Mark, I don't know. Debbie replied. Mom, please. Mark begged the woman. Okay, go on. Debbie finally agreed to watch the boy. Thanks, Mark said to the woman. He handed Oliver over to Debbie and quickly left the house. Debbie looked down at the baby and smiled upon seeing him smiling up at her. Mark flew to the Pentagon as fast as he could and arrived to see Cecil sitting at a bench in front of the White House and touched down right in front of him. Did you have fun on your little alien adventure? Cecil asked as Mark landed in front of him. Yeah, I did. Got a problem with that? Mark asked in a condescending tone. Little bit, but we'll get there. So I heard you saw your father. Do you feel like he's no longer a threat to the planet? Cecil asked. Him no, but his people, my people, they definitely still are. They actually put me in charge of this planet and bumped the deadline down to 100 years. Mark explained to the man. That put you in charge? Cecil asked. Yeah, they are a bunch of arrogant jerks. They don't think I'm going to go against them. They think I'm going to overcome my senses and take over this planet. Honestly, they probably don't care either way. In 100 they are coming, or who knows, maybe sooner than that. Maybe this is all an elaborate test. Guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Mark explained to the man the best he could. Okay, now that we're past that, let your mother know we can help with that. Having another Viltrumite raised by her to be a fine, upstanding citizen like you is in all our best interests. We could arrange legitimate adoption papers and give the childbirth records and even employ some low-tech holographics to match his skin color. The advanced aging will be tricky. We couldn't allow the child to attend public schools because someone would notice his uniqueness, so we would provide a private tutor. We could make this very easy on her. Or we could help you locate a foster family if she didn't want the child. Cecil explained to Mark everything he would do to help make things easier. I'll let her know. Now, is there anything else you need to say? Because I'm going to save you some time. I don't work for you, Cecil. We're partners. And when I decide to go out into space and help, I'm going to do just that. You're going to stay on Earth and not worry about it. I can't be everywhere at once, and if something happened while I was gone that really required my attention, then no, I am sorry. But at the end of the day, you're all still here, so I don't see any problems. If you need me, I'll be here. But I need you to understand that I do not bark when you say bark. Now, going forwards, you can choose to respect my words and know that there is going to be a time when I'm required to leave this planet to keep it safe. Or I can grab Eve, I can grab my family, and we can leave for good. There are many planets out there in space that can support life, Cecil. Think about it. Mark explained to the man before flying off. Cecil sat there in silence as he muled over what Mark had said to him. After flying off and leaving Cecil behind, Mark headed straight for Eve's home in Africa. It had been a long day, and after helping revitalize more of Africa's grasslands with life, Eve returned to her home to rest for the night and prepare for the next day. As she got in bed, Eve heard a knock at her window. When she walked over and pulled the curtains back, she was surprised to see Mark floating outside her window. Mark, Eve shouted happily. She quickly opened the window and was tackled to the bed by Mark, who started tickling her stomach. Mark, stop it. Hee, that tickles, Eve shouted as she struggled against Mark's assault. Mark continued his assault until Eve managed to use her powers and flip the two of them over so that Eve was on top of him. Eve looked down at Mark, her breath ragged from laughing so much. She leaned down and kissed him right on his lips before speaking. Welcome home, honey. How was your trip? Eve asked the man. It was wild. Boy, do I have a story to tell you, babe. But first, I missed my little snow fairy, Mark said to Eve before kissing her again. I've missed you too, now I got an itch. Think you can help me scratch it, cowboy? Eve asked as she took her top off, revealing her beautiful breasts. Her cherry-like nipples were already hard, and Mark could feel she was already well beyond wet. Mark grabbed Eve by her waist and flipped her back over. I can do more than that, baby. You better pray to God. Because I'm about to send you to him, Mark told Eve. The two then spent the entire night making love to one another after Mark's long mission. Ah, Mark groaned as he awoke from his slumber. He looked down on his chest to see Eve smiling up at him. Good morning, did you sleep well, my prince? Eve asked as she and Mark sat up in bed. It was the greatest night of my life, Mark said to the woman as he pulled her into a hug. You hungry? Eve asked. After last night. I'm starving, Mark replied. Eve got up from bed, pulling Mark with her, and brought the man to her kitchen. Let's get cooking, Eve said to the man as she opened up the fridge. Mark smirked and joined the woman at the stove, helping her make breakfast. After 30 minutes of cooking and cleaning up their messes, Mark and Eve chowed down on a plate of eggs, bacon, pancakes, and waffles. Burrup. Ugh, that was disgusting. Eve groaned as she rubbed her belly. That was amazing, Mark stated. That's what I meant, but I feel disgusting after eating all that fat. Eve replied, Hey, I bet you'd look sexy as fuck with love handles. How about it? Put on some weight for me, Mark said to the woman as he wrapped his arms around her stomach. What? No way am I getting fat anytime soon, Eve replied. So what's on the schedule for today? I have no problems lying in bed all day if that's what you want. Actually, I'd prefer it, Mark asked the woman. Well, first coffee, Eve said to the man. She got up from her seat and walked outside and picked a few leaves and returned. I thought you went to get coffee. Unless coffee is somehow another word for leaves here, then in that case, cool, Mark said to the woman. Eve looked up at the man condescendingly and just rolled her eyes at his stupidity. Just watch, Eve said to the man. She grabbed a few of the leaves and smushed them together. Her hands then began glowing and a mug with coffee inside appeared in her hands. Whoa, Mark exclaimed as he took the cup from Eve. I've seen you bend a pipe and change the density of air around you, but never something this complex. The coffee in the house. Girl, you really are amazing, you know that, Mark stated as he looked around at the woman's creations. I've been practicing. The more I do this, the more complex things I can do. I've always been able to do complex stuff, though, like turning whatever I'm wearing into my costume. Eve explained to the man, or take them off. Mark joked, making Eve giggle. You want some cream and sugar? Eve asked as she held up more leaves. So leaves into coffee and a coffee mug and now cream and sugar. Is there anything you can't do, babe? Mark asked the girl as she crushed up leaves into cream and sugar for his coffee. It's all atoms when you get down to it. I rearrange the atoms and turn them into something else. It's pretty simple, so as long as I can manipulate the atoms, I can do just about anything, Eve explained to the man. So you're moving atoms around to make things different things. You always use the same amount of atoms. I mean, is there anything ever left over? Mark asked. Well, let's just say on days when I use my powers a lot. I can use the bathroom 6 or 7 times a day, Eve replied. Okay, stink butt, Mark called the woman. Hey, Eve exclaimed in shock over Mark's nickname for her. Mark smiled and kissed her softly on the lips before moving down to her neck. At first you had my curiosity, but now you have my erection, Mark said to the woman as he continued sucking on her neck. You idiot, don't do that, and Eve said to the man before slowly giving into the pleasure and moaning. Eve sat her cup down and readjusted herself in her chair. She grabbed her panties and pulled them down to her ankles and spread her legs. Are you still hungry? Eve leaned up to Mark's ear and asked in his ear seductively. Yes, ma'am, Mark replied. Eve grinned and used her fingers to spread her pussy lips for Mark. Then eat, Eve demanded. Mark smiled and kissed Eve on her lips hungrily before moving straight down to her pink garden and began eating her out. Eve closed her eyes and gently rolled her hips into Mark's face as the man's tongue protruded into her insides. Oh, Mark, I'm coming, Eve squealed as she came right into Mark's mouth. Mark opened his mouth and allowed her juice to flow right into his mouth. He made sure to take his time so he could catch all of it, and once he's sure she was done, he swallowed every last drop of her sweet nectar. Good boy, Mark, good boy, Eve said to the man as she watched him swallow all of her love juice. Once Mark was done, he grabbed Eve's hips and placed her face down on the table. He reached down and pulled out his dick and slammed it straight into Eve's pussy. Oh God, so big, Eve moaned. Mark pulled out halfway and slammed back inside hard. Eve's ass jiggled like jelly as Mark continued slamming his hard dick inside of her. Coming, Mark, don't stop, Eve yelled. Mark grinned evilly and continued thrusting into Eve hard, feeling every inch of her love garden clamping down on his rod. It feels so good, Eve, Mark continued thrusting as he felt Eve's pussy suddenly clamp down even harder. Mark, fuck, Eve yelled as her climax erupted throughout her body. Eve, open your mouth. Mark pulled out of Eve's pussy and ordered her to open her mouth. Eve got off the table and kneeled down on the floor and opened her mouth wide for Mark. He grabbed her hair and slammed his dick into her mouth and began roughly throat fucking her until he finally came. Thick ropes of cum began pouring down Eve's throat, painting it white. Eve looked into Mark's eyes as she swallowed every drop of his cum until there was nothing left. Fuck, asterisk squelch, Mark groaned as he pulled his dick from Eve's mouth with a wet pop. Mark leaned down and started rubbing her head softly. Good girl, Mark whispered into Eve's ear. After a brief make-out session and a shower, Mark and Eve got dressed and headed out to explore. This is beautiful, babe. I gotta admit, I'm actually kind of jealous that you get to see this kind of sight every day, Mark said to the woman as they looked at the sun setting behind the African grasslands. Well, Mark, you know, if you want, you could move in with me, Eve said to the man. I get to see the most beautiful woman in the world every day and see this amazing sunset. I'm sold. I'll get my things as soon as possible, Mark replied to the woman. I'm so happy you're back, Mark, Eve told the man as she settled into his arms. Mark smiled and kissed the top of Eve's head gently as they continued their sightseeing. That is until a noise suddenly drew their attention. Do you hear that? Eve asked. Mark and Eve turned to see a horde of steer running straight towards the nearby village. Oh my God, they're heading right towards that village, Eve yelled in terror. Come on, we need to help, Eve yelled as she took off towards the village with Mark right beside her. Mark and Eve landed in front of the coming stampede and started digging trenches and making fences to herd them in a different direction. After about 5 minutes of damage control, Mark and Eve finally managed to wrangle the steer up and place them in a pen to keep them from destroying anything else. Phew, finally done. I thought they'd never settle down. Now I think I'm hungry again, Eve complained as she wiped the sweat from her face. How about we head home and eat? Mark asked the woman. That sounds great right about now, Eve replied as she walked up to Mark. The man wrapped his arms around the woman's waist and carried her back home in his arms. After arriving, Eve walked into the kitchen and came back with a tray of food. cake, sandwiches, grapes, and other kinds of food. Babe, I know they say the quickest way to a man's heart is through his stomach, but you've already captured my heart, Mark said as the woman placed the food down on the table. What? I just wanted to make sure you ate well. I need your stamina to be as high as it can get for later. Eve purred into Mark's ear before kissing him softly on his cheek. Mark grabbed Eve by her waist and pulled her into his lap. He kissed her on her lips and began feeding her food from the tray. Oh, Mark, this day has been absolutely amazing. I love you, Eve said to the man as she nestled into his arms, her head resting gently against his chest. I love you too, Eve, and nothing will ever change that, Mark told the woman. Mark and Eve were just about to kiss once again, but suddenly Eve's phone started ringing. Ugh, only so many people have my number, my parents and your mom. So I should probably get that. Eve groaned as she got up from Mark's lap. She walked into the house and moments later returned with a confused look on her face. Mark, it's for you, Eve told the man who looked at her in confusion. Who is it, my mom or Cecil? Mark asked as he took the phone. Hello, Mark asked the person on the other side of the phone. Your mother wants to talk to you, a man's voice told Mark. Mark, help, Debbie begged for help. No, that's not possible. I left him alone. I didn't interrupt his plan. He shouldn't even be a factor anymore, Mark thought to himself in a panic. Mark's face grew into rage as he held the phone in his hands. She's in trouble, Mark. How fast can you get home? The man asked before hanging up the phone. Mark slammed the phone down onto the table in rage. Mark, what's wrong? Eve asked as she looked at the man's angered expression. Someone's holding my mom hostage, Mark yelled before taking off towards his home. How did this happen? I made sure not to involve myself in this mess. So how did it happen? It can't be mine. My Levy has no reason to attack me. Could it be another dimension's Levy? Did a me from another dimension do something to make an enemy out of his Levy? Damn it. I was hoping that if the experiment worked, Levy could help make advancements to the world's technology. Instead, it seems like I'll need to kill him, Mark thought to himself as he flew towards his home. It took Mark 2 minutes to cross the globe and land in his front yard. He'll be waiting in Mom's room. I'll sneak around back and catch him off guard, Mark thought to himself as he slowly made his way to the back of the house. He placed his hand on the wall that would be in Debbie's room and punched it as hard as he could, throwing Levy, his mom, and Oliver from the bed. Mom, Mark yelled. He grabbed the woman and Oliver and raced them out of the house. Go, call Cecil, get out of here, Mark yelled to the woman before turning around and flying back into the house. Damn you, Invincible, you caught me off guard. I was expecting you to rush into the house like a mad dog. But instead, you surprised me. I'm impressed. Do you know who I am? Levy asked the man. Levi Angstrom, why did you attack my family? Mark asked in anger. Why, you mean you don't remember what you did to me? Look at me, you did this, Mark Grayson. You wouldn't let my experiment work. Levy yelled in anger. How did I do it? I was never even there, Mark yelled back. So you don't remember, is that it? Levy asked the man. Doesn't matter, you're dead, Mark yelled as he charged the man. However, before he could hit him, a portal opened up and Mark went through. Mark suddenly crashed down right in front of a large pack of dinosaurs. That couldn't be, it is. I thought sapiens were extinct. It's been decades since I've tasted their flesh, the giant red T-Rex yelled as it charged Mark. Yeah, not likely, Mark replied as he uppercutted the dinosaur's head off. You bastard, you killed our friend, one of the many dinosaurs yelled as they all began to charge Mark. Mark flew into the air and turned to face the dinosaurs, unaware of the portal opening up behind him. Whoa, Mark yelped as he crashed back down in his house. Welcome home, Mar, Levy was saying before Mark got to his feet to attack him once again. However, just as before, Mark went through another portal. This time he crashed right into the back of. Wait, Dr. Octopus, Mark said as he looked down at the famous Marvel villain. Whoa, Spider-Man, Mark exclaimed as he looked over at the web-swinging hero. Yeah, that's me, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Just a quick question, who are you and why did you come through a portal? Spider-Man asked as he got to his feet. I'm from a different dimension, man. Where I came from, you and the rest of the heroes on this earth were comic book characters created by guys like Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. I even know your name and the name of your first love, Peter Parker, Mark explained to the man whose eyes went wide from the sudden revelation. Whoa, dude, did the author just introduce the multiverse starting with Spider-Man and Marvel? Wicked, Deadpool yelled as he landed in front of the duo. Wait, Spider. The X-Men, their school is going to be attacked by Stryker when they attempt to evacuate the depowered students. There's a symbiote god named Null who's going to attack and turn the world into symbiotes. He's strong enough to kill Sentry. The Inhumans are going to release the Terrigen mists onto the world. The mists are poisonous to mutants. The Phoenix Force is going to come back to Earth no matter what happens. You have to tell the Avengers to let Hope become the host. She and Wanda have to work together. If they don't, Cyclops will be possessed by the Phoenix Force and kill. Mark tried explaining to the man every possible tragedy that was in days coming in a hope that the world would be better off without certain events happening. However, before he could finish his warning, another portal opened and Mark was teleported once again. Well, that was a lot to take in. Oh man, I need to tell the others, Peter exclaimed. Sorry, Spider, but can't let you ruin things with all these spoilers, Deadpool said to the man before hitting him with a memory-erasing device. See that, author, can't have you changing things. Deadpool explained to the author before shifting the screen back to Mark. Mark landed harshly down into the world of DC Comics, and more importantly in the bedroom of one Karen Star/Power Girl. Ugh, my head, Mark thought to himself as he got to his feet. He looked up to Power Girl of all people in the middle of pleasuring herself. Oh man, Levy, I take it back, I take it all back, you mad genius you. Mark praised the man for the wonderful gift of a lifetime. Seeing her beautifully sculpted Kryptonian body in all of its naked glory was a gift not many men will ever have the pleasure of. However, Mark was suddenly pulled from his thoughts by Power Girl's fist coming towards his face. Mark's eyes widened and he just barely ducked under her fist in time to avoid it. Who are you? Power Girl asked. Don't freak out, I'm from another dimension. I was in the middle of a fight and was suddenly thrown here. Mark was explaining to the woman when suddenly a portal opened behind him. Look out, Power Girl yelled as Levy appeared behind Mark. Mark turned and grabbed onto Levy before the man could grab him and flew into the portal with Levy in his hands. Mark and Angstrom, Levy landed back on Mark's dimension hard, and Mark got up and started punching the man in his face. No more portals, no more chances. I left you alone to work so you could help the world, but it seems like there's nothing good about you, Angstrom, so I'm putting an end to this once and for all. No more Angstrom, Mark declared as he continued beating Levy's head in. Mark then grabbed the man and tore him in half. Let's see you put yourself back together after that. Mark spat at the man's corpse. Mark sat there and watched to make sure he was dead before flying off to find his mom. She's at the Pentagon Kid. Cecil suddenly radioed the man. Mark nodded and flew straight towards the Pentagon as fast as he could, smashing his way through the roof and landing right in the basement. Where are they? Mark yelled out as he looked around for his mom and little brother. Calm down, Mark. Everything is fine. They're in the infirmary. We're taking good care of them. Everything is going to be fine. We covered the whole thing up. Leaked some nonsense about a gas line blowing. Local authorities seem to have bought it, so your identity is cleared. You can see your mother in a moment, but first I need to know what happened. Cecil explained to Mark. Angstrom Levy attacked me. I killed him the end. Where are they? Mark asked again. Down the hall, kid, Cecil said to the man. Mark turned and without another word launched down the hall towards the infirmary. Mom, Mark called out to the woman. He looked over to see her with a black eye and bandages and Oliver being checked out. Debbie got to her feet and hugged her son tightly as she cried in his arms. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. Mark apologized to his mother as he hugged her back. It's okay, son. It's okay. It's over now. That's all that matters. I've lived through worst. Debbie exclaimed as she hugged her son. After a long and thorough check-up, Mark and his family were finally able to rest. Mark had stayed with his family and Eve in the Pentagon for the night, while authorities and construction workers worked the house. Yo, what's going on, little bro? Mark asked his brother as he continued doing push-ups. Mom said I could come see you and Eve today. Oliver replied, oh yeah. You should have told me ahead of time, little man. I would have planned the day out for you. Mark replied as he got to his feet. He walked over to the gravity machine and turned it off. Finally at 60. I can definitely feel the difference. My body feels even lighter than before, almost like I'm walking on a cloud. Mark thought to himself as he looked down at the number on the machine, a great sense of pride welling up on the inside. Mark turned around to speak to his brother and jumped. Whoa, damn, you've gotten bigger again, little bro. You might be older than I am in no time. Mark said in surprise as he looked at how big Oliver had become. So tell me, Oliver, how's things going? Did your powers come in yet? Mark asked the boy. No, not yet. When do you think I should get them? Oliver asked. Any day now, buddy. Until then, how about we go out and play a game, huh? Mark asked the boy. All right, let's go, Oliver replied. Mark nodded and walked towards the exit of the base with Oliver, but suddenly stopped. Hey, wait a minute. How did you get in here without powers? Mark asked the boy. Oliver looked up at Mark and struggled to hide his smile. You little booger, you tricked me. I can't believe I fell for that. How long have you had your powers? Mark asked the boy. I got them today. Oliver replied, and you're already flying. You're definitely my little brother. Come on, let's go home and get the gloves. Mark said to the boy. Oliver nodded and the two brothers began their flight back home. So have you thought about a name for yourself? Because I've been doing some thinking. See, at first I thought Incrediboy, but then I remembered that's copyright. Then I thought Kid Invincible. We could be the Invincibros. Mark explained to Oliver as the two walked into the house. What are you boys talking about? Debbie asked as the two entered into the kitchen. Well, Oliver's powers came in and I was asking him what his name would be if he became a hero. I was thinking Kid Invincible. Mark explained to the woman. What? No way is he going to be a hero right now. He's still a kid and it's too dangerous. Debbie stated. Dangerous? Dangerous how? Oliver asked the woman. You could accidentally hurt me or yourself. There's just too many things that could happen. Debbie explained to the boy. Oh, Mom, don't worry about it. I'm here for him. I can guide him and train him properly. Mark explained to the woman. You've got school. Debbie replied. I could quit school. Mark replied. Mark. Debbie chided the boy. What's the big deal? I'm away saving the earth more than I am in class. I'm failing nearly all of them simply because I've missed so many days. I'm wasting my time. With my powers, I can do anything. And besides, I've been working on a little gig to make money. Just need to iron out a few more kinks and I'll be set. Mark explained to the woman. You're not quitting school. Debbie stated bluntly. I'll tell you what, you give me one good reason. You tell me why I need school, and I'll consider staying. Go on, Mark explained to the woman. Debbie looked at the boy's smug face in silence as she couldn't think of a real reason for the boy to continue staying in school. Her finances are already taken care of, and Mark really could do anything. Looks like I win, Mark said proudly. Hey kid, we need you in space. Cecil suddenly radioed to Mark. Why, what is it? Mark asked. Life from approaching fast, the immortal went up to deal with it. But I think you should help, Cecil replied. All right, got nothing else to do today, Mark said as he got to his feet. It's hero time, Mark exclaimed as he flew out of his house and into the air. As he approached the Earth's atmosphere, his clothes burned off, revealing his suit underneath. Mark spotted the immortal and Alan fighting and flew right up to them, getting in between the both of them and shoving them back hard. Whoa, Invincible. Dude, you're bigger, Alan said to the man. So are you, Mark said to the man, impressed by his new hulking size. Hey, Alan, do me a favor and don't hurt this guy, okay? I know he's a dick and all, but he's one of mine and I'm the only allowed to reprimand him, Mark explained to Alan. Oh, I see. Sorry about that then, man. I hope I didn't hurt you, Alan said to the immortal. Hey, don't worry about him, even if you were to tear his head off. All I have to do is put it back on and he'd be fine, Mark explained to the man. Wow, that's impressive, Alan stated. I know, right? Anyway, what's up, man? Mark asked. Your dad, Mark. You got a place we can talk? I'd really like to get out of space, Alan told the man. Yeah, follow me, Mark said to Alan as he turned to fly back to Earth with Alan right behind him. A few moments later, all right, man, take a seat and fill me in, Mark told Alan as they sat down. Okay, well, a lot has transpired since we last saw each other. I brought news of your rebellion against the Viltrum Empire to the Coalition of Planets. You've been inspiration to our cause, frankly. After I told them your story, I was attacked. 3 Viltrumites questioned me on your father's whereabouts. They would have killed me, but apparently I've got more powers than I knew. Whatever doesn't kill me makes me stronger, and after what they did to me, I don't know what can kill me. Thaddeus, the leader of the Coalition of Planets, suspects there's a mole within the group. Someone who tipped off the Viltrumites about my report sent them after me. I'm working exclusively for him now, Alan explained to Mark. Thaddeus, he's in charge, huh? Why did he send you? Mark asked. For you. He wants me to bring you back to Tailscria to meet with him. If you'd like to pack some things, we could. Look, Alan, I like you, buddy, but I'm going. There's too much going on Earth right now for me to leave. My brother just got his powers and needs to be properly trained, or else he's going to end up hurting somebody. Not to mention leaving now would leave Earth defenseless. I'm sorry, man, can't do it. But if you can find a way for me and him to speak from across space, then I'd be happy to, Mark explained to Alan sternly, giving him no room for argument. All right, I see you're dead set on this, Alan stated. I'm sorry, man, I want to help, but now's not the right time. My dad was captured and taken prisoner, my brother's growing every day, and I have to find time to juggle being a hero and actually training, Mark explained. I can see how that's rough. But tell me about this brother of yours. Is the Earth woman taking care of him? Alan asked. Oliver, yeah, my mom is, Mark replied. And he already has powers like you? Alan asked. No, he's way weaker than me. He wouldn't stand a chance against an average Viltrumite, Mark answered. One long conversation later. Well, that's all of the man. Enjoy, Mark said to Alan after letting the man scan his books for his records. Thanks, it was good seeing you again. I'm sure I'll be seeing you again, so until then, take care, Alan said to Mark before flying back into space. So much to do in so little time. Oh boy, things are about to get bumpy, Mark thought to himself. He grabbed a few things from his room and flew straight Eve's house to turn in for the night. The sun was out, the birds were chirping, and Mark was finally awoken by the sound of running water. Mark leaned up in his and Eve's bed to see the woman standing in the bathroom preparing a shower. Hey babe, what are you doing? Mark asked the woman. Eve turned and smiled at Mark. Well, I was getting ready to wake you up. You're supposed to be meeting your mom for dinner today, or did you forget that? Eve asked the man as she plopped down in bed beside him. Oh, I totally forgot. I was so busy training Oliver to use the chamber last night I forgot about it. Mark rolled over and pulled Eve with him. Thank you, babe. Now let's get you out of these clothes, Mark said as he slowly started ripping Eve's lingerie off. Mark, ugh, you idiot, I like those, Eve complained. Yeah, I'll get you more now. Come on, we have a shower to take, Mark said as he picked the girl up. Wow, you aren't even. Oh, you jerk. You got me all hot and bothered just to shower, Eve complained. Ahaha, who said we were just going to shower? Mark asked the girl. Eve looked up at Mark a little stunned and slowly smirked as Mark flew her in the bathroom. After a quick and steamy shower session, Mark and Eve both came out of the bathroom glowing. Have fun, sweetie. Come home soon. I want dessert, Eve said to Mark as she licked her fingers. Damn, I love this woman, Mark thought to himself. He walked over to Eve and kissed her on the lips before smacking her soft ass. I can't wait, Eve hummed before laying down on the bed. Mark smirked and quickly threw his clothes and left the house. Man, life is so good recently. I got a little brother who wants to be just like me. I've just about got all the kinks for my company ironed out. I should be able to start taking clients soon. And above all else, I've got the most amazing woman in the entire world at my side. I'm living life, Mark said to himself, happily taking in all of the good things he's got going for him. Mark landed in the city and made his way to the meeting spot for his lunch date with his mother. I'm not late. Where is she? Maybe I should have gone and picked her up, Mark thought to himself as he looked around for his late mother. Mark. Hey, Mark, Debbie suddenly called out to the boy as she made her way through the crowd of people. Hey, Mom, I was just thinking about you. So are you ready? Mark asked the woman. Yes, I am. Come on, let's get a seat and order something really quick, Debbie said to the boy. Mark nodded and took his mother's hand and walked with her to one of the small cafes outside tables. Once they were seated, Mark ordered a large BLT sandwich with extra ham and turkey. Debbie ordered a salad. So what's going on, Mom? What do you want to talk about? Mark asked the woman as he took a bite from his sandwich. Well, Mark, I've been meaning to tell you for a while, but I've been seeing someone else. I wasn't looking or anything like that. It just sort of happened. His name's Paul and he works for the same realtor company I do. When Nalan left, Paul helped me out at the company. We became friends and last month he asked me out. We've gone out a few times since then. It's not serious yet, but I didn't want you to be surprised by anything. Debbie explained to the boy, That's great, Mom. I'm happy for you, seriously. If this is what you want, then go for it. Mark said to the woman happily, Are you sure, son? I mean, I know you wanted to hold out hope that your father would come back. Debbie asked the boy, Mom, if Dad comes back and you decide you want to be with him, then that's that. If not, then oh well, I love you both, and yes, he's made some mistakes that can't be forgiven, but he's my dad. I've loved him for 18 years. Mark explained to the woman, Come with me. A woman's voice suddenly ordered Mark, her voice strong and commanding. One moment. Mark said to the woman, brushing her off. Come with me now, the woman demanded. Lady, you really don't, Mark was saying until he turned and saw who was talking to him. Mark's eyes widened in shock as he realized who it was that had spoken to him. Mark Grayson, Invincible, you will come with me right now or I will kill your mother, Anissa declared. Did the bastard I maimed on Thraxa not send a clear message that I'm not another one of your pathetic flunkies? Mark asked the woman. You'd be wise to consider where you are right now. I believe you are still hiding your identity. I can't imagine a fight in public is really what you want. More than that, I believe it is only a matter of minutes until these creatures realize how I am dressed. Anissa explained to Mark. 1 mile up, 2 minutes, that work for you? Mark asked the woman. Yes, Anissa said to the man before flying up and into the air. Mark, who is she? Debbie asked in a panic. Trouble, Mom, go home now, Mark said to the woman. But Mark, Debbie tried arguing. Mom, go home. Now, Mark ordered the woman, his voice ragged and rough. Debbie looked at Mark in terror and slowly nodded. I love you, be careful, son, Debbie said to the boy before getting out of her seat and walking away as fast as she could. Mark walked around the corner and quickly changed into his suit and flew up into the air. All right, you wanted me, here I am, Mark said to the woman. Allow me to apologize, Anissa said to Mark. Apologize? That doesn't sound like what I've come to know about Viltrumites. Who are you? Mark asked the woman. My name is Anissa and I apologize for threatening your mother. I'll be honest, this isn't how I wanted things to start, but I needed you alone as fast as possible. For that, I apologize. Now on to business. You have been designated Viltrumite agent of this planet. What steps have you taken to prepare this planet for eventual takeover? Anissa asked. Well, let me see here. I did nothing. The nothing? Oh, and nothing, that's about it, Mark said sarcastically. I have to admit, seeing her up close, she's unnaturally beautiful, Mark thought to himself as his eyes roamed Anissa's body. Mark couldn't help but observe how her suit hugged her body and perfectly showed off her sculpted arms and legs and accentuated her beautiful curves. I see. If you are still under the impression I am here to fight you, then don't worry, Mark, Anissa said to the man. Oh, and what are you here for? Mark asked the woman. To clarify things, I believe you said something earlier about Viltrumites. I am here to tell you everything you heard or know is mistaken, Anissa explained to Mark. Oh, and you do that by threatening my mother. Way to go, champ, Mark said to the woman sarcastically. I won't deny there are fundamental cultural differences between Viltrumites and the people you were raised amongst, Anissa stated. Go on, Mark said to the woman. Our people are quick to turn violent. It is something we all struggle with. Have you not experienced this yourself? Anissa asked the man. Mark's eyes widened and he began thinking about all the times he snapped. You don't get to touch her, no more Angstrom Levy. Rag. Mark thought back to all the times he snapped and realized his Viltrumite blood was more prevalent than he had thought. Okay, you make a good point, Mark said to the woman. Despite what you know about us and our nature, you are misunderstanding the intent of our drive to conquer other worlds. We take over, yes, and we do take our share of the planet's natural resources, but we bring so much to the planet in return. We really have a lot to offer. Anissa explained to Mark, is this planet not riddled with death and disease? Are these people not plagued by violence and war? A Viltrumite occupation would rid them of all that. We would share our technology, cure their diseases. No unsanctioned violence would occur. We could transform this place into a utopia. Anissa explained to Mark, you have a way with words. They are as beautiful as you are, but they are a lie. You speak honey, but your words are laced with venom. You would make us slaves and would only use us until our resources are gone and our planet destroyed. Right? Mark said to the woman. Now, who has a way with words? It would take hundreds of years for us to harvest what we need from the planet. During that time, would you and the humans of this planet not be happy? You would be in an age of peace your world has never known. This would last for generations until no one even remembered the world before. When we're done, we will have destroyed this planet the same as these beings you wish to protect are already doing. Nothing would be lost. Anissa was explaining to Mark when Mark suddenly was radioed about a cruise liner sinking. Sorry to cut you off, but people are dying and I am needed. Mark told the woman, I am aware you protect these people. If it will convince you that I am compassionate toward these people, I will help. Anissa said to Mark, okay, but remember we are helping people, not killing them. Mark said to the woman as he started flying towards the source of the accident. Mark and Anissa both flew as fast as they could towards the cruise ship to see it being attacked by a giant sea monster. Damn, Mark stated, the monster, I can hurt the monster, right? Anissa asked, of course we can kill it. Mark said to the woman, go for the head, simple and quick. Mark told the woman, who nodded in response. Mark smirked and the two Viltrumites flew straight in and out of the creature's head, killing it with ease. The creature collapsed back into the ocean and freeing the cruise ship. Mark stopped and looked at the dying creature before turning to Anissa. Nice job to you, Mark said slowly. As he observed Anissa's body, seeing the woman drenched in blood awoke a feeling inside Mark that could only be described as primal. His heart pounded and his breath became ragged. He was slowly becoming more and more focused on the woman, that is until screams from the sinking ship drew him back to the world. Mind giving me a hand on getting this boat back to shore? Mark asked the woman. Very well, Anissa said to Mark. She and Mark both flew under the ship and together lifted it out of the water with ease and carried it back to the beach, where the passengers began exiting the ruined ship. You did some very impressive work today, Mark, Anissa said to the man. You did pretty good yourself. I must say I enjoyed watching you work. Mark said to the woman, complimenting her abilities. Thank you. It impresses me even more that you care about these creatures and the planet. In fact, I must say I respect you, Anissa explained to Mark. The Viltrumites and these people don't need to be at odds. We can all get what we want out of this deal. None of these people need to be hurt. How many of these people would have died today if I hadn't been here to help? Maybe none. You are stronger than I had been told, but that doesn't matter if you can't be there. Wouldn't it be nice to get help like this on a regular basis? Wouldn't your life be easier? So what do you say? Are you going to work with us? Anissa asked Mark once again, hoping for him to say yes. Sorry, I'm still not convinced I need your help, Mark said to the woman with a smile on his face. I'm sorry to hear that. This wasn't a negotiation, Anissa said to Mark before punching him his chin and knocking him into the air. She then flew into the air after him and grabbed him by his collar. You have made a huge mistake, Anissa said to the man. She then grabbed Mark and flew him straight back into the ground, slamming him into it hard and creating a crater that cleared a large portion of the island. Don't move. I'm stronger than you. I'm faster than you, and you better believe I'm smarter than you, so don't move. You so much as touch me and it'll set me off. I told you what a nasty temper we Viltrumites have. You piss me off and things will get nasty, Anissa declared as she straddled Mark's waist. Now you're speaking my language, Mark said as he punched Anissa in her mouth and nose, knocking her. Anissa was stunned at the force behind Mark's punch and wiped the blood from her mouth and nose in shock. She then looked up at Mark and smiled viciously. None of my husbands have ever hit me that hard, Anissa stated with pride. A new fire was lit in the woman's eyes and an evil smile dawned her face, one that Mark returned promptly. Are you angry? Get angry. Show me just how nasty you can get, Mark demanded. He and Anissa both rushed each other and punched. Their fists slammed into each other, causing a shockwave that shook the island below them viciously. Thrag's elite guard, she's strong, Mark thought gleefully as he and Anissa struggled to overpower the other. In all of the Viltrumites in the series, she's the only other Viltrumite besides Mark and Nolan to make Thrag bleed. What a woman, Mark thought to himself. Mark grabbed Anissa's arm and threw her over his shoulder and into the island below, sinking a part of the island in the process. Anissa, not to be outdone, shot out of the water violently, causing the water to nearly drown the civilians on the island. She flew straight into Mark and punched him in his jaw, knocking him further into the air. Not bad, Anissa. You certainly hit harder than those chumps on Thraxa did, Mark said to the woman. And you are more of a man than many of the Empire. It almost saddens me that you aren't willing to work with us, Anissa said to the man. How about we end things here? As fun as this has been, I did not come here to fight. You are strong and can take care of yourself, so I feel like a warning is not needed. But I will say this. You can ignore your duties if you want, but be prepared for the consequences. Our reserve forces are thin currently. That is no doubt why you were given the assignment in the first place. So I can't replace you now. You can choose to oppose us if you want. You can deny these people the utopia we could bring them. You could have us flatten these people and we can take what we want, if that is what you wish, or you could work with us and everything would go by much smoother. That decision is yours to make. If you don't in time, a replacement will be found when another agent is available. That agent will be sent here to kill you and you will be replaced and we will take over anyway. It could be days, months, or years. I pray you come to your sense before that time. It would be such a shame for a man like you to die an unnecessary death, Anissa explained to Mark before flying away. Mark watched as the woman's silhouette disappeared into the skyline. What the hell was that? Mark asked as he got a hold of himself. Deep in space, Anissa continued her flight away from Earth until she finally arrived on General Craig's flagship. Well, Craig asked the woman. It could have gone better. Anissa replied, shame, we could have used him. Craig stated bluntly, oh, it's not over yet, that I can assure you. I'm more than confident I can bring him over to our side. It's only a matter of time. Anissa explained to Craig as she looked down at her own blood on her hands. Anissa bit her lip and smiled in anticipation on their next meeting. What's the point of this, Cecil? I told you I already have a decent training program. This machine is still light. Mark told Cecil as he lifted the giant press machine Cecil had built for him. The point is, kid, you need to be stronger than them before they get here, not gallivanting with Eve. Cecil explained to the boy, I told you I'm taking care of that already. Mark told the man. Yeah. How's that? Cecil asked. None of your business, just trust me, I'm taking care of it. Mark told the man, okay, where exactly is the exit in this place? I can't seem to find. Oh, hey, Invincible, what's up, man? Rex asked, drawing Mark and Cecil's attention. Yo, Rex, not much, man, I didn't know you were here. Mark said to the man, yes, some last-minute adjustments to Mooney hand, nothing major. Rex explained. Wait, new hand, what happened? Mark asked the man. Oh, dude, when you were away, aliens invaded and I blew up my hand to kill the lead bastard. Rex explained to Mark. Damn, man, sorry about that. Mark said to the man. Oh, don't worry about it, man. It's not all bad. I can control the distance a little better now. It's pretty cool, actually. Rex said to the man. So, what's been up with you, man? You haven't been in the field for a while, Rex asked. Well, I've been busy training with my little brother and going out with Eve. Besides, nothing big has happened where you guys haven't been able to handle things, and new heroes are popping up every day. I mean, did you see that kid that can change his body around? I think his name was Generator Rex or something like that. And over on the West Coast, there's that fire breather kid. You guys are good. I need to focus on training, Mark explained to Rex as he went over two of the newest heroes to surface as of late. Yeah, I guess, but still, man, Rex argued. Oh, don't worry about it, Rex. I'll still pull your ass out of the fire if you need it. Mark joked. Oh, you're very funny, Rex replied. I hate to break up whatever this is, but there's a situation that could use your attention. Invincible, Cecil said to the man. All right, wanna come along, Rex? Mark asked the man. Sure, why not? I need to test run this thing anyway, let's go. Rex replied. Mark walked up to Rex and grabbed him under his armpits and flew them both out of the GDA's headquarters. You do realize the armpitting is uncomfortable, right? Rex asked the man. Is it really? I wouldn't know. I'd never let another man carry me like this. Mark joked as he continued flying. Whatever, man. Where are we going anyway? Rex asked. The Smithsonian. Hold on tight, Rex. I'm hitting the jets, Mark said to Rex. Rex nodded and closed his eyes as Mark took off as fast as he could without damaging the earth towards the museum. After a few seconds, Mark and Rex both arrived above the museum to see it being robbed by two men robbing the Smithsonian. Are these guys serious? Rex, you take the purple one and I'll take the other, Mark explained to Rex. You got it. Drop me, Rex replied. Mark nodded and dropped Rex right down on top of his target. Oh great, drop kick, hurry and deal with your foe. I'll handle the big guy, Fightmaster said to his partner as he prepared to fight Mark. I see a time sledge. You're from the future, right? Well, let me give you a little spoiler warning. Those items aren't going to help you, Mark explained to the man. Fightmaster's eyes widened in surprise. How could you possibly know that? Fightmaster asked in utter disbelief. I might remember just a smidge of the future, not much anymore, but I do remember this, Mark explained to the man. Killing the immortal was one of my favorite moments, Mark thought to himself with a smile on his face. And if I remember correctly, Mark thought to himself. He looked over his shoulder and smiled at the approaching brother of duplicate Multipole heading right towards Rex. Excuse me 1 second, I'll be right back, Mark said to Fightmaster. He then flew past Rex and slammed into the machine Paul was using to fly and grabbed the man. Hey, Paul, right? Look, dude, your sister's not dead, so do me a favor and just go to sleep, Mark said to the man before slamming his head into his clone's head and knocking him out cold. Dude, Invincible, who's that? Rex asked as he knocked Dropkick out. Multipole, Kate's brother. He was just getting ready to attack you, man. You gotta keep your head on a swivel, Mark joked as he landed in front of Rex. Whoa, thanks I guess, Rex said to the man. Hey, Rex, you might want to turn around body. Mark pointed to the two escaping thieves. Rex turned around and tried attacking the men only for his explosions to miss as they suddenly disappeared within the time stream. Aw man, Rex yelled. Mark looked at the man and laughed at his failure, knowing full well that they were escaping ahead of time. What the hell is going on? Kate asked as she and the immortal arrived on the scene. Oh hey Kate, do me a favor and take your brother from me. I don't really care what you do with him. I was only here today to really mitigate the damages. You can decide what to do with him. I'm sure you guys could use this time to catch up. And who knows, maybe you guys can reconnect again, Mark explained to the girl lazily. He threw the man's body towards the immortal and then flew off from the scene without saying another word. God, I hate filler, but it was fun just kicking it with Rex for a bit. And who knows, maybe with this chance Multipole will be different, Mark thought to himself as he flew over the city. Babe, stop moving so much, Mark complained as Eve shifted around a bit. I can't help it, I need to potty, Eve said to the man as she got up and out of bed. Mark groaned and sat up as well and watched as Eve hurried into the bathroom. The sound of water hitting water followed quickly after. We need you kids. Cecil suddenly radioed to Mark. For what? I'm busy. Call the others. Mark said to the man, there are no others. Everyone else was taken prisoner. Cecil snapped at Mark. What do you mean everyone was captured? You mean to tell me every single other hero on Earth was captured? Are you serious? Mark asked in disbelief. Mark, is something wrong, sweetie? Eve asked as she walked out of the bathroom. Yeah, apparently every single hero on Earth got captured. Cecil just called and asked for help, Mark explained to the woman as he got out of the bed. Oh wow, how did that happen? Eve asked in disappointment. That's what I asked. Apparently they were all attacked all at once. Doc Seismic, I think, but I thought he was cooked in lava. Oh well, you want to come along? Mark asked the woman bluntly. Sure, why not? It's been a while since I've been in the field. Let's go. Give me a sec to get dressed. Eve said to Mark. She opened up her closet and pulled her costume out and quickly changed into it. All right, I'm ready, Eve said to the man as she finished dressing. All right, let's go save the heroes, Mark said triumphantly. Eve nodded and the two flew out of their African house and traveled straight to where Cecil had directed them. When they touched down, they were in the middle of a snowy mountain. I think you got the wrong location there, Cecil, Mark said to the man as he looked around to see nothing. No, that's it. Sorry, the trackers the Cape's employees are given are a bit out of date. Robot just contacted me. They only got his robot body. He's safe. He's got more precise tracking abilities. They're 3 miles down, Cecil explained to Mark. Oh, cool. Eve, you think you can make something to help? Mark turned and asked the woman. Oh, baby, you know I do, Eve said snarkily. She raised her hands and created a giant drill and began digging into the ground. Ah, babe, you rock. Now let's go kick some ass. Mark cheered as he and Eve began going under. It took the woman a few minutes to finally break through to the underground cavern. Oh man, how did Mark ever get anything done with these guys messing up? Mark asked himself. We're almost there, Mark. Are you ready? Eve asked, drawing Mark from his thoughts. Yeah, listen, I got a plan. When we get inside, I want you to focus on freeing the others' heroes. I'll hold the enemies at bay and then we can take all of them out at once. Mark explained to Eve his plan for attack. All right, sounds like a good idea. You be careful, okay? Eve said to the man. Of course, Mark replied. Mark prepared himself and seconds later Eve and Mark broke into Doc's seismic lair. Hey, asshole, remember me? Mark taunted the man as he landed in the room full of creatures. Invincible, I looked for you. I wanted you here most of all, Seismic yelled in anger. Well, here I am. Looks like this party's getting crazy. Let's rock, Mark taunted the man with pleasure. Doc Seismic said with an evil grin on his face. Seismic moved and 2 giant monster centipedes came crashing into the room. Mark smiled and flew straight through both of the creatures' brains in seconds, effectively killing them with ease. Mark looked back and smirked at the speechless man. Come on, Doc. Is that the best you can do? Man, this is just pathetic, Mark said to the man. Doc's face went beet red in anger over Mark's taunting. You're still surrounded by all of my elite, Doc Seismic was explaining. However, as he was Mark quickly killed the molten creatures with ease, speeding around the cavern in seconds and ending the threat by himself. Dead guards, I surrender, Seismic said as he held his hands up in defeat. Yeah, not that easy, Mark said to the man as he punched him in the gut, knocking the wind from his body and leaving him unconscious. Looks like you didn't need our help after all, the Immortal said to Mark as he and the rest of the heroes were finally freed from their restraints. How the hell did you all get caught at the same time? Mark asked the man. We were all caught off guard, Duncan stated as he and Gen Rex cleaned themselves off. Mark laughed at the heroes, causing them all to groan in annoyance. Mark's laughing continued, getting louder and louder until a hole was blown in the roof of the cavern, and in came the murderous Darkwing 2 and the Reanimen. Mark looked up at the group half in confusion and half rage, as he knew he had dealt with Darkwing and had dropped a boulder on his teacher's house, killing the man making the Reanimen. Cecil, Mark growled, is everything all right? Cecil sent us in, Darkwing 2 exclaimed. Mark walked up to the man and planted his fist into Darkwing's chest, drilling him into the ground. Invincible, what are you doing? Savage Dragon asked the man. I thought I dealt with you already. Why didn't Cecil lock you up? Mark asked the unconscious man. Invincible, stand down now, Cecil ordered. Or what? Now you're going to tell me why he's not in jail? Mark replied. We'll talk about it later, Cecil stated. Oh, you motherfucker, Mark cursed as he grabbed Cecil by his collar. He lifted Cecil up into the air and glared at him. Eve walked up behind Mark and placed her hand on his shoulder. Mark, put him down, Eve said softly. Mark turned around to see the heroes staring at him, observing him carefully. Mark sighed and let Cecil go and immediately flew away with a smile on his face. That worked out better than I thought. Did you really think I wouldn't know about your coming betrayal? Now I've got heat on myself and you as well, Cecil, Mark thought to himself. People are watching. Just wait and see how I steal your guardians, Cecil, Mark said to himself as he flew away. Where are you going, Mark? Eve asked the man as she followed behind him. I'm going to get answers. I brought Darkwing to Sequel because he was murdering any man or woman that broke the smallest of laws. And those Reanimen are the same ones our teacher used on those kids who went to school with us, Mark told Eve, making her start to question things as well. I'm going to get answers one way or another. I want you to go to the Guardians and stay with them, Mark told the girl. But Mark, Eve argued, just trust me on this. Mark told the girl before flying away. Time to put on the greatest show there ever was. I'm going to need to lose this for a bit, Mark thought as he pulled the 2 earpieces in his ear out. Man, this is gonna hurt, I just know it, but a necessary risk for greater gain, Mar said to himself. He flew straight to GDA HQ and met with Cecil down in the labs. Kid, I'm sure you've got a bunch of questions, but I need you to follow me first, Cecil told Mark. Mark followed Cecil down into the basement and into the White Room. Mark looked around and silently laughed to himself. Skipping a lot of pleasantries, aren't we? Oh well, Mark thought to himself. Okay, now what do you want to know, kid? Cecil asked. I want to know why you never went public with Darkwing. Mark asked. You know why, kid? Cecil replied. Oh, come on, Cecil, don't give me that good of the world crap. We both know that's a lie. And why are we in the White Room? Mark asked the man. Well, don't want anyone else to see us? Or maybe. Mark stuck his hand out and grabbed the nearest thing to him and started squeezing. You were planning to ambush me, Mark asked the man. He squeezed the reanimated android so hard it exploded in his hands. Well, what can I say? I didn't want to end up like Angstrom Levy. Cecil told Mark. Take him down, Cecil ordered, and the hidden killers appeared and attacked Mark. I came here to confront you on working with killers and murders, and you attack me? Not smart, Cecil, especially when these things can't hurt me, Mark told the man. Suddenly Mark felt a searing pain in his ear. RGHHH, Mark yelled in pain. Fuck, this hurts. At least that damned device isn't embedded in my ear, Mark thought to himself. I can see you're confused. See, after your father left you for dead and threatened to take over the world, did you think we'd trust you so easily? No, that communicator embedded in your ear isn't alone in there. We gambled and it paid off. Your equilibrium isn't as invulnerable as you are. We were right. It looks like we found a weakness, Cecil told Mark. Well, you're half right, Mark thought as he got to his feet. You think that'll stop me from tearing this place apart? Why, Irig, I think you should calm down, Mark. After all, this thing could kill you, Cecil told the boy. Yeah, what's the range on that thing? Mark asked. Range? What do you? Cecil was asking. Mark quickly burst out of the room and flew towards Guardians HQ. Okay, I can make it there, Mark thought to himself. Arig, Mark yelled. Almost there. Mark could see Guardians HQ in sight. Instead of taking his time to stop, Mark crashed right through the top of the base and landed down right in front of the others. Mark, Eve yelled. What the? Rex gasped. Help, I need help, Mark told the Guardians. Eve ran over to Mark and helped him to his feet. What's going on? Is something after you? Dude, what happened? Rex surprisingly asked in concern. I didn't have anywhere else to go. Robot, I need your help. I need you to get this thing out of my ear before he catches up to me, Mark told the boy. Who's after you? Did they follow you here? Robot asked. It's Cecil, Mark told the Guardians. He tried to kill me. What? They all yelled in shock. Don't listen to him, Guardians. Cecil spoke as he walked through his teleporting door. To any of you who value your position on this team, you'll stay out of this. Dude, what are you saying? Rex asked. I know some of you consider yourselves to be friends with Invincible. I would have done the same before today, but listen to me when I say this. He is no friend to any of us now, Cecil explained. He's doing everything he can to compromise the security of this planet. He's undermining me and my organization, the organization that funds this team. I hate that it's come to this, but I must ask you to help me restrain him, Cecil told the Guardians. What? No way in hell, Cecil, Eve told the man. What happened to you, Invincible? Robot asked the man. Don't listen to him. He's not telling you the whole story. He's employing murderers. The men who came to help stop Doc Seismic, Darkwing, and those androids, all monsters. I was sent into Midnight City by Cecil months ago to stop a murder, and when I arrived, I found it was Darkwing. He was killing anyone who broke the law, no matter how small a law it was. And I know you might not believe it, but it's true. And then those androids, Eve, you know this, those things were created by a madman who terrorized my school and homeless people. I know you all saw that on the news, Mark explained to the Guardians. I saw that, Bulletproof spoke. I thought those things looked familiar. Cecil, is Invincible telling the truth about these things? Robot asked as he and the Guardians looked at Cecil. This isn't what we signed up for, Rex told the man. Hey, gotcha, Cecil. Mark laughed to himself. Suddenly his ears were floods with the searing pain once again. Mark, Eve yelled as the man's body started to writhe in pain. Damn it, Invincible, you're spreading like a virus, ruining everything. I don't care anymore. We'll sort this all out once you're all restrained. Cecil spoke. Attack, Cecil ordered his zombie soldiers. Well, now it's on, Rex yelled as he and the rest of the Guardians attacked the reanimen. Rex jumped over one of the androids and stuck his exploding staff in its mouth, blowing its head off. Hold on, Invincible, I'll take care of this, Rex told the man. I swear I'll destroy you for this, Cecil, Eve told the man as she protected Mark from the androids trying to get to him. This is all a misunderstanding. What are you doing? Cecil asked. Saving my friend, Rex told Cecil as he knocked the switch, causing the sonic noise to hurt Mark out of Cecil's hand. No, you don't understand, Cecil yelled. Rex didn't listen and instead used his explosives to blow the device up. Arg, Mark yelled in further pain. Crap, what happened? Rex asked in confusion. It's a failsafe. With the transmitter down, the pulse is constant, Robot told Rex. That's why Invincible was running instead of attacking. Geez, sorry, what do we do now? Rex asked. I've got you, Mark, hold on. Eve told the man as she put her hands around his ear. Mark's yelling stopped and he got to his feet, his eyes bloodshot in anger. Don't worry, I've neutralized the pulse. Robot told Mark. Cecil, realizing he had lost his footing, decided it would be best to pull out for now. Okay, that's it. We're done here. This is over. I do whatever it takes to save the world. End of story. I don't give a damn what any of you think of what I do. You want to quit? Quit, see if I care. You guys are a dime a dozen. And Mark, our partnership is through. You ever get in my way again and I'll kill you. Cecil threatened. Mark rubbed his ears and placed his earpiece back in. Fine, but Cecil. What? Cecil asked. Mark quickly grabbed Cecil and slammed him up against the wall. You're right, we are done. Whatever I've been paid, I'm keeping it. Whatever you've given us, I'm keeping it. If you come near me or my family again, you die. You even think in your brain to try and recruit my little brother, you die. Got it? Mark told Cecil. Cecil nodded and Mark threw him to the ground. Oh, and by the way, the GDA is about to get very useless. Mark told the man. Thanks, guys. I appreciate all you helping me. Mark told the former guardians. Come on. We're done here, Mark told the girl. Mark stood quietly in his room with a whiteboard and markings on it. Okay, let's go over this. I've made strides in my training over the past 3 weeks. I'm up to 68 times Earth's gravity in the chamber. I've gotten stronger too. I can feel it. I know Conquest is heading to Earth right about now, and I know I've got at least 2 months before Angstrom returns. Perhaps it's time to test my mettle against a strong foe. I should be able to beat him, but if I'm wrong, I'll die. Mark thought deeply about his choice until finally he nodded. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Mark grabbed his phone and dialed Eve's number. Hey, Mark, what is it? Eve asked over the phone. I need to head into space for a while. Mark told the girl. Why, what's going on? Eve asked. Look, I need to go take care of a threat coming to the planet. I'm going to be gone for a bit. I honestly don't know how long. Mark told the girl. And what, you expect me to be okay with this? Eve asked the man. Yes, I do, and I hate to be that guy, but this is happening. And it will happen again until I'm certain our planet is safe from those who want to destroy it. I know it's unfair of me to ask this of you, but I have to go. Mark explained to the woman. There was a silence on the other end of the phone, and Mark knew that Eve was not happy of the news. Can I come with you? Eve suddenly asked. No, you can't. It's too dangerous. I'm sorry. Mark replied. I had Robot make another communicator like the one Alan left with me. If you need to reach me or just want to check if I'm safe, you can use it to call me anytime. Mark told the girl. What about Invincible Inc.? Eve asked. I'm leaving you in charge of it. Until I get back, you and Oliver will be my on-the-ground agents. And if you need it, Rex and his team are on standby. I also pulled some strings and got Firebreather on board, so Invincible Inc. will be taken care of. Mark explained to the girl. Okay, Mark, you're right. I don't like it, but I'm glad you told me instead of just vanishing. I'll handle things on Earth. Just be careful, okay? I need you, Mark. I can't do this without you. Eve told the man. Mark rubbed his eyes in an attempt to fight back his tears. Hearing Eve sad wasn't something he enjoyed, being the one behind it even less. I'm sorry, Eve. I want you to know that I love you, Mark told the woman. I love you too, Mark. Take care of yourself, Eve responded. Wait, Eve, there's one more thing. I need you to tell Robot to get to work on that frequency that hurt me. I don't know how, I don't know when. But I do know that Levy's gonna come back. And when he does, I know he's going to come with an army of me's. Mark told the woman. Levy, you killed him though, Eve stated. I thought I did, but I've got a feeling he survived. Cecil doesn't have his body, and then there's been this weird feeling like I was being watched. I need you to trust me on this. Mark told the woman. Okay, is there anything else? Eve asked. Yes, take care of yourself. When I get back, I promise I'm going to make this up to you, Eve. Mark told the woman. I'll see you again, Mark told the woman before hanging up the phone. Let's make this count. Mark said to himself. He opened up his window and flew out of it and into the sky. He took one last deep breath and then rocketed off with great force into space beyond. I don't even know where to begin to look. I guess I'll try heading for the Coalition first. Maybe they can give me some kind of direction towards the home planet. The travel through space was rather spectacular and marvelous. Mark passed by many of planets, some vibrant and beautiful and others droll. However, as Mark flew through space, he suddenly ran into a giant ship. That's a prison ship. Mark thought to himself. What's it doing out here? It can't be the same one Dad's trapped on. Mark thought to himself. Guess I'm about to find out, Mark thought to himself. He picked up his speed and slammed into the ship. Deep inside the ship that Alan and Nolan were indeed on, Alan was in the middle of his escape when the ship suddenly rocked. What the hell? Alan cursed as he caught himself on the walls of the ship. The alarms started blaring, and Alan knew he had to pick up the pace. Alan stuck his arms into the walls and flew down the hall, tearing open all of the cells. Who is brave enough to free Battle Beast? Battle Beast yelled as he stepped out of his cell. That would be me. Would you be interested in helping my friend and I escape this prison? Alan asked the man. I desire only to find worthy adversaries. You can have my aid only until our two goals no longer coincide. Battle Beast replied. Works for me this way. Alan told the man as he started running down the hall. As those two started wrecking houses, Mark continued smashing through the ship until finally he arrived in the Viltrumites' holding cell. Who dares interrupt a Viltrumite execution? One of the men asked. This ceremony is sacred. The other one yelled. Is taught right? Well, too damn bad. The only ones dying today are you two. Mark told the men. Mark, Nolan shouted. Hey, Dad. Ready to get off this damn ship? Mark asked the man. You know it. Nolan replied. Mark took a step towards the two when the roof of the room suddenly tore open. Hello, anyone home? Alan shouted as he and Battle Beast broke into the room. Wait, Invincible, what are you doing out here? Alan stopped and asked. I was heading to the coalition of planets, or at least trying to find it when I came upon this ship. Decided to test my luck, Mark told the man. Ready to kick these Viltrumites assess? Mark asked. Viltrumites? Did you say Viltrumites? Battle Beast shouted. He then ran up to the closest man and grabbed him up by his collar. Are you the ones I seek? The fabled conquerors feared across the universe in all corners of existence. I must face you in battle. Fight me, Battle Beast demanded. While Battle Beast confronted the men, Mark broke Nolan free from his restraints. This guy for real? Nolan asked. Seems that way. He's a huge help, Alan told the man. Good, let's kill these bastards. Mark told the two the odds were massively in Mark and Nolan's favor as Battle Beast battled with one of the Viltrumites, giving him the battle he wanted more than anything else, leaving Mark, Alan, and Nolan to easily dismantle the remaining guard. Kill him, Nolan shouted as he grabbed one of the man's arms. This is going to hurt, Mark told the man as he and Alan began helping Nolan tear the man limb from limb. Mark pulled and ripped the man's arm off. A lot. Mark then grabbed the man's head and Alan and Nolan each grabbed a leg and pulled. Yeha, the man shouted in pain as he felt his skin tearing. With one final tug, Mark separated the man's upper body from his lower half. Is done, but stay ready, there's more enemies coming our way. Nolan told the two men. Let them come, we can survive in space. Mark told the two. Can they? He asked. Nolan and Alan smirked and each lined up against a wall as a platoon of guards rushed towards them. Now, Mark shouted. With one fierce punch, the three men destroyed the entire wall of the ship, causing everyone to spill out into the void. As the three men floated, Nolan suddenly flew up and hugged Mark. I'm so glad to see you, son. Nolan told the man. I'm glad to see you too, Dad. Mark told the man. Look, I don't want to ruin the reunion, but we need to hurry. I need to grab my scanner and we need to get out of here before more Viltrumites come. I'm sure they were already alerted. Alan told the two men. Oh, you don't need to worry about that. Nolan told the man. Why? Alan asked. You have time to get your gear. Take your time. We'll look for supplies. Trust me, no one's coming. Nolan told the man. How do you know that? How can you be sure? Alan asked. They're not coming because there's no one to send. I am confident in this because I know how far away the Viltrumites are, Nolan told the man. My execution was postponed because they were called away. It was only recently they were able to send back the 2 agents required by law for an execution. They had no one to spare. The reason for this is simple. There are less than 50 pure-blooded Viltrumites left alive in the whole universe. Nolan explained to the 2 men. That's the secret. That's why we can beat them, I see. Okay, I'll grab my scanner. You guys go ahead and reunite, Alan told the man before flying back to the ship. Mark slowly started to float towards the ship as well, but was stopped by Nolan. Where are you going? Nolan asked. I want to try and find a communicator, something I can use to send a message to the Viltrumites. Mark told the man. What? Why? Nolan asked. Just because. Can you help me do that? Mark asked the man. Yeah, but you'd be putting your face out there, Nolan told the man. It already is, Mark replied. Nolan nodded and followed Mark back to the ship. Once inside the main control room, Nolan finished setting the device for Mark up. It's ready, Nolan told the man. Mark nodded and stepped forward. My name is Mark Grayson. I am a Viltrumite half-breed. My father is Nolan Grayson. I send this message to you, my fellow Viltrumites, to tell you that I will not have any further transgressions against my home planet. Do you hear me, Thrag? Do you understand me? You ever set foot near my home, and I will kill you. Let this message reach your ears. Send your best, your strongest, and I will crush them under my foot. I, Mark Grayson, am declaring war on you all. And Thrag, when the time comes, I will crush you as well. You have been warned. Mark's message played out across the universe on every Viltrumite platform there is. That arrogant brat, surely he does not think there will be no consequences for this. Craig exclaimed in disbelief. I can't wait to meet you again, Anissa thought to herself as she watched the message. She smiled and bit her lips so hard it bled. Sitting on his throne in his flagship, Thrag watched the message angrily. Once it was over, he slammed his fist down on the chair, shattering the armrest. Get me conquest now, Thrag commanded. Yes, sir. One of Thrag's underlings responded before running out of the room. Mark Grayson, you just signed your death warrant, Thrag thought to himself as he replayed the message once again. Over on the other side of the galaxy, Conquest had just gotten in touch with Thrag's command ship. I saw it very clearly. Tell the Grand Regent I'll gladly handle this, Conquest stated before crushing the communication device in his hand.
Hello, everyone. As we wrap up this video, I want to share a quick note. I have a Patreon account. If you'd like to support me and enjoy on-demand audiobooks, you can become a Patreon member. Alternatively, you can check out my Google Drive link, which has 500+ novel audiobooks available through my Ko-fi or Patreon shop. I appreciate your support.